I'll tell you what, Pokemon wasn't the only thing that had a chokehold on my youth as I grew up. In fact, at some points, Yu-Gi-Oh! Held a bigger spotlight for me. From the incredibly different beginnings the series had to what it turned into, and is still to this day, is an incredible story of having a personal desire to explore an interesting concept that inadvertently created a demand to commercialize a product that to this day is as strong as ever in the competitive card game circuit. All of this was thanks to Kazuki Takahashi, and his fascination with the birth of games being played stemming back to ancient Egypt, prompting why the show, from its early days, was so infused with ancient Egyptian lore. It was meant to be everything that he loved and what inspired him, and hopefully be a vessel to inspire others as well. That's why the initial 7 volumes of the manga are so different from what comes after. All of these different games and challenges were played and shown off, with some of them having relation to controlling and battling monsters, but one of them captivated the readers of the manga so much that the Duel Monsters card game became the phenomenon it is essentially by accident. From there, Yu-Gi-Oh! As a brand and the card game aspect of it played in the real world have made it part of the big 3 card games, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And the value of the brand and all that it has amassed can be looked at as nearly as big as what Pokemon has become. Today, I wanted to start a journey with you all where I share my love for the franchise and really look into the early days of the original main ending of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I hold on to so tightly from my childhood. Starting from the manga, going into the original series, the thrilling conclusion, and the epilogue to tie off the original incarnation of the main set of characters. I will touch on the legacy of Yu-Gi-Oh! As well, the card game, the video games, the continuation of the anime and manga that focuses on other protagonists and characters beyond what I consider the OG story being told throughout this multiple part series. So welcome to the puzzling world of Yu-Gi-Oh! To understand how different Yu-Gi-Oh! Truly started out, we have to look at the original 7 volumes of the manga, where throughout Weekly Shonen Jump in Japan, the series, which translates to The King of Games, would be released as a horror manga. The world we get brought into and the characters within it are much like the original series you'd be most familiar with. We just wouldn't have them as we know them in the traditional sense just yet. It focuses on Yugi, who likes playing a variety of games, but after he ends up solving the puzzle piece placements of the ancient relic called the Millennium Puzzle, his life is changed forever when the spirit of an ancient pharaoh becomes infused with him, and his personality takes over the kind-hearted student and plays games with dangerous consequences with the various bad people or those with darkness in their hearts that cause problems for Yugi and his friends or acquaintances. These shadow games, if you will, would elevate the stakes of whatever's at hand, whether that's getting stabbed in the hand, having your mind completely corrupted and destroyed, sight censorship, poisonous ice puck explosions, or even burning alive an escaped prisoner who holds our main characters hostage at gunpoint. The results more often than not were deadly. Yes, Yugi, or the embodiment of the game-craving Pharaoh, would go as far as to kill their opponent, but with the caliber of people they were, or what they were doing, made it most times satisfying to see, rather than just having this level of lethalness for the sake of it. More horrifying than it being a horror manga at the start was the fact that if you were a fan of what Yu-Gi-Oh! Soon would become, and then you'd go back and discover where it all came from, seeing these sometimes more adult situations play out, and your perspective on the characters you may know and love is flipped a little bit, it really kind of blows your mind. I feel that for many in the US, and for the rest of the world for that matter, discovered these original stories for Yu-Gi-Oh! Post getting into the main anime or card game. So what changed here? The manga was starting to find an audience and having the ability to connect with the readers, as the concept of the series was interesting enough to keep you invested, if not for the sheer fact of seeing how Yugi's opponents would be dealt with. Yugi is portrayed as this weaker and smaller than most kid who becomes this hero-like champion of various different games until some sort of justice is dished out in graphic form. It was inspiring in how it dealt with friendship, weird with how it handled some more adult circumstances and setups, but most of all captivating with how it began to world build, bringing in more characters to set up parts of who we'd know them as in the main series proper. While the games themselves would vary from situation to situation, there was one that ended up standing out above the rest. One that would spark a connection to the readers that would change the trajectory of the series, that would turn it into one of the biggest franchises of all time, now passing over 25 years in existence and still going. Magic and Wizards, at least is what it was known as in Japan before being named Duel Monsters, would be shown off as a game played in the original manga, and rather than just being something lightly explained just so we can get to the action of it all, Takahashi's love of playing these games would show by how the rules of how to play would be explained, offering a way for those at home to basically play it themselves if they want. With Duel Monsters, the explanation of how to play mixed with how fun it was shown off led to an actual want from the readers to have more of it, like a lot more of it. The response this game created for a one-off part of the manga was loud and it was heard. There was now an opportunity to expand on this one particular concept and not only make it the point of the grander franchise at large, but make it a real and tangible thing for those who want to play it. Shonen Jump would start receiving letters and inquiries about this card game. Where can they learn more about it? How can they actually play it? So of course Shonen Jump and Takahashi sat down to discuss this unprecedented reaction and how they can move forward navigating it. How can they reshape Yu-Gi-Oh to become even bigger while still keeping his vision for the series intact? Well, it wouldn't be easy, but it would require a light reboot of what the series was in general. Once the remainder of the original and darker manga was coming to an end, the series would shift to a more easily accessible and focused setup that would make Duel Monsters the core theme all around. Yu-Gi-Oh would turn into what we know as Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist in manga form, and from there the expansion of the series would be focused on the card game, for a broad scope of physical real-world product. Of course, with this are the add-ons of entertainment that would directly feed back into the card game, as they would also find their own major fan bases. Like the main anime, regardless of the 4Kids dubbing issues, really had steam behind it in pulling in more and more people, and with the video games, aside from either having a version of the card game virtually, or some spin-off that isn't exactly the main card game, would come packaged with a set of 3 really cool promo cards that give that additional want to also get them. Shonen Jump, especially when it came to the United States with monthly Shonen Jump, would most times offer a free Yu-Gi-Oh! Promo card in the magazine, and on top of that, some volumes of the manga would come with a promo included there as well. I can't tell you the amount of times I was at a Borders bookstore looking for the newest volume of the manga and seeing that it was ripped into and the promo card was stolen out of it. Suffice to say that the mania around Yu-Gi-Oh! As a franchise blossomed just as fast as the fictional version of the card game did in the manga and anime, going from this small one-off idea to then the only game that anyone and everyone wanted to play. Islands meant for dueling competitions or schools, a whole city transformed to fit the biggest tournament yet, in a future that completely transforms what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is and can be. It's a lot that all started from what can be considered random happenstance. As far as the manga goes, before we move on from it, I loved it growing up. Of all places, the first time I discovered the standalone manga for Yu-Gi-Oh! Was it being on sale at a Blockbuster near my house, and being able to get it as I found out about the darker origins of the series. Shonen Jump was a huge help with my love for that all as well. Month to month, reading new chapters and falling in love with collecting and reading this format. I talked more about my introduction to it all in my Shonen Jump video from a while back, so I won't just reiterate it all here, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Just became this great vessel for me to get into manga, and I really appreciate seeing and getting to understand the weirder origins of the series, and funny enough, really enjoying it for what it was. That appreciation extends to the animated version of what would come to be known as Season 0 of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'd like to take a moment and thank today's sponsor, Factor. I struggle with time management sometimes, and I can't always be going to the grocery store, especially when I have a lot going on between work and my personal life. I also don't want to just order food, so Factor found a way to make everything even easier and in a much healthier and better tasting way. Factor offers fast and healthy pre-prepared meals that come in a delivery kit straight to your door. With a plethora of options ranging from low-calorie keto, vegan, and vegetarian, there is always something that your taste buds will thank you for choosing. Each week you have a list of highly customizable chef-made options to choose from for your upcoming shipment. It's literally as easy as popping this into a microwave, and in 2 minutes a nicely prepared meal is ready to eat. And aside from the great meals, Factor offers some other great options for you, like smoothies or juices that are perfect to get your morning started, as well as other stuff like small bites and full-on breakfast options. I have been wanting to continue to eat healthier on my tighter schedule, and Factor has been that solution for me, saving me time in the kitchen so I can instead cook up some videos for you to watch, and maybe you'll be eating a Factor meal while watching one of my videos. Head over to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50fringe to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50fringe at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring this video. Also, for the sake of both redundancy and for the unattached nature of it, we won't spend a lot of time digging into Season 0 of Yu-Gi-Oh! It basically is just a lot of what I went over with the manga itself, but for how much I appreciate it for bringing these darker stories to life through animation, I at least want to acknowledge some aspects of it. While the manga started in 1996, the anime adaptation of those first 7 volumes would premiere in 1998 and span 27 episodes to cover what the manga itself did. I just love how when we start the series here, Yugi and Joey, or by his Japanese name Janucci, aren't the tight bonded friends we'd come to love. I mean, mean, the whole point of Takahashi's planning for these characters was to build the friendship between these two, taking the first two letters out of their names and putting them together as Yujo, which creates the Japanese word for friendship. So that one promo card that's called Yujo Friendship just means friendship. Well, it's hyphenated on the card to avoid that, and illustrated so you just can kind of understand exactly what they were trying to portray here. But Joey, or Janucci here, is portrayed as more of a bully towards Yugi, as we then explore his own issues getting bullied and beat down, building up Yugi's character as this person who isn't about fighting or violence, will still stick up for his friends, or in this case, early on, his bully to protect him from their bully. As the puzzle eventually gets fully put together after the tightening of the bond between Yugi and Janucci, the spirit of the Pharaoh that takes over control in confrontational moments completely unleashes what Yugi isn't for, and that's a shadow game of chance where the loser can face severe and or deadly consequences, deservedly so or not. It's a really nice balance of character personality and making children-focused games become a game of violence. Much like the manga, the series here would skew more towards the teenage audience, having more adult situations most often found in anime and manga, where some things may be more risque and violent, leading to those aspects being turned down greatly to fit in with the changing of the brand, to be open to everyone of all ages. The way the anime deals with bringing in dual monsters and along with that, Seto Kaiba, is truly a great time, and not just for the fact that it's Kaiba with the green hair. It's really all about the humble beginnings of it, how it's talked about and introduced as a game that has been around and is becoming more popular again among their age range in the show. We also get to explore Kaiba as he loses to Yugi and begins using his vast riches to get revenge, and where he's left at before we are reintroduced to the new him in the main anime. It's also cool to see why Mokuba, Seto's younger brother, starts coming into play, and through him we get into the Capsule Monster game that spawned its own little fan base. But nothing would have the same impact that the Duel Monsters game did. Also, what the series does, much like the manga, is give us a little exploration into the relationship between Yugi and Taya, or her name in Japanese, Anzu. Once we get into the main show proper, their awkwardness around each other and that constant pull between loosens up to not make it the focus, but there is a true connection between them that shows just how close they are in both more serious moments or in downtime between larger events that happen. Overall, it was just great to see these moments from the manga shown off with some fun animation, from more serious and violent moments to Tamagotchi-like games and more chill side quests. I feel it blends the action genre with the slice of life genre really well, where it doesn't have to rely on one side or the other to be interesting, ending things off with the big battle with Bakura, another character with a Millennium item, that brings forth a powerful spirit and really steps up some more major character arcs for Bakura in the main anime, and the truth behind the spirits that gives us some finality in the overall series conclusion for these characters. This also led to the first technical Yu-Gi-Oh movie. No, not the one that hit theaters in the early 2000s that got you those promo cards for going to see it. We'll get into that one later. This movie was the ending of the Toei produced series before the shift would happen, as this came out in 1999, and honestly, it's more of a special than a movie, but that's just how it's listed. Kaiba, now without the green hair, is building up the presence as this powerful duelist, while Yugi and Janucci help out a kid who isn't really that much of a duelist, but ends up getting a really rare card known as Red Eye's Black Dragon, aka my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card, monster, whatever, and Kaiba really wants it, forcing anyone who gets an invite to this Duel Monsters tournament to enter. Kaiba's henchmen, who rough them all up, end up taking the Millennium Puzzle, so now Yugi decides to confront Kaiba, getting back his puzzle and letting the spirit of the Pharaoh take over for this big battle. It's a visual spectacle with some of my favorite animation for the franchise in general, delivering an incredible duel between Yugi and Kaiba that results in Yugi winning, the kid feeling inspired, and a solid note to end this early introduction era to Yu-Gi-Oh! I absolutely love the manga. I love Season 0, and I highly recommend, if you've never seen it or read it, to do so. But that's the end of the early moments for the franchise before knowing exactly what it would turn into, as the turn of the century would bring forward what Yu-Gi-Oh! Would become and be most known for. At the start of the 2000s, Yu-Gi-Oh! Would premiere as the new revamped version, as in late September of 2001, this series would premiere in the US, ready to begin truly growing the fan base outside of Japan. It brings you up to speed insanely fast with how the lore of the series will go, talking about how the ancient pharaohs sealed away the magic that was used in playing these destructive and deadly shadow games, and these imprisoned powers were placed into all of the different Millennium items, which brings us to the modern day of the story taking place where Yugimoto has finished solving the ancient Millennium puzzle, which unlocks the spirit of the Pharaoh, and is set forward on a path of destiny to not allow the Shadow Games to return for the sake of the fate of the world. The first episode reestablishes the focus of the series being set on the card game and those who play it. We get to see the main friend group of Yugi, Joey, Tristan, and Taya, who all have their own levels of interest in the game itself, with Yugi and Joey clearly being the most into it. Yugi's grandpa is a part of the heart of the show, running a shop where people can purchase cards from, as he has his own very extensive collection of cool, rare, and valuable cards that Yugi and his friends get to drool over. Another person who drools over them too is Seto Kaiba, labeled as the top-ranking duelist, and he notices that Yugi's grandpa has a Blue Eyes White Dragon in his collection, offering him a briefcase of rare cards and even money in exchange for his Blue Eyes White Dragon, but he doesn't budge as the card means a lot to him and won't ever give it up. We see this buildup of Kaiba being this evil, tunnel-visioned antagonist who takes the Kaiba Corporation towards a focus of elevating what is possible with duel monsters through virtual and hologram technology. At first, we see his powers in sending out his henchmen to do his bidding, kidnapping Yugi's grandpa and forcing Yugi and friends to head over to Kaiba Corp to deal with him. When they arrive, they find Yugi's grandpa defeated, with the winner getting the other's most valuable card as a prize, as Kaiba then rips in half the Blue Eyes White Dragon he took from Yugi's grandpa, truly making him such an over-the-top evil character before we spend part of the series exploring why that is later on. In this moment, Yugi's grandpa gives him a deck that he built, saying he put his soul into it and he doesn't even know how his soul is going to be used as soon as the following episodes. Yugi takes the deck and is asked to teach Kaiba to respect the heart of the cards. Yugi's friends back him up and prepare him to handle this challenge, as Taya draws a smiley face and parts through all of their hands as a symbol of their friendship and not being in this alone. Kaiba brings the world of the duel to life with his virtual system, turning the battlefield into an actual battlefield, with Yugi having his transformation moment, embodying the spirit of the Pharaoh. This whole battle builds up to a climactic finish as Yugi starts pulling individual pieces of a mysterious powerful monster, while Kaiba brings forth his 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, leaving Yugi with little life points and no way out. That is until the Heart of the Cards helps him pull the final piece of Exodia. A card when assembled through its 5 pieces is unbeatable and creates an instant endgame, defeating the opponent, and Yugi ends up winning the battle. This moment sets a real trajectory for Kaiba's path forward, as Yugi uses his Mind Crush magical ability, or simply just saying opened your mind here, causing Kaiba's internal way of thinking to shatter in the efforts of removing the evil in his heart and to open up his mind. Mokuba witnesses this happen, and his own attachment to the series begins, and we end on seeing a character we haven't met yet named Maximilian Pegasus, the technical creator of duel monsters, in the world of the show, as he gets informed of Yugi defeating Kaiba, giving him some sort of idea while we catch a glimpse of his own Millennium item, the Millennium Eye. It's a solid opening episode of the show that introduces us to the characters we'll be dealing with throughout the series, a way to understand the concept of the card game, and also show that things are a bit goofy, but in a charming way. The representation of the Heart of the Cards and the overreactions to it all set up a lighthearted tone in more serious moments to build up the empowering spirit of believing in yourself, your friends, and yeah, the Heart of the Cards. The dub of this compared to the original Japanese version clearly shows how lacking the writing can feel at times, but even with the over-explanations and exposition dumps, ridiculous reactions, and silly wording of things, this is the version of the show that I and many others grew up with. I can still poke at these issues while enjoying it for what it was, and for what it meant to me. After that introduction episode, episode 2 brings in the setup for the story for this season, as Yugi and his friends watch some of the regional championship, seeing 2 other high-level players, Weevil and Rex, dueling with their respective themed decks of bugs and dinosaurs, where Weevil wins, earning the trophy from Pegasus himself with an invite to Duelist Kingdom, an island that will host a bold new tournament for the best of the best players of the game. But his reasonings for hosting such an event in the first place may be focused on something else, wanting to bring duelists to the island in hopes that those out there with Millennium items will come. Yugi receives a package from Pegasus though that on the inside contains a special glove with divots in it to place star-shaped emblems known as star chips, with 2 of them in the box to start out with, along with a VHS tape that he then proceeds to play. The video offers a weird challenge of dueling right now through the video, but Pegasus's power freezes time and magically puts them into a timed battle to see who can best who in the Shadow Realm. Thanks to his Millennium Eye, he basically cheats when he duels thanks to seeing Yugi's cards and predicting Yugi's moves. Pegasus goes on to explain the past about the Shadow Games and how duel monsters hold that same energy and magic from back then, but are brought to life again to their real world, and this other dimension that they're in, giving Yugi a better understanding of what's going on. Yugi does his best to outsmart Pegasus and overcome the challenge that his abilities bring, but when Yugi may have the winning blow here, the 15-minute time limit runs out for the duel, and Pegasus wins off of having more life life points, as he warns Yugi that their next duel will be for way higher stakes, showing off his Millennium Eye and forcing Yugi's hand to come to Duelist Kingdom by stealing the soul of Yugi's grandfather, entrapping him in a card. Poor old guy just can't catch a break, can he? The video is an invitation to Duelist Kingdom in the most fun way possible, giving Pegasus a chance to show how menacing and evil that he can be, and giving us a glimpse at how he technically cheats in battle to defeat any opponent that tries to face him. It's all some really good world building and a solid narrative drive for Yugi to have to now be confrontational when it comes to playing this card game that he enjoys for fun. Yugi and friends make their way to Duelist Kingdom as Yugi sacrificed one of his star chips so that Joey could also join in attendance, as he has a personal reason for entering the tournament. While Yugi wants to save his grandpa, Joey wants the prize money for his sister Serenity so they can pay the medical cost to try and save her eyesight. Taya and Tristan are coming along as well, but they had to sneak aboard the boat as they aren't official competitors themselves in the tournament. This episode really gives us the connection of Yugi and Joey's friendship as they look back on how they became close, calling back to the original stories of when Joey bullied Yugi, but Yugi stood up for him when he was getting bullied as well. And even further, when we meet a bunch of competitors on the boat, like Weevil, who tricks Yugi into seeing his Exodia cards just to toss them out into the ocean to stop him from using the most powerful instant game winner going forward. And Joey jumps in after them and is mad that he couldn't save the cards for Yugi. And now Yugi must enter in the tournament without those cards, but at least he has a great friend in Joey who would risk his own safety over his friend's cards. The action starts right away when they arrive at the island as Yugi gets challenged to a duel with Weevil, to which of course he accepts. Now, the use of holograms and those special bringing these monsters to life setups are something Yugi is just getting used to, thanks to the first 2 episodes. But now, throughout the island are these special dual arena platforms that project the cards out to make it a flashy dueling experience, something that Kaiba, who is working on perfecting in a mobile way, will come back into the series with, that carries the future of the series post-Duelist Kingdom. The rules here are pretty simple. You need to earn more star chips, wagering them in the duels where you need a certain amount of them to be allowed into the finals essentially, and if you lose all of your star chips, you're out of the tournament. Now, the show, for the purpose of entertainment, has a bunch of tactics or moves made in duels that aren't possible in the card game itself, and logically don't make the most sense, but visually it lends to some really cool moments, and we can just acknowledge that fact now since we're not dissecting every single duel strategy that appears in the show. Yugi ends up defeating Weevil in a satisfying way, and soon after this, Joey is able to get his game on as he takes on My Valentine and her Harpy ladies, having to end up using his soon-to-be classic combo of having Time Wizard change up the luck for him, turning his baby dragon into Thousand Dragon and winning this match. What I really like about the Duelist Kingdom arc of the anime is that we get to meet so many cool and different duelists that bring some tough themed decks, and what a great selling tactic it was to want to pull these cards from current sets that would be released in stores. I always loved the cards that the next opponent they'd face, Mako Tsunami, had in his deck. He's also a pretty cool character overall, as they first enjoy a meal together before Yugi ends up getting challenged to a battle by Mako, to which Yugi ends up pulling off a win. After this happens, we see a mysterious kid escaping from the castle and is after Yugi for some unknown reason, who apparently takes this other duelist's cards and star chips, and Yugi along with his friends are the good guys, so they end up offering to help get them back for this duelist. When Yugi runs into the mysterious kid who stole everything, Yugi wagers all of his star chips in the duel to get everything back for the other duelist, so he doesn't get kicked out of the tournament for unfair reasons. Surprise, the mysterious kid is Mokuba, Seto Kaiba's younger brother, who is just out for some good old-fashioned revenge on Yugi for what he did to his brother. But Yugi isn't the real problem here for Mokuba, it's overall Pegasus, as he had kidnapped Mokuba originally to get Seto to come to the tournament. But after the initial battle Yugi had with Seto, Kaiba disappeared and Mokuba felt abandoned, blaming Yugi for this. After Mokuba tries to steal the star chips from Yugi, Yugi is able to break through to Mokuba that what he actually did to Seto in the first place would lead him to finding his new purpose as a duelist and himself, since the evil was lifted from his heart and mind. Mokuba understands everything a bit better now, and they agree that Pegasus is the real threat here. Sadly, it was too late to help the kid Mokuba stole the chips and cards from, as they were being forced to leave the island while Mokuba gets taken captive again and locked away by Pegasus once more. Now Yugi must face a ghost, or at least the claimed ghost of Kaiba, as at one point Kaiba ends up dealing with the corporate takeover of Kaiba Corp, when Pegasus works with the executives from the company known as the Big Five, and Kaiba ends up getting his cards stolen stolen, and they try and kill him, or in the 4Kids version, finger point in his direction, as he makes an escape out of the window, catching himself on a ledge as to not fall to his death that the others believed happened to him. So now we have this ghost of Kaiba that represents the evil Yugi took out of him, and uses his deck so Yugi has to face the potential power of the Blue Eyes White Dragons without his Exodia. Kaiba does his own little bit of espionage to figure out that Pegasus has Mokuba held captive, and has a vested interest into Yugi winning against Pegasus, as he will receive shares of the Kaiba Corporation once he defeats Yugi. To help in the meantime with the fake ghost Kaiba, he hacks into the computer systems to start infecting his own Blue Eyes being used in battle with a virus to assure Yugi can win this duel, as he now makes his way to Duelist Kingdom. Yugi does end up defeating the fake Kaiba and does the whole mind crush thing on them, as we shift the perspective back to Joey, where he will have to deal with facing the dinosaur duelist Rex, since Mai convinced him to battle Joey with the promise of getting to battle her if he defeats Joey, since she wants to get her own revenge on Joey for beating her. The battle is specifically important as it introduces my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card and monster, and that's the Red Eyes Black Dragon, where during this duel between Joey and Rex is added to the pot as an additional bet. The duel isn't super easy for Joey, and Yugi does his best to help coach him through the tougher parts and any self-doubt that he has, but in the end, Joey ends up winning, defeating Rex and earning himself his new signature card, the Red Eyes Black Dragon. Bakura makes his official entrance into the series for our group, as his character plays out similar to the original Season 0 stuff, where he comes into the series as a friend the group knows, and what seems like a friendly duel begins between him and Yugi. Quickly, this turns out to be a larger problem when the Millennium Ring is revealed and the spirit within comes out to make this duel way more personal, as the spirit of the Pharaoh in the puzzle has a personal connection to Bakura's Millennium Item spirit from their time in the past, a major part of the plot explored towards the end of it all. The duel becomes a battle for the souls of everyone here, as Yami Bakura starts a shadow game where the regular version of Yugi and all of his friends are infused into their personal favorite cards, meaning that they are used in the battle and put in danger, which, like I mentioned, is similar to the battle between Yugi and Bakura in Season 0. The regular version of Bakura ends up fighting his way to some form of control during the battle, as Bakura himself is shown as a very nice and calm-natured friend, and I find his situation and internal conflict between who he is and the spirit that has bonded with him a very interesting one, as this struggle dealing with it doesn't stop here once this conflict is dealt with. When the real Bakura ends up helping Yami Yugi win the battle, the others wake up where everything is fine and think of it as nothing more than just a dream. Mai is back, but maybe not for long, as this person named Panic has defeated her in a duel, and he is known as an eliminator, donning 2 massive star chip gloves to take out players on the island and take as many star chips as he can. Yugi jumps in to help and takes Panic on in another tough duel, and wins back Mai's star chips so that she can stay in the tournament, and Panic gets his mind crushed, naturally since he tried to turn Yugi into a burnt marshmallow. We learn a bit more about the power of the Millennium Ring, as it points to the presence of another powerful Millennium item, detecting Pegasus's Millennium Eye at the castle. But more importantly, Kaiba finally arrives at the island where Yugi returns his deck to him, and Joey wants to take him on instantly, proving that he isn't this punching bag that Kaiba treats him as. Unfortunately, Joey is easily defeated by him, but we get to see the early stages of Kaiba's dual disc technology, using these prototype versions to project holograms of the monsters anywhere a battle is going to go down. It was a good test for him to use them, or else why would he need to prove that he can defeat Joey? Because he can, and did, pretty easily. This defeat has Joey overthinking his abilities as a duelist, but he needs to prove himself as a great duelist to himself, while having that burning passion from Kaiba's demeaning comments running through his head. He ends up having to deal with a battle against Bones, a zombie deck specialist, who is a part of a group run by the duelist named Bandit Keith, and he's a loud American character, if you couldn't tell he was American. Joey's on his own here, as he went off and got into the duel by himself, and it proves to be a pretty decent challenge for him since Bones' zombie monster strategies are a losing game for Joey to play. When Yugi and the others find Joey, they get to witness him end up figuring out a way to counter and push past those strategies to win. Due to this duel though, the group end up getting trapped in a system of caves, and Bakura's Millennium Ring helps guide them in the right direction as they traverse the caves to hopefully find their way out. But just making their way out isn't the hard part, it's what's in their way, and that's the Paradox Twins, a pair of duelists who face off against Yugi and Joey in one of the coolest duels this early on in the series, as the battlefield is turned into a labyrinth that makes it extremely hard for Yugi and Joey to navigate. If they want to gain entrance into the castle and make it to the final set of matches, the brothers are full of tricky riddles and living up to their names of Para and Dox, where one brother would be telling the truth the entire battle, while the other would only tell lies. They get offered to ask a question each to help them gain some information that they can take as they will, but Yugi holds off as he feels he he may have sniffed out which one of them is the liar. I think this whole concept in Duel was really fun, having the Paradox twins use their Shadow Ghoul monster fuse with the labyrinth itself and allow it to traverse the maze through the walls instead of being held up by them. It's really cool that they end up assembling the 3 monsters that come together to form the Gate Guardian, which serves as their endgame strategy, putting Yugi and Joey in a lot of trouble. In the meantime, Kaiba is on the hunt for where Mokuba is held captive, making his way to him while dealing with guards and alarms at the castle itself. We get another really awesome monster appearance when Yugi and Joey fuse together their Summon Skull and Red Eyes Black Dragon to create Black Skull Dragon, and are able to defeat the brothers, but the challenge isn't over yet. There are 2 doors, with one that correctly lets them pass on to the castle, and they must choose which brother to believe has the actual correct door behind them. The thing is, Yugi doesn't trust either of them, figuring out that there is manipulation involved by the brothers to make sure no matter what door they pick, it'll always be the wrong door. So he tricks them into revealing their secrets through some coin trickery to determine the door that they will choose, and the group are able to make their way to safety and out of the cave system and onward to the castle. Kaiba, on the other hand, deals with a confrontation from Pegasus that ends up in a deal made. To rescue Mokuba, who had his spirit stolen as well, Kaiba must defeat Yugi in a battle, giving him 5 star chips and has him go meet Yugi at the front of the castle doors.
Playtime is over!
It's time to duel!
Kaiba challenges Yugi to a duel where he accepts, and the battle gets a lot more intense than before, with his ultimate plan in combining his 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons to create the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Taya starts noticing there is something different about Yugi though, specifically when he duels and becomes a lot more serious and makes more harsh decisions, calling back to an event from Season 0 as a nice connection to it, but really starts pointing it out here during this duel, especially as the battle goes on and Yugi comes up with a strategy to take out his Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and Kaiba knows that he is in trouble and will lose this duel as Yami Yugi face the dilemma of not holding back even though Kaiba is on the edge of the castle, and the next attack to defeat him will knock him off the edge for him to fall to his death. Kaiba has basically understood his fate, thinking that he has lost everything anyway, so if he can't get Mokuba back, what's the point? Yami Yugi has a choice here. If he skips his turn, Kaiba has a chance to save himself from losing, but if he attacks, he wins, but Kaiba will be killed. The thought of rescuing Yugi's grandpa keeps his decision to attack regardless, but through the power of Taya noticing this difference in Yugi and trying to stop him from going through with the attack, and the regular Yugi inside of Yami's head pulling him back, Yami Yugi stops his attack, and Yugi takes over the battle and holds back the spirit of the Pharaoh for the time being. Doing this, however, results in Kaiba winning the duel, and Yugi is now stuck with his internal conflict for the actions of the Pharaoh, willing to kill Kaiba over a card game even if the souls of both sides' loved ones are on the line. Now, while things seem pretty bad for Yugi as he deals with these issues, Taya ends up stepping in to show the power of friendship as Mai comes back around, and she has more star chips than needed to enter the castle for the final battles, and she's willing to help Yugi by giving him the remaining star chips needed if Taya can beat her in a duel. Even though she isn't the greatest duelist and her deck isn't the strongest, Taya's perseverance to not give up and give it her all for the sake of her friend leads to Mai forfeiting the duel, giving Yugi the star chips so he can now continue his journey to save his grandpa. But on the inside of the castle, Kaiba is ready to have a battle with Pegasus, as everyone else can bear witness to it. Kaiba is determined to take down Pegasus, but thanks to his Millennium Eye and his powerful tactics in battle through the use of his Toon World card, Pegasus ends up defeating Kaiba using his own Blue Eyes White Dragon against him, with the beast being turned into the Blue Eyes Toon Dragon. Kaiba then has his soul trapped in a card as well, and Pegasus is really building up a collection of spirit cards here. As tragic as that is for Kaiba for his journey of trying to save his little brother, it's time to prepare for the final set of duels now as the lineups get announced. Yugi will be taking on Mai, and Joey will be facing none other than Bandit Keith. We also get to see Tristan, Taya, and Bakura doing a little bit of espionage themselves, figuring out that Pegasus was in fact cheating in the duel against Kaiba, but get caught by him as they do so. Luckily, Bakura, or Yami Bakura, comes back out to save them, hitting Pegasus with a blast from his Millennium Ring as we find out that the spirit within it has not left and still wants revenge on the spirit of the Pharaoh. Yugi goes on his own trip of realization through a conversation with his grandpa in a dream, knowing that he must stop Pegasus before the whole world is at risk of even greater threats. But for now, he is on his own without the Pharaoh, trying to play as just his less than confident self, leading to the duel against Mai not going in his favor once they are getting deep into it. He ends up having to work towards a teamwork mentality with the spirit so they can listen to and trust each other. Coming together, the two work as a team and battle with all they got, but Mai proves to be the powerful duelist she has always come off as, using a strong combination of her Harpy ladies and her Harpy's pet dragon to keep Yugi on the ropes, only being able to combat them by bringing out the ritual monster Blackluster Soldier and end up winning the duel duel where Yugi advances to the finals. Now, Joey needs a chance to shine here as he takes on Bandit Keith, but something's wrong. His entry card has gone missing thanks to Bandit Keith taking it from him without him knowing, and without it, he will be disqualified. When all hope is lost and Joey feels like he was failing Serenity for making it this far just to lose on a technicality and that crushes him, Mai offers hers to him since she is out of the tournament anyway, and maybe she sees Joey in more of a special light here, knowing he has a lot of heart and decided to help him out in the end. And thanks to this, he is able to continue forward for his match where Bandit Keith puts up a strong fight against him thanks to his machine-based monsters. With cards like Metal Zoa, Slot Machine, and Barrel Dragon, Joey is able to stand a chance thanks to having his Red Eyes Black Dragon get its own metal coat, becoming Red Eyes Black Metal Dragon, and I love this design for a Red Eyes variant so much. Ultimately, Bandit Keith has been cheating, keeping the cards he needs for his strategy in his wristband, leading to a disqualification on his part, and then he gets launched into the ocean after he threatens Pegasus' life with not a gun in the US version, and Joey takes the win to move forward. Now we get a real duel between the best of friends, and the finals before facing Pegasus has Yugi take on Joey as they both have their personal reasons for giving it their all to advance on to hopefully win the tournament. Joey ends up pulling off the summoning of Black Skull Dragon when he used Grave Robber to take control of Yugi's summoned skull, which was able to take out Yugi's powerful Gaia the Dragon champion. When Yugi comes up with a strategy to defeat the Black Skull Dragon, Joey tries relying on his Time Wizard and Baby Dragon combo to bring out Thousand Dragon, but through the use of having Dark Magician age into Dark Sage, and then using Monster Reborn to bring back Black Skull Dragon on his side of the field, he's able to defeat Joey in a heartfelt and emotional duel between the two. Yugi refuses to accept Joey's Glory of the King's Hand prize card for the tournament to win the money at the end, knowing that Joey truly needs the money no matter what to help out his sister. It's a great set of episodes that strengthen the bond between Yugi and Joey, as they had to face each other in a situation where the stakes actually matter, while still having that brotherly love and respect towards one another. This leads to another time they duel in Battle City, where the stakes raise even higher, and it's even more emotional than this. But with the duel now over, Yugi has to take on Pegasus, and try to end his evil ways once and for all. His grandpa and both Mokuba and Kaiba are on the line aside from just stopping Pegasus's plans to take over Kaiba Corp. Of course, the duel doesn't go so well for Yugi at first, since there isn't a way to combat Pegasus's Millennium Eye, but he holds his own as much as he can. Tristan tries to help in the meantime, at least getting to where Mokuba is locked up, but has to run and hide from the guards after setting off alarms that alert the guards to where he is. Luckily, Bakura, or Yami Bakura, ends up going after Tristan and helps him escape and deal with the guards for a bit. The duel with Pegasus heats up as Pegasus brings out his favorite strategy of Toon World and the monsters that can come out of this combo. Yugi and Yami Yugi work together to form a strategy where they switch control of who is playing the game and choosing the cards to use in order to confuse Pegasus's Millennium Eye. By the two not knowing the moves they will each make, Pegasus can't predict, know, or expect what will happen. This starts turning the tides of the duel back to Yugi, taking out Pegasus's Toon World strategy, but this triggers Pegasus enough to bring the duel itself to the Shadow Realm. Yami Bakura continues taking out the guards in more vicious ways as Tristan notices that this isn't their regular kind-hearted friend Bakura, but the spirit of the Millennium Ring, and his real plan is to take Mokuba's empty husk of a body for himself to control, threatening Tristan to give Mokuba to him or face dire consequences. In an effort to save Bakura and stop the spirit, Tristan knocks out Yami Bakura so he can take the Millennium Ring off, and then proceeds to chuck it off the roof of the castle somewhere into the woods below, saving Bakura from the spirit and Mokuba from the spirit as well. Yugi himself faces the weight of the Shadow Realm, getting weaker and not being able to fully duel properly here as Yami Yugi tries to protect him by taking over so that Yugi can survive this. But Yugi keeps trying to push through and trying to get past this, but ends up passing out from the strain of it all, leaving Yami Yugi alone to deal with Pegasus. But now when Pegasus can read his mind again, the power of friendship gets in the way as the strength of Yugi's friends and the spiritual help from his grandpa help block Pegasus from cheating any further, allowing Yami Yugi to bring out the Magician of Black Chaos and finish off Pegasus once and for all, bringing Yugi back from the near Shadow Realm death as the realm disappears. But now Pegasus has disappeared and they need to make sure the souls of those taken are returned. Tristan explains to the group what happened with Bakura and the Millennium Ring, and as Bakura wakes up and hears what Tristan had to do, he understands why he got rid of it. Now they all head to find Pegasus while Bakura sticks around for a moment, and the Millennium Ring reappears around him, showing that you simply just can't get rid of Yami Bakura. His only focus now is to get the Millennium Eye from Pegasus overtaking Mokuba's body, since he knows Mokuba's soul is going to be freed and delivered back to it momentarily. Pegasus had snuck back to his private quarters and thinks over his loss against Yugi, but keeps his promise and releases everyone's spirits back to their bodies, only to be confronted by Yami Bakura challenging him to a shadow game, Millennium Item versus Millennium Item, defeating Pegasus and stealing the Millennium Eye. Yugi and friends find where Pegasus was, only to find him being carried away by his guards as they find a diary left there that digs into his past a bit. Taya reads from it to learn about a girl Pegasus met as a teenager and how eventually they were going to get married, but at some point she became sick and sadly passed away, leading Pegasus on a journey around the world to find some sort of way to bring her back, bringing him to Egypt where he met a mysterious man named Shadi, a guardian of the Millennium Items, and how his destiny led him to be tested by the Millennium Eye, going through an actual compatibility test with it and finding out that yes, he is compatible with it, allowing him to see visions of his loved one with the future of his plans to somehow physically bring back his love through the fusion of the Millennium Items and Kaiba's virtual technology. Shadi then appears before Yugi, using the Millennium Key to enter his mind, seeing the split of Yugi and the spirit of the Pharaoh, and having words with the spirit regarding the stealing of the Millennium Eye, and the dangers of whoever stole it and what it could cause. The spirit of the Pharaoh seems to not fully know his own past or the truth of his own origins, as we dig through these secrets and learn more about the Shadow Games and how they were played back in ancient times. It's a cool exploration of figuring out that Yugi is the chosen one fit to wear the Millennium Puzzle and now save the world from greater chaos, leaving off on this moment that Yugi is told about his larger purpose, as he is a major piece of the puzzle himself when it comes to the evil and chaos that are on their way. This whole walk through Yugi and the spirit's mind started opening up the bigger picture for the rest of the series, and to who this spirit in the puzzle truly is, making sure you know that just because the Duelist Kingdom Arc is coming to a close, that the overall story is far from over. Before we close on Season 1 in general, there are two really small arcs that finish things off. The first is the Legendary Heroes arc, where we first see the results of the tournament as the prizes are dispersed out, like the millions of dollars for winning as Yugi gives it to Joey. It's another emotional and sweet moment between the two friends as Joey can officially help his sister. Yugi also receives a special one-of-one card handmade by Pegasus called the Ties of Friendship. Yugi and the spirit have a nice moment too, where they are fully realized in their own friendship and how to operate alongside one another as the spirit tells Yugi to call him Yami. Back home, Yugi is happy to reunite with his grandpa, but after some time back, the group meet a girl named Rebecca, the granddaughter of the friend that Yugi's grandpa received his Blue Eyes White Dragon from, as she thinks that he stole it and demands a duel to get it back. Little does she know that it was ripped up and destroyed some time ago back at the start of the season. Yugi ends up taking his place in the duel since his grandpa is still pretty weak just coming out of that coma, as they then proceed to go duel at Kaiba's new arena thanks to Mokuba giving them access to it in appreciation for helping them get freed. She's a tough duelist for her age, and Yugi's grandpa notices that her cards and strategy in the duel are played exactly like his old friend who gave him the card in the first place. Seeing how the duel is playing out, Yugi's grandpa looks back on his own memories with his friend Arthur, and how at one point when they were on an archaeological dig many years ago in Egypt, they became trapped and had to duel over the limited remaining water they had, but he ended up surrendering the duel in favor of Arthur getting some water, knowing he needed it more than him in the moment. And keeping things how they were back then, and for the sake of Rebecca learning about the heart of the cards, Yugi surrenders the duel as well, where Yugi's grandpa shows her the results of what happened to the Blue Eyes White Dragon, being ripped in half and only held together now by tape, causing her to go into a rage over it. He tries to explain how this happened and that he would never be the one to do something like this to the card when she claims he's the one who ripped it up. But her grandfather Arthur arrives to the surprise of Yugi's grandpa and shows Rebecca that Yugi could have easily won that battle but chose not to, just like Yugi's grandpa did for him back in the day, as Yugi then explains it was a chance for her to understand the heart of the cards more so than just winning some duel. Arthur also goes into the story of what happened back then during his time in Egypt with Yugi's grandpa, and that the Blue Eyes White Dragon was given to Yugi's grandpa rather than being stolen. Yugi isn't mad at Rebecca as she expresses her apologies, and he even gives her the one-of-one the Ties of Friendship card as a sign of their friendship, and it's all really wholesome in the end, giving some unneeded but welcome closure to how exactly Yugi's grandpa received the Blue Eyes White Dragon and the story behind it all. The remaining part of this small arc now shifts to dealing with the Big Five that tried to take over Kaiba Corp from Kaiba, as they convince him to try out this new virtual reality game the company has been working on called Duel Monsters Quest. Once again, Mokuba is taken captive as Kaiba is stuck in the game thanks to the Big Five, but Mokuba manages to escape along with Kaiba's deck as he runs to Yugi and friends for help. Yugi, Joey, and Mokuba get in some virtual reality pods themselves that Mokuba brings them to, as Taya and Tristan stand guard so the Big Five don't get to their machines as well to keep them trapped in the game along with Kaiba. This essentially plays out as an RPG experience, which which is a fun expansion of the concepts we've seen before, but now with technology instead of shadow magic. Even Mai ends up there as a champion-like figure who actually helps them out a bit rather than just face Joey in a duel. Their main journey has them on a quest to stop the revival of some powerful dragon, and in this world your dual monster cards affect the world and can offer aid in situations, which is also a really fun concept to play around with here. Once Mokuba, who gets captured again, is able to help free himself and Kaiba, they all come together as a group when the Big Five announce they are joining in on this battle personally. They skip the ritual needed and fully summon the five-headed dragon, which is extremely fitting given the circumstances, and only dragon-type monsters can truly hurt it. Joey has his Red Eyes Black Dragon save Mokuba from being targeted by the attacks, but it causes his life points personally to hit 0, as he then vanishes from the game for his sacrifice, followed by Mai doing the same thing, sacrificing herself as well. Yugi pleads with Kaiba that they need to work together to defeat this seemingly impossible threat, with Kaiba only agreeing once Mokuba steps in to save him and ends up Spider-Man vanishing away in Tony Stark's arms. Together now they combine the power of the Black Luster Soldier and the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon to summon Dragon Master Knight, which is now able to defeat the five-headed dragon, and the plans of the Big Five are stopped as everyone returns from their time in virtual reality. It's just nice to see a moment where Kaiba and Yugi get to work together, and what a glorious way for them to do so. That ends that specific little arc as we enter into the final mini arc of the season, the Dungeon Dice Monsters Arc. Here we get to meet Duke Devlin, a new student at school who happens to also own a game shop where he has his own new hit game flying off the shelves and stealing some attention away from Yugi's grandpa's shop. The new game is called Dungeon Dice Monsters. This was also an attempt like Capsule Monsters where it did spawn its own little fan base along with merch and games, but it never took off to last a long time. It's just interesting to look back and see moments like this and how they may have been used to just create more out of the property in different avenues. Duke wants to get some sort of revenge on Yugi for the fact that he thinks he was cheating in the duel against Pegasus to become the champion of Duelist Kingdom. Duke in school comes off as a ladies' man and another antagonist for Joey as he makes a fool out of him quickly, as they butt heads and end up having a duel where they can only use cards from new booster packs, and an additional bet that if Joey wins, Duke will close his shop, and if Duke wins, Joey will have to be his personal servant for a week. In Duke fashion, he makes a whole special ordeal about this duel, broadcasting it out for others to watch and even his own cheerleaders there to boost up his own ego. At one point in this duel, it looks like Joey may actually win, but Duke has kept a calm demeanor, and the reason why was he had a strategy that he knew Joey wouldn't anticipate based on how he was wildly playing, catching Joey off guard, resulting in Duke winning. To make matters worse for Joey, he has to be a servant now for Duke and is forced to wear a dog outfit for the heck of it. Duke plays into this and starts making him act like a dog to be humiliated in front of his peers. Yami Yugi comes out to confront Duke and challenges him to a duel for Joey's freedom, but Duke doesn't want it to be duel monsters. He wants them to play Dungeon Dice Monsters. If Yugi loses, however, he is forced to swear he will never play duel monsters again, and that Duke will be the new king of games. Despite his friends telling Yugi not to do this, Yugi catches a flicked die in a really cool guy fashion and accepts the challenge. Yugi is more concerned about how his friends are treated than any sort of game, so the stakes are set and the game of Dungeon Dice Monsters is about to begin. Yugi, much like the audience at this point, has no idea how to even play the game, putting him at a great disadvantage overall. Duke purposefully leaves the rules and explanations of things vague and kind of a surprise for Yugi, which in a way feels like cheating here, which is what he kind of called out Yugi for in the first place, but the game is confusing, the rules aren't explained all that well, and maybe it wasn't the best selling point to make this a thing when the game itself doesn't fully make sense for the viewer and it's not as interesting because of it. Now, to be fair, during this battle it does become a bit cooler and more explained enough to understand the base mechanics, but even in real life when playing the version of it that they released, the coolest part of it was just getting the figures rather than caring about how the dice part of things work. At least that was the way for me and many others I've talked to about it. Duke further goes into how Pegasus was helping him put together this game, giving him somewhat of a reason to think little and poorly of Yugi, especially since he defeated his investor and he was going to have his game be mass-produced through Pegasus's company. That is until Yugi defeated him and ruined the future plans he had, or so he thinks. After a while, Yugi ends up getting the hang of things and even takes a small lead, but with more rules and explanations not given to him, Duke is able to get the upper hand and put Yugi in the toughest spot yet. But Yugi brings out the heart of the dice and has the luck of summoning out his Dark Magician in this game, and also combining the efforts of magical hats when a monster-destroying cannon is activated by Duke, saving his Dark Magician as Yugi continues to make some moves to bring his Dark Magician right to Duke's side of the field, directly attacking him and winning the game. I guess he really is the king of games. Joey is freed from the dog suit and his servant duties while Duke apologizes to everyone and becomes a lot more friendlier towards the group, understanding now how it would be possible for Yugi to defeat Pegasus. The group make their amends with Duke and even celebrate how fun his game is, which shocks him to see how nice they all are. Yugi goes into his good moral spiel about revenge making the problems greater and that friendship trumps everything, and in the end, Duke receives an email from Pegasus's company anyway about producing his game, so it was all for nothing, and he was just impatient. The group now have a new friend in Duke, but there is so much left to come in the future, and that's where we're going to leave it today, as we have now hit the technical end of Season 1. Yu-Gi-Oh! As a series has so much going on with a lot to cover, so next time, we enter into the next major arc for the series as we start the Battle City tournament, where the dual discs Kaiba was working on are completed, and now all of Domino City is a battlefield filled with Egyptian god cards, mysterious organizations, and a new villain that raises the stakes for Yugi and his friends, testing them in ways we haven't seen just yet. We have so much left to cover aside from the other seasons of the show, like the movies, the card game itself, and the legacy that the show has left and continued on. Let me know your thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, and how you feel about Season 0 and Season 1 in the comments below. We continue on with our characters after Duelist Kingdom and dealing with both the Big Five for Kaiba and Duke with the whole Dungeon Dice Monsters thing. Days are going by like usual now, with Yugi and friends still dealing with stuff like school, and Yugi, heeding the warnings from Shadi from the end of the last season, switches out his Millennium Puzzle necklace rope for a tougher chain to hold it up. But with all of the uncertainty in the air about the threats that are coming, Yugi gets stopped on his way to school by a mysterious person who offers him a fortune telling regarding his future, foolishly handing this person the Millennium Puzzle when he asked for a personal item to help with the reading. As soon as the stranger gets his hands on the Millennium Puzzle, he runs off as Yugi gets led to a setup area that he knows is clearly a trap of some sort. While this is happening, Bakura and the evil spirit that still has a hold over him get word from Taya about Yugi having to deal with the puzzle getting stolen, leaving Bakura to try and find Yugi on his own for the sake of getting the puzzle for himself, rearranging the way the trap led Yugi to hold off his other friends from directly finding him for now. Yugi's trap, however, turned out to be a dueling area that gets explained to him as a duel for the sake of the puzzle. If he wants it back, he has to defeat this mysterious cloaked person. The biggest problem with the duel is Yugi playing as himself without the backing of the Pharaoh to work with. As the battle begins and they start going back and forth, Yugi starts realizing the familiarity to the cards being played, figuring out that this mysterious person is none other than Bandit Keith, calling him out as the stranger reveals this to be true, but also not true at the same time. While it's the body and even the deck of Bandit Keith, he appears to be under some sort of control as someone is using him as a vessel to get to Yugi, bringing the presence of another Millennium item into play for this to happen. Yugi starts building up a good defense against Keith's strategies though, which also include his signature cheating ways, and in the meantime, Bakura has tracked down where Yugi has been brought while Joey, Tristan, and Taya are trying to navigate the path to where Yugi is thanks to Bakura's meddling of that path to follow. Thanks to Keith's cheating, he is able to summon Zera the Mant, a powerful monster that Yugi is struggling to figure out how to defeat, knowing he has no singular creature in his deck that can face Zera head on, buying time until he figures out what to do, placing monster after monster in defense mode to protect his life points for a bit.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns! And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
When Bakura arrives to see that this is happening, he notices there is some bond between the third party and Bandit Keith through the power of another Millennium item and proceeds to break it. But this struggle results in the puzzle being smashed back into multiple pieces as Keith sets fire to the building, leaving Yugi struggling to put the puzzle back together and not leave without it. And his friends come around to help out, saving a passed out Yugi who wouldn't leave without the puzzle, as well as making sure they could save the puzzle for Yugi. As Yugi then starts healing up at the hospital, he fears what is coming his way. The game has changed and some new mysterious presence wants the puzzle as well, putting him in severe danger for it. Yugi puts back together his puzzle and everything is all good, but another character gets introduced into the series named Ishizu, who has a Millennium item of her own, the Millennium Necklace. She asks Kaiba to meet her at the museum, showing him a special tablet that explains more of the past and part of the role Kaiba is going to play in the series. The biggest thing he learns here are about the Egyptian god cards, the type of cards that sound perfect for him to have in order to not only be an unstoppable duelist, but to beat Yugi once and for all. In fact, she has one of them on her, Obelisk the Tormentor, giving it to Kaiba and telling him to assemble together all three of them, needing the other two of Slifer the Sky Dragon and the Winged Dragon of Ra. The way to bring those cards out of hiding is for him to create a tournament, one the likes that no one has ever seen before in the duel monster scene. The deal for him to have the card is that he will have to return it once the tournament is over, but he has other plans to keep the card for himself, because of course he does, he's Kaiba. The other god cards are in the hands of a group called the Rare Hunters, a secret group of powerful duelists that essentially run a black market full of some of the strongest and rarest cards out there. Kaiba now gets to work developing what this tournament would be to set all of the plans in motion. In the meantime, Taya starts trying to help Yugi and Yami uncover more of the blurry past of Yami's history to start connecting all the dots. But the only distraction to stop this is of course an impromptu Dance Dance Revolution battle with a guy named Johnny Steps. And then Yugi duels him afterwards, but it's nice to see the bonding of Taya and Yugi some more. Once they themselves get to the museum and start looking through the tablets depicting moments of what happened in the past, they are taken aback when seeing a pharaoh facing off against a priest that resembles both Yugi and Kaiba. Luckily, our museum guide Ishizu reappears as a member of those who protect the memory of the pharaoh. There is a chance for Yami to be granted his memories back, but that would require the gathering of the 7 Millennium items. She is very cryptic in her responses to Yami, and he questions her placement in all of this, but she only forewarns of a new enemy that will confront Yami that possesses a Millennium item, and the battles of fate and destiny will soon be knocking on his doorstep. Kaiba's been busy though, putting together the newest version of the dual disc technology he's been working on, and begins constructing a new deck that is more powerful than his last, testing the strength of his new Egyptian god card as it proves to be so powerful that it starts breaking the machines and systems running his simulation. Then, as Yugi and Taya are still out and about, they start running into and seeing a bunch of top tier duelists from Duelist Kingdom, along with even more powerful duelists we haven't met yet gathering around the city. Things seem odd that they all have gathered here, but then Kaiba takes over all of the screens available in the city and announces a brand new tournament, the Battle City Tournament, and in 1 week it'll officially begin. All participants are required to wear and use his new mobile dueling disc system, and now the duelist's rarest cards are on the line in each duel, with the loser having to give theirs up to the winner. The mysterious new villain in the shadows is ready for whatever this tournament holds, possessing the Millennium Rod and having his rare hunters go out and do his bidding within the tournament. This moment was so exciting and pivotal for the series, changing the game and making Duelist Kingdom seem like the appetizer to the meal we are about to dig into. Of course, Joey catches wind about this and is excited about it, but come registration, his ranking as a duelist is too low, mainly because of the dislike Kaiba has for him, but luckily and unluckily, the person running the registration for Joey notices that the rarest card Joey has is the Red Eyes Black Dragon, and this person has ties to the rare hunters, so to make Joey easy pickings to get the card off him, Joey's rankings get switched around to where he could qualify for the tournament and officially gives both Yugi and Joey their own duel discs, making a call after they leave to alert the rare hunters. Joey is pretty excited to be in the tournament, but takes a moment to go and check up on his sister Serenity at the hospital, as she is preparing for her now afforded eye operation. But along the way, Joey is confronted by a group of rare hunters and he is forced into a duel as they are wasting no time in trying to acquire his Red Eyes Black Dragon. As the duel goes on, Joey meets a surprise he wasn't expecting, as the rare hunter was able to bide enough time to pull the 5 pieces of Exodia out, immediately winning the duel. He then reveals that he has multiple sets of Exodia in his deck to aid in his chances of pulling all the pieces needed. The rare hunters proceed to jump Joey and take his Red Eyes from him, and the next day, Yugi is informed that Joey never made it to the hospital to visit his sister after he separated from the group, causing them all to now go out and look for him, as we get a moment between Tristan and Joey as he finds Joey first and tries to talk some sense into him, as he felt he couldn't face his sister as he has been the one trying to build up her confidence and going through with this scary operation, and if he himself wasn't confident anymore, it could carry on to her, at least that's what he thinks. Tristan gets him to the hospital, and now, more than ever, Joey is ready and confident in getting his Red Eyes back, and giving it all he's got. Now, the start of the tournament officially happens, and Joey wastes no time in spotting the rare hunter who took his Red Eyes Black Dragon, whose name is Seeker, and he immediately challenges him to a duel, but he's interested in Yugi and his Dark Magician. So Yugi jumps in to take the battle and demands that if he wins, Seeker will give the Red Eyes back to Joey rather than get a card for himself. Joey tries to warn Yugi of the tactics with Exodia, but Seeker stops him from doing so, threatening to destroy his Red Eyes if he spoils the surprises in store. Behind the scenes, Kaiba is playing his own version of God, watching over the city and all of the duels taking place, now focusing in on Yugi's duel as they see that this rare hunter was illegally entered into the tournament through some hacking, as Mokuba wants to go and disqualify him from the tournament, but Kaiba stops him, wanting to not only study more of how Yugi duels and handles himself, but wants to see the other Egyptian god cards pop up from the rare hunters, allowing the battle to continue. As the duel rages on, Yugi quickly learns that Seeker is trying to pull together the pieces of Exodia, as he now has to figure out how to deal with that, successfully finding a way to defeat Seeker by using Chain Destruction to take out all of the head cards of Exodia from his deck, allowing him to play without the threat of Exodia one-shotting him. Afterwards, Yugi destroys Seeker's cards based on him using them to cheat by having a special invisible ink on them, which is one of the many small differences between the Japanese version and the English dub, as in the Japanese version, the cards were actually fake, and that's why Yugi ends up destroying him. I figured I'd bring that up since there are a lot of small adjustments here and there that result in the same thing but told slightly different, but I am going through this with the perspective I grew up with the show and experienced it, so I may not be calling out many differences like this, but I thought it was worth noting for those who experienced it differently and are wondering why there is a difference here at all. Yugi also gets the Red Eyes Black Dragon back for Joey, and then he gets to speak with Merrick for the first time, the one who wields the Millennium Rod and uses his powers to possess Seeker to either control him or speak through him as a vessel. Merrick refers to Yugi or Yami as the Pharaoh, having some sort of connection to the past or knowledge of the past as well. Merrick reveals his plans of becoming Pharaoh himself after taking Yugi's Millennium Puzzle and gathering together the 3 Egyptian god cards for himself, really spicing up the plot for where the series goes from here. Also, Merrick is like my favorite character in all of Yu-Gi-Oh!, so I really love the Battle City arc of Yu-Gi-Oh! Specifically for that reason. After this, when Yugi tries to give Joey back his card, he refuses, telling Yugi he won it fair and square, and if he is going to become a better duelist, the best he can be, he needs to do things properly, learn his lessons in dueling, and become strong without relying on one card to pull through for him. Together, the Yujo friendship bond is stronger than ever, as no matter what, they will find a way to take Merrick down in any shape or form he decides to show up. It's all very wholesome.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns! And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
As the tournament continues on, Joey is eager to start proving himself to be a stronger duelist, catching the ending of a duel where a new duelist to the series named Espa defeats Rex. Espa is shown to, or at least claims to have psychic powers, but not like Millennium Item type powers, just like real, I say that with air quotes, psychic powers. Espa calls out Joey to a duel next, being one of the few to initially show him respect as the runner-up from Duelist Kingdom, and of course, Joey accepts. This duel won't just be big for Joey, but also special for his sister, who Tristan goes to visit and watches the battle online to let Serenity know how her brother is doing while she can't see. Now, the rules for Battle City dueling are initially changed from how it was before during Duelist Kingdom, and now is the best place to get into that since Joey struggles with not knowing the new rules, like having to tribute or sacrifice other monsters to be able to summon higher level monsters based on the amount of stars on the top of the card. So gone are just summoning monsters willy-nilly. Now you can summon level 4 and under cards, but after this, certain levels require more sacrifices, like level 5 and 6 monsters requiring a sacrifice of 1 monster from the field, and beyond that for something like a level 7 requiring 2 monsters, allowing the mechanics of the game to play out drastically different and become the standard format for how the game is played from this point. Also, for life points in the game, it has changed from 2,000 at the start to 4,000, making for duels that can be more exciting and potentially drawn out just a bit longer. Back to the duel itself, as Joey is struggling to get past the use of psychic abilities, Yugi is watching from above without interfering with Joey directly, but does notice the truth about Espa, seeing that he isn't psychic after all, but instead he has brothers spying on Joey from above as well. They are directly able to see Joey's cards and they report to Espa what he draws and has to use for the match. Yugi doesn't interfere though, only watching for now, but while they are reporting in on the cards he's drawing, they mistake one of them as another similar card, leading to Espa calling out the wrong card that Joey had just pulled, which clues him into something being up with the whole psychic abilities thing. The brothers thought Joey had pulled the card Graceful Dice, when he had really pulled Skull Dice, allowing Espa to think that Joey plays 2 graceful dice, when really it was a trick for him to fall into, as he plays both a graceful dice and skull dice at the same time, and Joey had figured out how he is cheating through his so-called psychic powers, as somehow he is seeing his hand. Which we should all give it up to Joey for figuring out the base of what's happening to help him get back in the duel. Rex then also realizes through this duel that he was robbed of a fair duel against Espa beforehand. When Mokuba learns about this though, he's not playing around with how he's helping watch over and run the tournament, confronting the spying brothers and is ready to officially disqualify Espa, but the brothers explain an orphan backstory that touches Mokuba's heart based on a similar experience he has from the past with Kaiba and their whole family situation, but that will be explored later on at another point. Because of this, Mokuba allows Espa to continue on, minus the cheating, as Joey and Espa continue on down below. With Yugi still watching from above and being proud of Joey, Mokuba feels that Yugi would have given the brothers a second chance and wouldn't condemn Espa from dueling. It's a nice moment seeing how Mokuba views Yugi and kind of looks up to him in a way as well. Through this duel, Espa brings out a powerful new card that Joey has to overcome called Jinzo, but he really starts relying on strategies through his spell and trap cards more so than he ever has before, not just like he was at the start of season 1, only having monsters and trying to rely on power. And with these strategies and leaving a bit of it up to chance by having faith in himself, Joey ends up winning the duel, getting Espa's Jinzo, as this becomes a new powerful card for Joey to get attached to, and a locator card. card, which these all add up in gathering the pieces of where the finals would be taking place for the top players. Espa may have lost the duel, but at least he still has his brothers, and he promises to not cheat again for any duels that he has. Speaking of brothers, Mokuba's not the only one being super involved here, as Kaiba tests the might of his Egyptian god card, getting involved in a duel once he challenges another duelist who was picking on another just to prove a point that the other duelist's actions were not okay in the slightest, but also really just to get a nice field test of Obelisk. But thanks to the use of the Egyptian god card, Merrick is fully alerted to the presence of Obelisk the Tormentor and starts tracking down Kaiba as we get a bit of history, showing how Merrick was involved in getting 2 of the 3 Egyptian god cards and revealing that Ishizu had the other and is also his sister, which is a cool reveal and pretty fun for the characters being in relation to each other. Yugi at the same time is enticed to enter into a circus tent that turns into another trap, bringing him underground as the camera feeds for the battles couldn't be viewed anymore, with his new opponent revealing himself as Arcana, a duelist that will also challenge Yugi in new ways thanks to him having his own slightly different Dark Magician card. Of course, he is a member of the Rare Hunters, why wouldn't he be? But the twist for this battle is both of them having their ankles shackled up, as the loser of the battle will have a buzzsaw swipe by them to cut off their legs. You know, this type of Saw-esque trap mixed with the stuff we've seen so far, and also haven't seen, is really giving me Season 0 vibes, and I'm all here for it. As their battle goes on and we see the Dark Magicians go head to head, we learn about Arcane's backstory a little bit and why he's so gung-ho on making this a very serious and life-threatening battle, talking about his ego and pride being shattered as a once world-famous magician until one of his tricks was messed up, and through this, messing up his face. That's what the point of the mask is. And drove his own fiancée away. He was devastated at what he had done, wanting her back more than anything, as Merrick promised to bring him and his fiancée back together, with him becoming a rare hunter. Even though this whole battle is hidden from the eyes of the tournament, Kaiba is resourceful, tracking where Yugi went through other means, while the others are trying to track him down as well. The next move in the battle is very important to both introducing another powerful and iconic card for Yugi, and iconic card to a whole bunch of fans for the show for a long list of reasons. I'm sure you probably have your own reason if you were there at this moment, and this was Yugi summoning Dark Magician Girl, as she helps Yugi win the battle overall. Arcana had a backup key and tried to free himself from the trap so he wouldn't have to have his legs cut off, but Merrick takes over and is ready to punish Arcana, but Yugi intervenes, getting himself free and then saving Arcana from his fate, as Merrick speaks directly to Yugi through Arcana, warning him of what's to come ahead, with Yugi's friends and family eventually finding him. On Joey's end of things, he ends up getting admired for being the duelist that he is, but a kid tricks him into seeing his duel disc before running off with it. But later, after they catch the thief, the kid talks about the dueling dreams that he had, and that his own cards were stolen by another duelist, with his description alluding to Weevil being the person responsible for this, as Joey furiously heads out to find Weevil. But once the kid is by himself again, he meets up with Weevil, and this was all a plan set up by him, and that he promised the kid a card in return for his help, giving him a common, not so great card, which just reminds me of bad trades from back in the day when I was a kid, where people would try and make stuff up about crappy cards in the hope that they can get a better card from you. Sorry, that just triggered me a little bit. Joey eventually finds Weevil and challenges him to a duel, as they put up both of their locator cards that they each have as a wager, and this duel has some iconic moments like seeing the effects of Parasite, with Joey trying to find a way to combat how that card affects him, as the kid from earlier slipped it into Joey's deck, and Weevil is able to use its abilities to actively harm Joey's cards. Later on, Joey gets in worse trouble as Weevil brings out Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. As he continues to do what he can to stay in the battle, Weevil continues his onslaught of insects, bringing out the literal queen of them, the Insect Queen, as Joey not longer draws upon a powerful card of his own, Gearfried the Iron Knight. Through Joey's strategies, he's able to use Grave Robber, activating the card Eradicating Aerosol, taking out Weevil's Insect Queen, as Gearfried can make a final blow and defeat Weevil. So now he has even more locator cards for himself and a sense of how good he has become as a duelist, defeating Weevil all on his own. As for where Yugi is at, he gets challenged to a duel by the character named Strings, who in fact does have strings on him, being controlled by Merrick as his own mind puppet. And here's where we really get into some intense stuff, as not only does he have some powerful and unique cards in his deck like Revival Jam, and we see Yugi getting to use another staple card of this generation, Buster Blader, but as their battle gets more intense, trapping Yugi in a perilous situation, Strings brings out an Egyptian god card, Slifer the Sky Dragon, aka my favorite of the 3 Egyptian god cards. Yugi tries to hold his own as Slifer only continues to grow more powerful throughout and takes out Yugi's top hitter cards. There's not much that Yugi can do with strategy alone through his cards, figuring out the only way to defeat Strings and Slifer is to create a loop of using brain control to take over the use of Revival Jam and constantly using the effect of the card's safe return to keep this going. Eventually eventually causing Strings to keep drawing cards from his deck until, he decks out, forcing Strings to lose the duel and leaving Slifer defeated on a technicality. This was in part to show a way to defeat an Egyptian god card, but also to show how powerful one can be in full display of its might. From this battle, Yugi now becomes the owner of Slifer the Sky Dragon, taking the card away from Merrick's control as Kaiba was fascinated to witness the duel himself, and wants an immediate duel with Yugi right then and there. But Merrick speaks through Strings and warns them that he is on his way to the city personally and is after Yugi's friends now, to turn them into mind puppets like Strings and the other rare hunters, really threatening the core of Yugi's life, his group of friends. Yugi stops his interactions with Kaiba for the duel he wanted in the efforts of going to check in on his friends instead. From this, we get something pretty cool that happens as Yugi and Kaiba end up dueling together as partners when confronted by a pair of rare hunters, while Joey finds himself in a duel against Mako Tsunami for all of the marbles here, having enough locator cards at stake to earn entrance into the finals. But another team up is brewing in the background as Merrick ends up meeting with Bakura, the evil form of Bakura of course, striking a deal to work together for their common and personal goals that they have. This is why the Battle City arc is so much fun. Awesome villains, great team-ups, insane battles, and more. Joey's battle ends up going well in his favor by the end of it, being able to defeat Mako in an intense duel, earning himself the locator cards and getting two powerful cards from Mako, Fortress Whale and the Legendary Fisherman. For Yuki and Kaiba, their stakes for the duel with the rare hunters is taking place on top of a high glass floor, with the threat of the losers falling through the glass when they lose their life points and would fall into a special portal to the Shadow Realm. At the same time, both Joey and Taya, along with Mokuba, are captured by other rare hunters, as Merrick is already trying to enact his plan of capturing Yugi's friends and Kaiba's brother. As the double battle rages on, the rare hunters are able to ritual summon the powerful beast known as the Masked Beast, but Yugi secretly had a special effect from his card Beast of Gilfer, affecting the Masked Beast, allowing Kaiba, who Monster Reborn summons his Blue Eyes White Dragon to the field in order for it to attack the Masked Beast, whose attack points were now lowered and left it open to be defeated. What a fun pairing of characters to see work together with actual and meaningful strategies. It genuinely is such a fun moment, but the Masked Beast saga isn't over, as eventually they are able to summon Masked Beast Desgardius, who is even more powerful. Back with Merrick and the hostages, Joey becomes the main target for Merrick's control, all the while his sister Serenity is able to finally take her bandages off to see the results of the surgery and hopefully have her eyesight, but has to wait until it gets darker outside for when she does it. All of these events are starting to come together, ramping up to what I feel is the most standout moment from the series that we will get to here shortly. Tristan ends up going to pick up Serenity, as the first thing she wants to be able to see is her brother, as they head back to where the battles are taking place. But now Taya is under the possession of Merrick as well, with Mokuba being able to escape. For now, Yugi and Kaiba end up winning their duel with the 1-2 punch of Valkyrion the Magna Warrior and Obelisk the Tormentor, defeating one of the rare hunters as the other forfeits when he sees what Merrick does to them, but they both just end up getting dealt with by Merrick. Yugi and Kaiba win and head towards the others. They also end up running into Mokuba as the three of them head in a chopper towards where Joey and Taya are being held, as Yugi informs Kaiba of what's going on here with the use of the Millennium items, and that he is in fact the Pharaoh, making Kaiba realize that what he was told earlier in the season at the museum was more than just a story, but he is still not fully believing in the magical powers of the Millennium items.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns! And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Upon arriving to the location where Joey and Taya are, a brand new and deadlier game is about to be played as we get into the most notable point of Battle City, at least for me, and that's the forced battle that Merrick has a controlled Joey do against Yugi. And per the conditions of Yugi not using Slifer in this duel, as both of them are attached to a chain that leads to a ship anchor suspended in the air above their battle and pointing down below into the depths of the water, where the loser of the battle will not be unlocked from his chain and dragged to the bottom of the ocean. Yugi instead swaps in his Red Eyes Black Dragon that he's been holding for Joey as a potential way to help break through at one point to save his friend. Taya's mind control wears off, but is trapped waiting under a suspended crate that if anyone tries to stop the duel or save their friends, will crush her. Merrick also catches wind of Yugi's other friend Tristan, who is on his way with Serenity, and figured capturing them as well would be more intense for his overall plans, sending out his rare hunters to intercept them, but Duke Devlin from Dungeon Dice Monsters fame comes in to help them for now. As the duel is going on, Yugi tries to battle not as Yami to help out in the situation, and Merrick originally wanted to battle the Pharaoh, but realizes that it would probably be much easier to just deal and defeat regular Yugi in general. Through the use of Yugi just being the regular old Yugi and using Red Eye's Black Dragon, Joey starts having the shakeup in his head to become himself a bit, but the control here is too strong for Joey to fully break free. Mai shows up to then help Tristan, Duke, and Serenity get to where Joey and everyone else is, as they see what is actually going on between Yugi and Joey as the emotional stakes between the two get higher, with Yugi trying to keep pushing through to Joey, while Merrick's control over him has it feel a lot more one-sided in Joey's favor. Once Joey draws the card Meteor of Destruction, as Merrick is trying to control Joey to use it to defeat Yugi, Joey pushes back from this as he recalls his friendship with Yugi, showing how powerful their bond is for Joey to fight back against Merrick's control here. Yugi clashes with Merrick and tells him to stop being a coward and come face him for real in a duel rather than using puppets to do his bidding, as all this does is anger Merrick to use way more force in controlling Joey, reclaiming his mind completely, activating Meteor of Destruction as it comes barreling towards Yugi. But Joey's willpower is proven to be way too strong as he completely breaks free from Merrick's control, separating Merrick from his mind and fully coming to his senses. Yugi then intercepts the meteor with another card that can either redirect the attack back at Joey or allow it to continue to hit him, and in not wanting to hurt Joey and save him, he lets the meteor continue to come after him, taking the guilt away from Joey for using the card in the first place. This takes Yugi's life points to 0 while the shackle key is unlocked for Joey. But in a quick bit of thinking, Joey wants to save Yugi by then activating the other effect that the Meteor of Destruction has, forcing one of Yugi's monsters to attack, sending in Red Eyes to finish off the rest of his own life points to open up the key box for Yugi. And we don't have time to talk about how the duel should have technically been over and how this move couldn't have happened, but emotional semantics here, okay? As Joey gets to Yugi's key to help him while he's passed out, the anchor is unlocked and starts dragging both of them to the bottom of the ocean. But Joey never got his key to unlock himself, as he saves Yugi but continues to sink to the bottom, saying that Yugi is the best friend that a guy could ask for. Serenity, who takes off her bandages at one point to finally see her brother duel, comes rushing in with the key for him to swim down to Joey and save her brother. In the end, Joey and Yugi are all good, and even when Joey feels sorry for himself getting in this situation, Mai comes to him to snap some sense into him, along with Tristan, seeing that his courage inspired Serenity to make it through her operation and then be brave enough to go and save him. It's all very emotional and sweet, and the episode with the most heart. Even Yugi gets a nice moment to thank Yami for trusting him with handling this battle, and even then Yugi thanks Kaiba for his help in this, with Kaiba telling Yugi that he did what he had to do and he will see him at the finals. It's peak, the most memorable set of episodes in the Battle City arc, or just in the series in general in my opinion. In the meantime, before we get to the finals, we see that Merrick is now focused on the Battle City finals, to make the next step in his plans here, as Yami Bakura is convinced to enter the finals as well, stealing what he needs to get into it, and then getting into a battle with Bones, who we haven't dealt with since the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh!, and dueling him in the Shadow Realm to get the locator cards needed to be in the finals. To find the location of said finals for Yugi and Joey, they place the locator cards across a duel disc in the proper slots that now turn into the instructions of where to go as they all head to where the big finale is going to take place. Or will it be really drawn out for a long time from here? Who knows? Before we get to start off the finals, Mai finds herself dealing with Magnum, a character that wants to marry her and demands that if he wins a duel, that he will take her place in the finals and she will have to marry him. Luckily, she ends up winning, but as he tries to take her away forcefully, Joey steps in to save her, furthering the connection that Mai and Joey have built up for each other. But now all of the finalists show up to the secret location, with Merrick making his entrance as the character of Namu, to be in disguise while his brother Odeon takes the identity of Merrick. Bakura shows up, surprising the others as well. From there, we see all of the final duels will take place on the Kaiba blimp, which this was made into a toy. It came with a special blue translucent Obelisk the Tormentor action figure, and I still have it to this day. I love it. Things get going really quick here as the time on the blimp initially gets Yami Bakura to be exposed immediately with the first matchup going against Yugi. The duels will take place on the main dueling space on top of the blimp, so thanks for always doing the most to be over the top, Kaiba. You're appreciated. Yami Yugi can sense that Yami Bakura is just operating in plain sight, calling this fact out, and Yami Bakura presents himself fully as their battle starts the finals off. At first, Yugi seems to be confidently taking control of the duel, but when Bakura begins his plans to use Destiny Board, things get a lot tougher, as this creates a countdown as every turn will pull out another letter to fully spell final. Once that happens, Bakura essentially wins the duel. Merrick and Bakura are two different types of evil in how they operate, and even if they are supposed to tentatively work together, there is already division between them when Bakura refuses Merrick's advice in general. But why would he need the advice? course, you know, his destiny board is already on the 4th letter being spelled out, and Yugi has to win right away or else he will lose the duel now. Luckily, Yugi ends up summoning the first Egyptian god card of the finals, with Slifer the Sky Dragon coming out to play. But before he makes any decision, the mind games continue with the real Bakura breaking through to Yugi for help, and is clearly not in the know of where they are and what's going on, as Merrick and his brother Odeon continue to mess with the situation. Yami Bakura sees that he's been played like a pawn to Merrick, and needs Bakura to stay alive for him to have a real host body to live in, forcing full control and letting Yugi defeat him in the duel at the risk of going into a coma to survive and save them both, which is exactly what happens. But what happened to the Millennium Ring in the end? Well, here's the surprise for you. Taya is still technically under the control of Merrick, reconnecting to her to have her take the ring for the time being. With Bakura in a coma now, Kaiba refuses to land the ship and allows a medical team to take care of him in the time being, thanks to Serenity backing up Joey's demands of helping Bakura. Shadi ends up returning to visit Yugi and reveals that all 7 of the Millennium items are on board the blimp right now, along with the 3 Egyptian god cards, making up all the right circumstances for the spirit of the Pharaoh to unlock his full slate of memories. The only thing that he would need to do is win the tournament. Yeah, just a small little task. We also get some Duel Monsters history here as we learn about Pegasus's full story of his travels to Egypt and how the card game came to be. This also includes the origin of the production of the god cards themselves and why they are so sought after by nefarious individuals after Pegasus had them sealed away for the protection of the world itself. Just a fun bit of lore being sprinkled into this episode. But now it's time for the next duel to get going, as it's randomly selected that Joey will go up against Merrick, or at least Odeon disguised as Merrick. Joey's excited to get revenge on Merrick for the mind control stuff, but even he isn't prepared for how dangerous this duel is going to be. Joey is still dueling here without his Red Eyes Black Dragon, as Yugi confirms that he hadn't taken it back. But with all of the powerful new cards that he has won from high-level duelists, he tries to give it his all without relying on one signature card. What Kaiba knows that the others don't is that there is a potential of us witnessing the power of the Winged Dragon of Ra, the 3rd and final god card yet to make an appearance, as Kaiba is eagerly awaiting to see it be used, and more specifically for his own enjoyment on Joey. The duel itself is extremely intense towards Joey, but he isn't giving up without giving it his all. We start to see some flashbacks from Odeon and how he is connected to everything with Merrick, as in the duel he ends up pulling the Winged Dragon of Ra, but surprise, this is a fake repro of it that Merrick had put in his deck to help keep up the facade for now. But Odeon is worried about actually playing it for what the repercussions might be, but Merrick tells him to play the fake Egyptian god card anyway. Despite this intense moment that could be happening, we go further into the flashbacks of the Ishtars, showing how Odeon was adopted into the family and how the birth of Ishizu and Merrick came to be, as well as the deep connection and loyalty of Merrick and Odeon coming together, why they are covered in tattoos, and it paints Merrick in a way different light than the one we see now. By that I mean the real evil side of Merrick, not the seemingly nice-natured Namu. Back within the duel itself, Joey calls out Odeon for how he's playing, claiming that this isn't the real Merrick at all, and Kaiba disagrees with this, but Yugi backs him up. So the duel continues anyway, and Odeon can defeat Joey without any show of force from the Winged Dragon of Ra, but Merrick wants Odeon to play it to keep up the disguise for longer. Now we get to see why having a counterfeit Egyptian card is nothing to play around with, as once the fake Winged Dragon of Ra is summoned, the wrath of the real god comes out, with a lightning strike being sent directly to Odeon and knocking him out, destroying the fake Millennium Rod he had in his possession and proving that he wasn't the real Merrick after all. Joey is also hit by lightning as a result of what's going on, leaving both duelists unconscious, as Kaiba just loves being Kaiba, seeing that the life points on both sides are at a standstill, matching each other's, that the first person to wake back up and stand up wins the duel. Thanks to all of Joey's friends within his dream, he is encouraged to stand back up, eventually doing so and winning the duel. Odeon soon reveals the truth to Joey before passing out further, explaining who the real Merrick is in the efforts of just wanting who Merrick used to be back when they were younger, as this causes the real Merrick to snap, with Yami Merrick fully coming out to play.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns! And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Then we see Joey miss shooting his shot with Mai, as when she asked if she was in his dream that he had that woke him up to win the duel, he declines out of being flustered, and she feels that Joey doesn't perhaps care about her like she cares about him. Now it's her time to battle anyway, as she goes up against Merrick, which could be bad to see the might of the real Merrick on full display. It even starts out pretty deadly as well, with Merrick taking the duel to the Shadow Realm immediately, with Yugi warning Mai of how dangerous this could be. But in her state of confidence, as well as feeling a bit hurt from Joey earlier, she she disregards this and just wants to duel. But there's another component here that really starts to affect Mai, and that is she loses bits of her memory as her monsters are destroyed, starting off with losing her memories of who Taya is. But this also works the other way as well, as Merrick would start to lose his memories of others like some of his rare hunter buddies, while Mai ends up losing her memories about Joey as this goes on. This also gets us to learn more about Mai, how she became a duelist and a bit of a loner, having to move house a lot with her family, forging a real bond with her cards instead of people. Yugi tries to reach out to Mai through the Millennium Puzzle to keep her engaged in the duel and to do what she can to win. This leads her to use the effects of her Amazon Chainmaster to give up some life points, but then to take one card from Merrick's hand and put it in her hand, that card being the real Winged Dragon of Ra. Not long later, Mai summons the Winged Dragon of Ra, which is shocking in general to see, but for some reason, it summons it in a sphere, as the only way that it can truly be activated to come out of this is through being able to read the ancient text written on the card. Merrick is not worried, knowing that she can't use the full force of Ra even if she tried. He then chains Mai up to keep her from moving, then begins speaking the ancient text to take control of the Winged Dragon of Ra for himself, aiming the power of this directly at her as Joey runs up to try and help Mai remember who he is and that he does care, as he wants to save her. And this ends up working for her memories at the moment, and even Yugi tries to get up there as well to protect Mai, but the Winged Dragon of Ra defeats her in the duel, as Merrick for now sends her to the Shadow Realm. As time ticks on, as she slowly will continue to lose the memory of everyone in her mind. And wow, all of these battles are resulting in non-stop casualties. I know Kaiba has really good insurance here, but if waivers weren't signed, I smell a few lawsuits coming. From there, the next battle, the last of the quarterfinals, begins as Kaiba ends up dueling Ishizu, and much like Pegasus, her Millennium Necklace helps her predict Kaiba's moves for the duel. After so many turns, Kaiba ends up drawing Obelisk the Tormentor, but Merrick's Millennium Rod gets to him, convincing Kaiba through visions of the past that the only way to defeat her is to use his Blue Eyes White Dragon. Through the strategy of disregarding Obelisk in favor of using Blue Eyes results in him winning the battle and setting up the roster of the final duelists who made it past the quarterfinals. The episode that follows this is the cooldown episode that will get us more into the lore and give us a breather between the intense multi-episode long duels that have been happening in succession. Like for Kaiba, he realizes that he can understand and read the ancient text on the Winged Dragon of Ra. As he looks into that, Ishizu sits with the others and explains more about her and her family's past, leading to a flashback of it all. The Ishtars themselves are supposed to be the guardians of the Millennium items and live in secret underground. We see how the Pharaoh's memories are carried through the different generations and how that ended up with Merrick. We also see how different and good-natured Merrick once was and how he was rebellious towards his forced family traditions and ceremonies, wanting to break the rules and go outside even though it is forbidden. We see how Odeon was treated by their father, as he would be punished for anything Merrick would do, but would take it in stride out of the respect and loyalty he has for Merrick. We see how Yami Merrick first comes to be as well, as it was in the protection of Odeon from his father, sending him to the Shadow Realm, as we see the kind-hearted Merrick regain control of himself, having no clue of what just happened as he sees his dead father before him. Shadi then appears to explain that this was all due to the Pharaoh's revival, which is easy to see why Merrick is coming for Yugi and how the evil inside of Merrick with Yami Merrick has grown so strong. Shizu explains that now in the present, they're the only ones that have a chance at saving Merrick here from the darkness taking over him. Joey refuses to do so for everything that Merrick has already done to him and his friends. He's very against forgiving and helping him. The Shizu leaves Yugi with the Millennium Necklace, reminding him that he still needs the 5 other Millennium items along with the God cards to get the full range of the Pharaoh's memories back. Taya privately asks her what happens when all of the items return to their tomb, as the Shizu then states that every soul has one place to return to. Taya is then taken control of once again, being forced to bring the Millennium Ring back to Bakura, who now wakes up right away. At the same time, Yugi and Yami Yugi are speaking about what happens in the end of all of this, as Yugi knows that their time together isn't forever, and that there will come a time that they part ways, but he knows his responsibilities that he carries as the vessel for the Pharaoh to use. Yami Bakura confronts Yami Merrick as a wager is set up for the battle of their Millennium items, as they find themselves getting into a shadow game. In this duel, the good Merrick is with Bakura, while Yami Merrick has full control of Merrick's mind and body. As the battle goes on, Bakura ends up using Exchange to get the Winged Dragon of Ra into his hand. We also see in this shadow game, the less life points that you have, the more of your body begins to disappear, and with Merrick holding on to Monster Reborn until Bakura has the Winged Dragon of Ra on his side of the field and eventually gets it into his graveyard, he uses that Monster Reborn to bring it back to his side of the field to defeat Bakura, as Bakura leaves him with one final sentence: "Don't you realize I am the darkness?" Foreshadowing something further down the road in the series that isn't important or revealed just yet, but very much will be. Also, Merrick controls Taya once more, helping her get through to his sister about hiding Odeon's body body away from Yami Merrick, as we then come to a close for the second season of Yu-Gi-Oh! While the ending of the tournament for the semifinals and the regular finals are still set to happen, this is where we break for now from what I believe to be the most fun season, thanks to how cool it is to see a massive city turned into a duel arena with so many cool new cards to see, duelists to battle, and a way more intense story that digs way deeper into the lore, with the last handful of episodes since they started the finals really opening up so many cool aspects of the series past, with some incredible character development and setups for all what's about to come next. Plus, Merrick in general is the coolest character out there, just saying. For the next part in the series, we are going to take a look at where Season 3 goes, as the series not only will see the end of the Battle City tournament, but a massive segue from the get-go that introduces a third Kaiba brother. This was seen as a big filler portion of the series, as it diverts so heavily from where the show was currently at, rather than just wrapping it up in the efforts of extending the lifespan of the anime. Regardless, that's all dependent on how you feel about that. We will also be taking a look at the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Movie, The Pyramid of Light, as well, so I hope you enjoy what the next part fully has to offer. Let me know your thoughts on the Battle City arc of the show in the comments below. As we continue on, as the blimp is ready to make its landing on the Kaiba Corp Island, the blimp itself gets hacked into, and a blue-haired kid named Noah appears on video and ends up having a lot of information known about Kaiba, as a fortress from the sea rises up to stop the blimp and holds it docked in from continuing on to the island. Here is where the plot really diverts from anything we had just been dealing with from the last season, which is kind of an annoying thing if you were watching this as new episodes were coming out, because you really just want to get back to the finals. But even worse for that feeling is that this isn't a short segue from the main plot. It lasts for roughly 24 episodes before we get back to the main duels. It's so inserted in here just to make Season 3 possible, as if it only focused on the finals, you'd only get what feels like half a season. But it's just so weird to not get this type of filler story at the end of the season, rather than right in the middle of a giant story already happening. Either way, it's a weird decision. Remember the Big Five from part 1 of the series, Kaiba's old board of directors for Kaiba Corp? Well, they are back, and this time they are trapped in the virtual world after the events of dealing with Kaiba and Yugi from back then. Noah had gotten into the mainframe of Kaiba Corp and taken the Big Five's minds and brought them into his virtual world, as they can now work together to all get revenge on Kaiba, and by extension, his associates. Everyone here gets challenged by them to a tournament in the virtual world, as if any of the Big Five win a duel, they can take the bodies of the loser and switch places with their minds to keep them trapped within the virtual world. They introduce the concept of a deck master that stays active while not in play, kind of like a mascot for the deck overall, adding in some new rules to the duels themselves because why not?
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns! And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
For now, we don't need to worry about the fate of Bakura, Odeon, Mai, or Merrick. We'll get back to that in many episodes from now. As we enter into the virtual world, the Big Five take on the appearance of Yu-Gi-Oh! Creatures themselves, as the others have to construct new decks from scratch with the virtual allotment of cards to choose from. Something is a bit off when Yugi tries to claim the Dark Magician as his deck master, as Kuribo comes popping out instead, and this can't be changed here. Tristan and Duke are paired up together as they are in a castle where things look and even feel real for it being a virtual world, as they try looking for where Serenity went. For her, she finds herself near some water, worrying about her brother, naturally. Joey ends up alone at the moment, and Taya is alone as well, but she ends up in some dangerous situations that leave her actually getting hurt, realizing that the virtual world is too dangerous to just be some regular old illusion. For Kaiba and Mokuba, they find themselves in a forest, thinking about what Noah has to do with any of this, only to find a special door that leads them to a recreation of the orphanage they grew up in together, making the mystery for them only weirder. As Yugi finds himself still dealing with a duel with one of the Big Five, Noah continues to mess with Kaiba and Mokuba, showing them their own past to strike an emotional core about it, as it's being used to drive a wedge between the two brothers. Tristan and Duke eventually find Serenity and rescue her from the dangers of the world. Taya ends up being held captive by some of the monsters she ran into, and suffice to say that things aren't going too well for anyone here in the virtual world. And by the way, that was supposed to be episode 100 of Yu-Gi-Oh! And for what it was nothing special, and that's kind of sad to see. Just thought I'd put that out there. For Yugi though, he comes to realize the power that a cute little Kuribo could have, being able to defeat the member of the Big Five and stay in the game. Taya, who seemingly now is going to be cooked and eaten by the giants that took her, is now saved by a penguin as they escape from the giants with ease. So that's good for her, but I feel this good feeling won't last a long time. Kaiba and Mokuba work through some of the issues brought up that was meant to cause division between them, as Kaiba plans on defeating Noah and, probably get out of the virtual world and back to the finals of his own tournament. So about that penguin that saved Taya, well, all it did was then bring her to another member of the Big Five that challenges her to a duel, or more like forces her to a duel as she can't leave. But luckily her deck master is the Dark Magician Girl, and of course we need the Dark Magician Girl here. It's been too long since we've seen her. Due to the cold nature of the battle and Taya being the only living organism here that isn't a penguin, the cold has ice form upon her from her feet as she loses any life points. Taya may not be the best duelist around, but Dark Magician Girl helps her out by giving her advice during the duel itself. Yugi ends up hearing Taya as he has found himself in a maze of doors that pit him against other creatures to face, but continues towards Taya's voice. We get to see more of a deep dive on Kaiba's past with Mokuba, being there for him as a real brother as Seto was forced to grow up quickly and turned into the hardened business person he would become. We see some real wholesome moments between the brothers as Noah sits there mad, making fun of them for the bond that they have with one another. Yugi and Yami Yugi work together to figure out the maze, having to face creatures in an increasingly difficult order to hopefully get out of there and make it to Taya. She's trying to hold her own in battle, but the member of the Big Five isn't worried about the Dark Magician Girl on her own, rather than what would happen if the Dark Magician were there with her. Yugi actually ends up finding Taya, but is blocked from getting close to the duel. Taya ends up getting the card Sage's Stone to summon the Dark Magician from Yugi's deck as it breaks into the duel arena and both magicians work together to take down the Big Five member. That's what you get for opening your mouth about what would happen if this happened. Oh look, it happened. Here, thanks to Taya having the Sage's Stone card, it represents her close bond with Yugi, with both magicians representing them as well. As we saw with the Dark Magician coming into the aid of Dark Magician Girl, Yugi came to the aid of Taya. Joey accidentally finds an exit that brings him back to the blimp, and inside he finds Mai still in a coma, but it was all a trap as she morphs into one of the Big Five members and the room around them becomes a courtroom, as Joey and his deck master the Flame Swordsman get ready to battle. Yugi and Taya eventually find themselves getting to where Joey is by entering through a door they come across, seeing that Joey is in the middle of this duel. Meanwhile, Kaiba and Mokuba are seeing more visions from their past, as one of them strikes a chord with Kaiba as it was him inventing a virtual world, as this idea would then be tossed away by their adoptive father, Gozaburo. But secretly, he stole the idea and built the virtual world anyway. Joey's duel is a bit unfair thanks to the Big Five members' cheating ways, but Noah seems to have a moral compass on some degree, appearing in the courtroom and stopping the duel because of this, but Joey says he's down to continue the duel as long as it's played fair from this point on. In the end, Joey makes the Big Five member a gambling man, where arduous decision forces the opponent to pick between one of two cards that could go in either the duelist's favor, and would result in one of them definitively winning. At first it seemed like he was going to pick the right card, but Joey pulls a quick bit of guilt about choosing that card to make him second guess himself, thus choosing the other card, which results in Joey winning the duel. Kaiba and Mokuba later on come across footage of Noah living at the same house, and having to prove himself to their father, as they are now more confused than ever, never having met Noah in the past. Tristan, Duke, and Serenity find themselves cornered by another member of the Big Five as he wanted to take on Serenity as an easy target, but through arguing with the others, it turns into a 3-on-1 duel. The only caveat is that the three of them on one team cannot work on strategies together, and anyone who breaks that rule or just loses will meet a fate below them as a radioactive waste pool is waiting for him underneath. A fate that Tristan meets when sending in one of his creatures to protect her after she was targeted for not being a well-versed player, sending Tristan plummeting into the radioactive waters below. R.I.P. Tristan. Yugi, Joey, and Taya head out to find Serenity after they catch the sound of her voice. As Serenity feels guilt for what just happened to Tristan, Duke brings a bit of Dungeon Dice Masters with him, changing up how the battle is going, as he then tries to convince Serenity to not give up and use the confidence her brother gave her, as then Joey, Yugi, and Taya find their way to them, with Joey giving her the same speech, essentially, as they end up now defeating the member of the Big Five, but he still ends up stealing Tristan's body anyway. Tristan, luckily, is still alive, but now just as a robotic monkey, while his body is now being used, and that not real Tristan is going after Kaiba, trying to get revenge, but Kaiba defends himself, as the rest of the group find where Kaiba is and are excited to see that Tristan's okay, but then they notice that it's just his body and it had been taken over, and still trying to attack Kaiba, but robot monkey Tristan and Joey attack the controlled body of Tristan. So then he gets on a motorbike, grabs Mokuba, and rides off, and Kaiba wastes no time and heads after him on a motorbike as well, as the others deal with their new robot monkey friend that Joey is suspicious of since Tristan can't speak properly through it. Serenity steps in to aid in the protection of the monkey from Joey and Duke, and Tristan of course doesn't mind this at all. Between him and Duke, who isn't trying to mac on Joey's sister, Kaiba ends up running into another member of the Big Five, this time one of the most powerful, the one who was his father's go-to guy. Kaiba gets ready to get into the battle here and chooses Lord of D as his deck master. And during their battle, the revenge plot here opens up as the member of the Big Five Five talks about him being the next in line to run the company, and Kaiba took that from him. And now this opens up more memories about Kaiba's past and the shaky relationship they had with their stepfather. And even if there was a lot of money and stuff to gain from being the owner's son, the constant threat of being sent back to the orphanage was dangled over them, especially when Kaiba at a young age had his business skills put to the test, given a large sum of money to somehow make it worth tenfold in a year or face going back to where he got both of them from. But it goes deeper than that, as the member of the Big Five was tasked by Kaiba during this test to purchase the majority of another company that treated their employees like family and had a deep care for them, only for Kaiba to then force the owner to buy it back from him at 10 times the initial price, or he'd shut it all down and ruin all the lives of the employees the owner views as family. While Kaiba did what he had to do for the sake of himself and his brother, his actions and how he did it were that of a heartless and ruthless businessman. This would manifest further to the person Kaiba had grown up to be. After going back and forth with their words about how business is done or shouldn't be done, the duel continues while the others ended up finding a truck that Joey drives them all through the open area. During this drive, as Tristan ponders over the love of Serenity, he flips a switch on him that allows him to have his voice back, shocking all the others. Mokuba is in the watchful care of Noah at this point as they watch over Kaiba's duel, with Noah still trying to drive a wedge between the brothers. This leads to a lot more of an emotional flashback on dueling company-owned percentages, after a major breaking point between the brothers and a fight over the ownership of the company at that point in time, and how despite any major moments between the brothers, they work through it all, with it still ending with Mokuba helping Kaiba have enough ownership of the company to take it over from their adoptive father, and keeping the ownership away from full control of the Big Five. In the end, Kaiba still wins the duel as Mokuba never lost faith in him, still confusing Noah as he wants nothing more than to break Mokuba away from Seto. And at this point, he now creates a virtual version of Kaiba to fool Mokuba into thinking some awful things, with this projection of Kaiba feeling real. Noah finally is able to gain control over Mokuba, and when Kaiba comes around, Mokuba won't go with him, as Yugi and Taya try going after Kaiba only to find themselves in a recreation of Kaiba Manor, seeing photos of Noah with Gozaboru, and finally getting to Kaiba as Noah proves to Kaiba and the others that he is Gozaboru's actual son, and that Kaiba was meant to be adopted in the efforts to motivate Noah and help him for his studies. Kaiba doesn't believe it fully based on the age of the photos and the age of Noah now not adding up, but for the others back in the truck, they are dealing with the return of the Big Five, as they all attempt to take their bodies as their own vessels forcefully. Noah then intervenes, stopping this from happening by saving them, as forcefully stealing the bodies is against the rules.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns! And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
In the meantime, we finally cut back to Merrick, who is just so bored waiting around for everyone and decides to start investigating everything for himself. Since they all want human bodies and don't think that it's fair that Tristan's body was acquired, Noah offers them a chance to all use Tristan's body to duel Yugi for the sake of them all getting bodies after that if they defeat them. As the Big Five all spend time arguing amongst themselves, Joey comes in to help Yugi as they agree to allow Joey help Yugi in the battle, since 5-on-1 is too much and not fair. As their battle starts, Kaiba still tries searching for where Mokuba is and wonders over the validity of Noah's claims. When he eventually comes across a digital recreation of his own plans for a Kaiba Land theme park, he's more shocked in how it was possible based on how secret the planning and designs for it all were. Yugi and Joey do their best together to keep battling the members of the Big Five, showing off some real good strategy together, as Kaiba sees more proof of Noah's life that shows him actually being the true son of Kaiba's adoptive father, and wonders what really happened to Noah, if any of this were to be true, for him to somehow be the same age, and for Seto and Mokuba truly getting adopted without any knowledge of him. For the battle with the Big Five, they end up being able to summon the five-headed dragon to make things a lot worse. As Yugi and Joey continue to work together to figure out how to take down this powerful beast of a creature, they end up fusing Dark Magician and the Flame Swordsman together to create the Dark Flare Knight, baiting the Big Five to attack and destroy it, but they lose no life points thanks to the card's abilities, also allowing Mirage Knight to be automatically summoned to take its place. Thanks to Mirage Knight's abilities, it's able to not only gain more attack points, but also permanently defeat the dragon thanks to it being a light attribute monster. Even though this is a big win overall, thanks to the Big Five having placed a deal with a Dark Ruler, Berserk Dragon becomes their new deck master to keep them in the duel. Joey aids in taking Yugi's Dark Magician and turning it into Dark Magician Knight, raising the attack points higher than the Berserk Dragon, as now they end up defeating the Big Five in this duel. They all try to take the rest of the group's bodies away, but Noah stops this from happening, taking them all back to his location without Tristan's body and banishing them to an eternity in the virtual world, leaving them in a faraway part of the world as Noah is ready to confront Kaiba himself over who the real heir to the Kaiba Corp throne is. Back with the full group, Joey and Duke find a special button on the monkey version of Tristan that takes them all directly to Kaiba Land, where Kaiba is on a ride and brought right to a special volcano-based dueling arena. Noah was there waiting for him as we get into the real explanation of what happened to Noah, as he shows off his digital brain that is in the virtual world after he died in a car accident 6 years ago, keeping him looking like he's that younger age and giving more context to Kaiba's understanding of it all. Eventually, the rest of the gang get to Kaiba as well to see the duel. Noah explains further during this duel about having his mind saved here and how he was able to gain all the knowledge he has about the company, becoming smarter and smarter thanks to the lack of limitations that a human mind can have. We further see the earlier moments of when he was first saved in the virtual world and how his father would always come to visit, and Noah wanted to keep expanding the capabilities within the virtual world that soon led to his father to become distracted with his new adoptive kids as Noah stored that pain within him. Noah then uses Mokuba as an emotional shield, keeping Kaiba at bay a bit in the duel so as to not harm the brainwashed Mokuba. Kaiba begins going through and realizing all of the mistakes that he has made and how he treats Mokuba, as Yugi helps Kaiba remember meaningful ways to get through to him. Kaiba summons his Blue Eyes White Dragon, helping shake off the control that Noah has on Mokuba, and Noah seemingly ends up winning the duel, but not quite. With Kaiba just wanting Mokuba free, Mokuba runs towards him, only for them both to be turned to stone by Noah. Yugi gets frustrated by this, calling Noah out for using Mokuba like that in a cheating way, similar to how the Big Five played with cheating mentalities, stepping in to continue the duel for him now, and thus continuing with the life points from the match. Yugi starts off with only 400 compared to Noah's 7,400. As this duel goes on, Noah is sick of hearing all of Yugi's friends cheer him on and hurl insults at him, causing them to one by one turn to stone after every turn. Yugi still gives the battle his all, sending the force of all of his magicians to take down Noah, but to no avail. Through the power of his friends guiding him spiritually and getting some of Kaiba's cards, Yugi is able to use the full might of Kaiba's 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, fusing them together for the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon to come out, taking Noah's higher risen up life points down enough where he now uses Diffusion, getting all 3 dragons on their own again as they all attack at once to take down the remaining life points Noah has. The others are now turned back from being stone, and Noah self-reflects on the similarities that Yugi has to Seto, and how no matter what, they never give up in situations that can feel impossible to overcome. He has harbored this resentment for his stepbrothers through how his dad made him feel, seemingly forgotten in this virtual world as the real world and the business itself was all focused to Kaiba. Noah's emotions get the better of him to take this fight to the real world, trying to take over Yugi until he realizes that another spirit already inhabits his body, stopping this from happening as the virtual version of Gozaburo makes himself known to everyone. It's further explained that Seto was just meant to be prepped to become a vessel for Noah's mind, which is pretty dark in thinking that the father went to an orphanage to get a random kid to then put the mind of his dead kid in. He didn't go forward with that as he saw Seto's mind as perfect enough without Noah to continue on, as he really lays into what he thinks about Noah. After Kaiba took over the company and bested his adoptive father, he implanted his mind into the virtual world as well, and is the ultimate puppet master for all that has happened on our detour of a storyline. Gozaburo's real plans is to now destroy the real world and trap everyone within the virtual one, using Noah's old plans of having a global network to expand the virtual world, similar to how Gozaburo stole the ideas from Seto in the past. Noah this whole time was just another pawn used in his father's own selfish and greedy plans, so he helps the gang escape from there, but this only turns out to be a fake recreation of their memories outside of the virtual world, as Noah then takes over Mokuba and escapes for himself to the real world through an actual exit from it. As the others have to deal with everything in the virtual world for now, Kaiba is challenged to a duel by Gozaburo in the hopes of getting out of the virtual world and shutting this whole place down. To really put Kaiba to the test here, Gozaburo is using a deck that consists of Exodia, trying to bring him back to the moment where Yugi originally defeated him. But even going further, he summons Exodia Necros, that has the effect that as long as all of the pieces of Exodia are in the graveyard, it's essentially invincible and immune to nearly anything. Noah, through Mokuba's body, has plans outside in the real world to just destroy the virtual world, taking everyone in there with it, but then remembers the kindness and brotherly love that Mokuba has shown him, changing his mind after setting up a targeted satellite strike, trying to rush in and then save the others now, as Merrick has finally done something and destroyed the controls, with no way of stopping the incoming strike from happening now. Noah warns everyone that they all need to escape before it's too late, as Gozaburo was ready to take Kaiba's body and leave for himself, but Kaiba stops him, saying that they will continue dueling and if he wins, he can have Kaiba's body. As the others get out of there, Tristan returns in his regular body, with Yugi staying behind as Noah helps him get to where Kaiba is to save him. Kaiba actually ends up defeating his adoptive father, who still tries to steal his body, but Yugi saves him at the last second, with Noah helping them get out to safety from the virtual world. Noah heads back in there, giving Mokuba his body back as the two say goodbye before Mokuba is brought to safety with everyone else making it to the blimp, as they all get away with Noah holding back his father from enacting any more plans as the virtual world is completely destroyed. Gozaburo's massive flame spirit tries to escape from the blast and get to Kaiba's blimp, but they are able to get away from it in time, with the fortress and the virtual world coming to an end as Noah sacrificed himself in order to stop the evil doings of his father, with Kaiba setting course to the beginning of the end, preparing for the Battle City finals and burying the past. That's at least the end of Noah's virtual world arc, giving us a third Kaiba brother and a lot of really cool deep dives into Kaiba's past that haven't been fully explored to see just how messed up and sometimes dark everything truly is. Luckily though, it is time to continue on to the Battle City finals, as Kaiba, Yugi, Joey, and Merrick have a lot in store for what's about to come.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns! And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Now we are ready for the finals, and it's going to be a special 4-way duel up a tower, as the lower your life points are, the higher you rise, forcing the two losers of the 4-way duel to be the first matchup of the semifinals. Kaiba really wants to target Yugi here so he can acquire his Egyptian God card, being powerful enough to then face Merrick and go up against the Winged Dragon of Ra. Yugi is the most conflicted here, trying to figure out his strategy and who he will truly face in battle, wanting to take down Merrick because of his evil plans, wanting to battle Kaiba for their ongoing rivalry, and Joey for their friendship and bond with a promise of a real no-holds-barred duel between the two of them. Joey is all about taking down Merrick for the sake of Mai, only having full-on revenge-seeking intentions for all of his actions. Merrick doesn't really care, as his plans are always the same and can enact them how he pleases, because he's Merrick and he's cool like that. As the order is chosen for turns, Yugi decides that he really wants to face Joey in the promise of their duel together. And then we get this hard-as-hell cover for the Game Boy Advance game, the Sacred Cards. God, I love this game. Kaiba can't really focus on losing on purpose, so his plans for going against Yugi first are kind of left to chance a bit. The duel starts going in every direction, as a 4-way duel is pretty crazy in conception for planning who battles who. Joey begins to get teamed up on as Kaiba helps Merrick, as Joey pleads with Yugi to help him by attacking him to send Joey to face Merrick in the semifinals, getting him to hesitantly agree, bringing down Joey's life points as Joey attacks Kaiba, setting off his Ring of Destruction card that would clear his remaining life points, with Joey using Grave Robber to use Merrick's Spell of Pain, sending the Ring of Destruction over to Merrick to defeat him, while now being open for Kaiba to attack Joey directly with his Blade Knight, sending Joey and Merrick to be the first battle in the semifinals. The dual tower concept is just so cool, honestly, and kind of a way to keep the duels going on for a bit longer, but like I said, it's still cool. With the first matchup going on between Joey and Merrick, Merrick sends the battle to the Shadow Realm right away, and every monster that is destroyed, both of them will feel respectively. Joey puts up as much of a fight as he can in the duel, but his energy is getting wiped out, as Mai is the one thing racing through his mind to keep him dueling for the sake of her fate. After Merrick forces him to discard some of his powerful cards, Joey ends up being able to bring back his Jinzo, but Merrick is a tricky one, sacrificing Joey's monsters on his side of the field to summon the creature Lava Golem, a powerful card, but it drains life points away from Joey as Merrick continues his strategies of building up to something stronger. Joey ends up being able to get rid of the Lava Golem and bring forward Guilford the Lightning to aid in the battle, but things might be too late. Merrick ends up using Nightmare Mirror to stop Joey's attack, deal damage to Joey, and discard one card from his hand, this being the Winged Dragon of Ra. Shortly after this, he uses Monster Reborn to bring forward the Winged Dragon of Ra, as it then transforms into the Egyptian god Phoenix, making the duel nearly impossible for Joey to do anything. Joey ends up taking immense damage from Ra's powerful attack, barely hanging in there as Ra returns to the graveyard due to its effect, that Merrick used to sacrifice some life points in order to destroy Joey's creatures and weaken him. Joey still goes on to duel and pulls Gearfried the Iron Knight, summoning him, having enough attack to take out Merrick for good, but Joey ends up collapsing from the exhaustion of the duel before sending in the attack to win, and based on his condition, Merrick is declared the winner, even if Joey may have nearly defeated him. Now Joey joins the list of those affected by the consequences of the Shadow Games, battling within his own mind as he is now unconscious himself, and taken away for medical treatment. Yugi takes this all very personally, of course, but no time to dwell on that, as now Yugi has to go up against Kaiba for their match in the semifinals. Kaiba sets the stage around them to look like a coliseum, and the two waste no time getting things going, as Kaiba draws Obelisk the Tormentor from the jump into his hand and eventually tries to summon it, only for Yugi to hold it at bay a bit with Life Force Sword, as Kaiba then uses Lullaby of Obedience to take Slifer the Sky Dragon from Yugi's deck. But Yugi isn't having this, using Exchange right away to take the card back from Kaiba's hand. Eventually, Yugi is able to get Slifer into play as Kaiba gets his Obelisk free and put back into his hand, tributing his monsters and summoning Obelisk to the field, as for the the first time, two Egyptian god cards are ready to face each other in epic proportions. It's epic, and the battle is on a scale in which we've never seen before. There's been so much build up to this as both Yugi and Kaiba go back and forth, combating each other at every turn. At one point, the gods clash, causing a powerful beam of light to shine from the duel tower as the two gods take each other out, and Yugi and Kaiba are given a vision of the past. From there, the battle continues, but Kaiba eventually uses magical trick mirror to use Monster Reborn from Yugi's graveyard, bringing back Obelisk the Tormentor into the game momentarily until it returns to the graveyard after saving Kaiba from Yugi's Dark Magician. Kaiba also strings together his Blue Eyes White Dragons to put Yugi in the worst possible position. Yugi then uses the Flute of Summoning Dragon to bring Joey's Red Eyes Black Dragon that he still has with him to the field. As Yugi stays in the battle a little longer, Kaiba pulls everything together to bring forth the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Yugi ends up fusing his Buster Blader and Dark Magician together to bring out the Dark Paladin, gaining extra attack points for the dragons on the field, eventually using Diffusion to turn the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon into 3 separate Blue Eyes again, using Diffusion Wave Motion to give up some life points to then attack all of the Blue Eyes and defeat Kaiba in the battle, moving on to the final duel against Merrick, beating Kaiba at his own tournament. Kaiba's not too happy about this, tossing Obelisk at Yugi and walking away all mad and pouty. Oh cool, Joey's okay. I was worried about him. His stubbornness to prove himself to Kaiba has him challenge Kaiba to a duel to determine who will get 3rd place, and Kaiba accepts this offer. Joey puts up the best duel that he can, and at one point, he gets control of one of Kaiba's Blue Eyes White Dragons after reviving it from the graveyard as Kaiba sends out another one, having them knock each other out in a double KO, but Kaiba then just revives another one for himself. Even though Joey did his best, Kaiba still defeats him in the duel and doesn't care about anything anymore. Nothing convinces him to stay or even further putting a stop to Merrick, wanting to destroy the island they are dueling on and forgetting all of this since his plans are done. Mokuba though stops him, telling him that he wants to see the old Seto back, the one that he truly remembers, and tells him to help Yugi take down Merrick since he figured out the one strategy to actually defeat the Winged Dragon of Ra, leaving Kaiba feeling, some feelings I guess, agreeing to do what he can, handing Yugi a special card that he was planning to use against Merrick to defeat him. This card was Fiend's Sanctuary. From there, it is time for the final duel, Yami Yugi versus Yami Merrick, and for the shadow game that starts, it has the rules of parts of their body disappearing as they lose life points. The full repercussions of losing is permanent death, ceasing to exist. However, for Merrick, he would be okay, at least Yami Merrick, since he's just this alter ego developed into this evil manifestation. The duel goes about as intense as you think it would. Merrick gets his Winged Dragon of Ra in the graveyard, and Yugi gets out his Slifer the Sky Dragon. Merrick, through his Dark Spell Regeneration card, uses Yugi's discarded Monster Reborn to bring forth the Winged Dragon of Ra in the form of its Egyptian god Phoenix mode. Merrick sacrifices some life points to have Ra destroy Slifer before it returns to the graveyard and uses Zombie's Jewel to get Yugi's Monster Reborn into his hand as Yugi gets to draw a card and places his Fiend's Sanctuary face down. Merrick brings back his Winged Dragon of Ra, and by giving his life points to now only have 1, Ra grows more powerful and somehow Merrick fuses with the god card. This is dope. When he goes to attack, Yugi activates Fiend's Sanctuary, summoning a Metal Fiend token, forcing Merrick to stop the attack as the effect of the token would redirect the attack back at him. So he uses Diffusion and separates from Ra, getting all of his life points back and weakening Ra as it goes back to the graveyard. Yugi then uses Multiply, making 2 more Metal Fiend tokens pop up, sacrificing them to summon Obelisk the Tormentor. He attacks Merrick directly, taking down his life points to near nothing as Merrick then uses Metal Reflect Slime to bring out a slime token to eventually fuse with his Revival Jam, to bring out the Egyptian god slime to mimic Obelisk. Merrick makes as much of a comeback as he can. Dark Magician Girl makes another appearance, which is always fun to see, and Merrick uses Mining for Magical Stones to get Monster Reborn back into his hand, and we can all guess which card he wants to bring back at this moment. Not long after, he uses the Monster Reborn to bring back the Winged Dragon of Ra, transforming it once more into the Egyptian god Phoenix, draining some of his life points, and then attacking Obelisk, taking the god out. Yugi then uses his own Monster Reborn to bring back Slifer the Sky Dragon, as Ra takes out Slifer as well, but Ra is also sent back to the grave, with all the gods now completely countered by both duelists. Merrick uses Surprise Attack from Beyond to bring back Ra again, sacrificing his life points down to 1 and fusing with the god, with Yugi using Soul Taker to sacrifice Merrick's Egyptian god slime, counting as multiple monsters to bring an infinitely powered Obelisk back to play, as Merrick stops the attack coming in from Obelisk through his face down card class system, as he also has powered up Ra even more. When Ra goes in for an attack, Yugi uses Magical Dimension to sacrifice Obelisk and his other monster to bring out Dark Magician, stopping Ra's attack with the targeted monster no longer on the field, as Yugi uses Ragnarok to remove the Winged Dragon of Ra from play in the duel. With Yugi at 700 life points and Merrick at only 1, and Ra completely gone, only a shred of Yami Merrick still exists, with Odeon showing up to have the real Merrick come back out from the state, and in the end, the real Merrick surrenders the duel, banishing the evil Yami Merrick for good and giving Yugi the ultimate win of the Battle City tournament, and I guess saving the day. Merrick gives Yugi the Winged Dragon of Rock card for winning, and even shows him on his back the secret of the Pharaoh that is carried down through generations and inscribed onto his back. Merrick then talks about the victims of Yami Merrick being fully recovered from their shadow games, and also giving Yugi the Millennium Rod for safekeeping. But they all need to get off the island because Kaiba wants to blow it up anyway, so that's fun. Also, the blimp is out of power, so that's also really fun, and they only have an hour to somehow get out of there. Thanks, Kaiba. This was unnecessary, and we all appreciate you for it. Joey goes to check in on Mai and sees that she hasn't woken up yet, crying over this as he begs her to wake up. Eventually, she does, but she was kind of just pretending to still be unconscious as a little joke, but also just to see if Joey really cares about her. Bakura as well also seems normal for the time being, but who knows, things never are that simple. As we get a bit of an epilogue with Kaiba thinking back to all that has happened, and the rest of the gang trying to figure out how to get off the island. They all end up getting saved in a helicopter as they watch the island get destroyed down below, and none of that needed to happen, but it sure was cool, I guess. Later on, back home, Ishizu and Merrick thank Yugi for all the help and leave to head back. Duke leaves the group as well for more Dungeon Dice Monster shenanigans. Mai heads out as well, with Joey not offering his feelings further, and with the tournament over, the next day, Yugi is ready to offer Joey his Red Eyes Black Dragon back, but on their terms of earning it back, meeting up with him and preparing to have a duel against one another as the episode comes to an end. Without seeing the results, we go and hang out with Taya in Serenity, as Taya shows her around the city to help her see all of the stuff that she hasn't been able to experience. This feels more like a recap of anything that talks about the events that have occurred throughout the past 2 seasons, and eventually Taya meets with Yugi. And while they still have time, they should enjoy whatever they have left with Yami Yugi, and before whatever comes next for them in the series as season 3 comes to a close. And man, what an exciting season. Sure, half of it was dedicated to a side story that comes out of nowhere, but at least it had an impact that meant something beyond just being a filler-filled segue. Okay, part of it really was, but there was good stuff there overall. Before we close off this video, around this time is when we got the first Yu-Gi-Oh movie, the biggest event at the time for a Yu-Gi-Oh fan, bringing in a tough new villain with high stakes for a true cinematic experience. Let's talk about Yu-Gi-Oh the movie, Pyramid of Light, and like the poster says, everything else was just practice.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh returns. And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Now, one of the best memories of this movie was going to the theater to see it and getting one of the 4 exclusive cards with the price of admission. Those cards were Whatapon, Sorcerer of Dark Magic, Pyramid of Light, and the coveted Blue Eyes Shining Dragon. This card and creature in general worked everything. As far as what happens in the movie, it takes place after season 3 has come to an end, with Yugi having all 3 of the Egyptian god cards. Kaiba is still working hard to figure out a way to defeat Yugi this time, practicing to do so but still never winning, blowing up his simulation from the sheer power of the gods and Yugi's skill, that were all input into the machine. Here we see the return of Pegasus to see how he's doing, as he totally wasn't killed off, at least not in the North American version of anything, as Kaiba wants to talk to him about a real way to defeat the god cards. Pegasus actually has a nightmare about something bad happening, seeing the god cards trapped in some sort of blue pyramid that represents the Millennium Puzzle, but, upside down. Kaiba and Pegasus get into a duel with the stakes of Kaiba's 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons and whatever Pegasus has that can defeat the god cards. After Kaiba wins, Kaiba ends up taking 2 cards from Pegasus, which kind of confuses him because there is only 1 card that is able to do this, but Kaiba does what he wants, so who cares? Did you see his cool, awesome Blue Eyes White Jet? That's tight. With Yugi's fame hitting an all-time high, everyone wants to face him in a duel and wants those god cards naturally, as Taya helps Yugi escape from the mob of them as they end up back at the museum, seeing a new setup that is on display called the Pyramid of Light. Yugi's grandpa's there and helps read out the text on the sarcophagus, which reads out like a warning about a vision being fulfilled, and this triggers a vision for Yugi about all of the events to come, and when he wakes up, the Pyramid of Light is no longer there and the sarcophagus lies empty. After this, they run into Mokuba, who tells Yugi that Kaiba wants to see him and to bring his duel disc as well. When he gets there, he finds Kaiba ready to duel, sealing all of the exits so Yugi can't leave, but Joey and Tristan also get in there to watch it all happen. The duel goes on for a while as Kaiba finally plays a new card, a trap card called the Pyramid of Light, giving Yugi concern and to be on his toes. This card is able to stop Yugi Yugi from using any of the Egyptian god cards. Later, Kaiba fully has his Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon out on the field, but sacrifices it for the brand new Blue Eyes Shining Dragon. The Pyramid of Light then pulls Joey, Tristan, Taya, and Yugi's soul into the Millennium Puzzle, where things get a little weird having to deal with some mummies coming after them. Even though Kaiba is basically about to defeat Yugi, he wants Yugi to really remember this, but he needs to destroy the Pyramid of Light first now that he has a way to use the god cards, having the Blue Eyes Shining Dragon essentially self-destruct to destroy the whole field. But the pyramid is okay, as a voice exclaims they can't allow that to happen, as a mysterious figure comes up behind Kaiba and forces him out of the duel, to then take it over, introducing himself as Anubis, the Egyptian Lord of the Dead that the Pharaoh had already dealt with thousands of years ago. He also wears the Pyramid of Light from the museum around his neck, much like Yugi's puzzle, and starts facing Yugi in a duel with powerful ancient creatures, while the others inside of the puzzle are stuck dealing with all the troubles inside of there, while Yami Yugi has to deal with Anubis all by himself, once again. Eventually in this duel, Yugi is able to bring back the Blue Eyes Shining Dragon to have enough power to destroy the pyramid, causing Anubis to become irate with anger and power, and those trapped in the puzzle are all free once more. Anubis fuses his two Sphinx cards into one Great Sphinx, as Yugi then uses Kaiba's plans of using Return from the Different Dimension to have the god cards back in play, having them kind of fuse together to take out Anubis, and even though this looked like the end of it all, with Yugi turning back into his regular self, a large jackal version of Anubis rises from the ashes, making the monsters real and no longer a game, as both Yugi and Kaiba work together and have the Blue Eyes Shining Dragon take out Anubis for good, as Pegasus shows up to save them from the explosion happening in time. It's a really fun movie, especially at the time to experience, and the battles were really fun. The animation for film level quality was really cool, but other than that, it's nothing too crazy to add into what's already going on in the series. Just a fun segue and theater experience from back in the day. But now we have reached the end of what we are doing with this part of the series. Next time we will enter into season 4 to see what adventures are left for Yugi and friends, leading up further to all of the answers of the past being revealed, with other new threats getting in the way. I'll see you there. In the meantime, tell me some of your favorite moments from season 3 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Along with your own personal memories of seeing the movie in theaters, down below in the comments. As we return back to the series, we first see the other duelists of Weevil and Rex seeking out how to get their hands on the Egyptian god cards from Yugi, only to run into a strange hooded person similar to the rare hunters but still very different. He threatens to take both of their souls and forces them to get into a duel with him, showing off an odd duel disc that not only is a different color, but seemingly has other features not yet seen before. In the meantime, we catch back up with Yugi and the others who are still trying to unlock more of Yami Yugi's past, while a disturbance catches their attention only to find both Weevil and Rex outside in a controlled-like state, muttering about the world being swallowed by the great beast. Their monsters are running amok, causing people to panic over this happening, and for Kaiba Corp to start getting some heat as we see later on TV that duel monsters are just showing up around the world and causing problems, as Kaiba then holds a press conference taking no responsibility for what is happening, as they tried turning off the virtualization system that brings the cards to life in a regular battle, and this is still happening regardless. Later on at Yugi's residence, he hears a noise downstairs in the shop, only to find his grandpa on the floor and that the store is a mess, as his grandpa claims someone had stolen the Egyptian god cards. Outside now, the power of the looming gods can be seen as 3 more members of this new mysterious and evil group appear. One of them proves to have stolen an Egyptian god card and refers to Yami Yugi as the nameless Pharaoh, and tells him to come to a special location if he wants the god cards back. The gang heads out to the location, meeting up with the same mysterious figure that turned Weevil and Rex into what they became, claiming to serve someone named Raphael, as he now challenges Yugi to a duel. This new group is testing Yugi and claims that if Yugi fails, then he is not their true enemy. Their goal is to collect souls like we saw a bit of earlier, and are coming for powerful duelists needing to get people like Yugi, Joey, Kaiba, and others. Things change real quick when the duel starts and the card the Seal of Orichalcos is played, as this concerns Yugi based on his experience with the Shadow Realm, but this isn't that. The field spell card stops the use of his Millennium Puzzle, as Millennium items are powerless in the Seal themselves. During the battle, Obelisk the Tormentor is summoned against Yugi, as he is shocked that whatever power this new group is using is able to control the gods with ease. Or can they, as the person here is really struggling to handle whatever power is coming from using the god card. Yugi overcomes this, however, but the other guy then pulls off a crazy combo that lets him summon 7 monsters, filling the field beyond what is possible. As Joey calls this out, but the other members of the group claim that the seal they are in now allows monsters to be summoned in the spell and trap card zones, so that's fun for everyone.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns! And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
The threat to Yugi and his friends is that they shall all soon be sacrificed in the aid of the resurrection of some ancient god, as they work towards the start of some new world, you know, the typical stuff you hear from these type of bad guys. We then see the way that the souls of the duelists are trapped within the various copies of the seal of Orichalcos, bringing Yugi to think of what happened back in Season 1 with Pegasus. The loser of the duel gets trapped within the current seal at play, and with Yugi still winning this duel in the end, his opponent gets trapped within the card after he gives Obelisk to Raphael. Raphael won't return the god cards for now, but he does release Weevil and Rex as Yugi finds a special shining stone that his opponent had dropped. Yugi and the others go and find Weevil and Rex to get some information from them about what is going on, and nothing aside from the information we already know is offered, as they can't remember anything past getting captured. But Weevil tries to get the god cards off Yugi instantly after this, as Yugi claims that they were already stolen. With this information, Weevil and Rex plan to track the cards down themselves as well, so they can get their hands on them. Now we get the return of the character Rebecca, who showed up for a tiny bit at the end of Season 1, and is back thanks to her grandfather Professor Hawkins wanting to speak with Yugi, and as they do, he sees immediately that Yugi embodies the nameless Pharaoh. Eventually we will get the Pharaoh's real name, but not yet, so nameless Pharaoh becomes a thing for a bit too. Digging in further for the lore here, Professor Hawkins talks about finding some undersea ruins that he was researching, seeing ancient markings that showed the duel monsters being real and how the Pharaoh sealed away the evil and real powers that they had. Yugi brings up the stone that he found as the professor talks about seeing similar stones in the ruins as well, and is going to research it some more. Later that day, Yugi ends up hearing a voice call out to him through the Millennium Puzzle, but isn't sure what that was all about quite yet. In the meantime, this mysterious new group has the three main swordsmen, as they're called, report into a meeting with their leader of the group as they hand him the three Egyptian god cards. This leader doesn't want the Pharaoh to use them to gain his memories back, as their use can be for unlocking what is known as the Forbidden Door. This begins a sequence that the cards are used for, connecting a bridge of sorts from one land to this one. As Yugi is sleeping, he ends up going into the world of the spirit of the Pharaoh within the Millennium Puzzle as they head towards the voice calling out for help together, finding it to be Karibo, who ends up bringing them to another dimension that contains the full world of the duel monsters themselves. There they see some dragons that are frozen in ice that had all been impaled by a sword, as the Dark Magician Girl appears and explains to them about the Dark Sun that is absorbing the duel monsters as there aren't many left. She tells Yugi that they need help and asks him to save both worlds, with Yugi having to unleash one of the sealed away dragons, this dragon being Timaeus, pulling the sword from it and saying the name of the dragon to create a bond with it to take in the power that the dragon has. When Yugi wakes up, something is seen in the sky as he gets back with everyone to see that the duel monsters are being taken by a green crystal that gives birth to a giant eye, or better yet, the Dark Sun that is now within the sky above, with the leader of the group claiming Yugi to be the sacrifice for his god as it tries to then take Yugi, but he notices his deck is glowing, pulling out the card for Timaeus, having it come out and destroy the eye as it breaks into many pieces, scattering themselves all around the globe. Dark Magician Girl appears again, telling Yugi that this evil god is coming and will be resurrected here in the real world, as Yugi now has to put a stop to this and free the other duel monsters. Things get a bit of a change up when Pegasus comes back around with a tape from him that isn't after their souls like at the start of the series, but an invite to take a flight directly to him, as Pegasus knows of the real reasons that the monsters from the cards are real and causing problems. Pegasus gives Yugi a special card that is one of a kind and yells at Yugi in the tape to not lose it and guard it with his life. Weevil and Rex are listening in and are following our main group, and I kinda love how much these two side characters get played into a pair here that work together the longer the series has gone on. They end up getting on the flight as well, disguised as some regular cargo. At the same time, Kaiba is worried about what is happening as Mokuba informs him that there is someone out there buying up stocks of the company at a really fast rate. This turns out to be Pegasus, as the two of them get on a call, and Pegasus baits Kaiba to come to him for a supposed duel, and if he doesn't, then he will sell all of the stocks of his company. So he takes the cool Blue Eyes White jet along with Mokuba to make it to Pegasus. Pegasus plays pretty coy about his knowledge of things towards Kaiba as they get into their duel, but at one point, with Kaiba also sussing out something being weird here, Pegasus removes his mask, revealing to not even be Pegasus, but instead a character named Alistair. He's one of the three swordsmen who also has one of the new types of duel discs on him, activating the seal of Orichalcos and leaving the battle up to fate for the sake of their souls. On the other side of things, Yugi and the others end up still heading to the headquarters of Industrial Illusions, where all of the cards are made and where presumably the real Pegasus actually is, and was bringing them to while this imposter Pegasus went after Kaiba to trick him into a duel. Weevil and Rex end up getting themselves lost when they fall out of the luggage transport after landing. For Kaiba's duel, we get some backstory about Alistair and how he grew up within a war zone with his brother, and with Kaiba Corp used to being known for making weapons, they were caught within the fight, and his younger brother lost his life when they were around some of the Kaiba Corp made tanks. seeing Gozaburo shaking hands with the opposing troops. This led them to the leader of this new evil group, Darts, who allowed him to seek out revenge towards the Kaiba Corporation and by extension the whole Kaiba family. During this battle, Kaiba's deck begins to glow as he is brought into the Duel Monsters world as well, following the same footsteps as Yugi and removing the sword from one of the dragons, releasing Critias, as he uses the ability of the card in the real world to now fuse the summoning of a dragon with a trap card, releasing out Doom Virus Dragon, which is able to clear the field of Alistair's monsters. With Kaiba now about to win, Alistair plays a special card that immediately ends the duel in a draw, so no soul is taken to save himself and escapes, warning that he will be back. Now Kaiba seeks out the real Pegasus. For Rex and Weevil, they end up running into Duke Devlin, who ends up helping them out when they get pickpocketed, and further so when they lie to him about just being worried about Yugi, as he then helps bring them to the facility. He would know where to go since Dungeon Dice Monsters is produced from there. For Yugi and the others on the way to see Pegasus, they arrive at Industrial Illusions. After a possible run-in with Mai earlier, Mai actually reveals herself to the others that she had actually joined to the bad guy group, which is known as Doma, where she also has one of those special duel discs that would come to be known as a Chaos Duel Disc. The other two swordsmen, Raphael and Valen, are keeping an eye on what is happening. It's revealed that she had already reached Pegasus and had taken his soul, challenging Joey to a duel first and activating the seal of Orichalcos, trapping Joey into a duel for his soul. Joey tries to do whatever he can to get through to her, but the duel continues on. Joey really doesn't want to, as it would mean that Mai would lose her soul if he were to win, but on the other hand, he would lose his soul if he lost. We see how Mai was driven to Darts and the Doma group that she is in. Feeling pretty alone and hopeless from her experiences from what happened with Merrick, she ended up meeting Valen, who helped her seek out the power that she was hoping for and never being defeated again, leading her to Darts, introducing her into the cult-like organization. Duke and the other two had just arrived as well to watch what is happening from outside of the locked gate, as he tries to find a way to deactivate the security measures keeping the others locked in and them locked out. As Joey tries stalling the duel with his tactics and also trying to save his skin, he ends up giving Mai some real pushback. Yugi, though, thinks that there is a way to possibly tie the duel for the result in the end that neither of them would lose their soul, which, yeah, he's correct, but they still have to do that. As things get more dire in the duel towards Joey, he experienced the same thing that Yugi and Kaiba did, being brought into the Duel Monsters world and removing the sword from the dragon there, gaining the bond with Hermos, as he gets to now use the power of the dragon's special card within the duel. Using the power of the Claw of Hermos and his Time Wizard, he brings forward a funny little hammer that has wings, which makes Valen laugh, but there may just be some great power here to this hammer. At some point, the hammer on its own opens up a portal and sucks in all of her monsters, as everyone there waits with bated breath, and after a moment, Joey attacks directly, bringing her back down to doubting herself, and feeling like she's never gonna be good enough ever. Yugi understands what the hammer had done, using the power of the Time Wizard to assign a number to the creatures and send them all into future turns based on the number on their head, as Harpy's pet dragon comes back out. As the battle goes on, Raphael seemingly gives up on Mai, while Valen still has faith in her to be the strong duelist he knows her to be, jumping in the duel and using his Orichalcos stone to break the seal and rescue Mai from the situation, leaving while Raphael claims that he will be coming for Yugi, all disappearing out of there before anyone could have a second to process what happened. Joey is pissed at what has happened to Mai, as Duke gets the security system to go offline. Kaiba also ends up showing up and is looking for Pegasus to see if he's alright, as they go to his office to see a message left for Yugi. The special keycard that was given to him unlocks a special room that has a video from Pegasus explaining who Doma are, and how for centuries they have been always around manipulating major events through history and operating in the shadows. They were the real ones behind trying to take over Kaiba Corp through buying up stocks, as they are very well funded with the money they've accumulated over the years to continue to operate at the level they do. Pegasus also has made an all-powerful card that can help defeat them, but the card turns out to be completely blank, as for now, until they know more, is named the Nameless card. How nameless of them. Yugi, Joey, and Kaiba all quickly realize through their experiences of getting the individual dragon cards and their connections to them that they are supposed to unite together to face this ultimate threat. From here and what they will do next, they decide to meet back up with the professor to get some insight on things. In the meantime, Raphael and Valen are discussing what to do next, as they take aim at setting up plans for what to do with Yugi and also capturing the professor. Rebecca, later on walking home with her horse, bears witness to her grandfather, aka the professor, being abducted, as then his house is blown up. Later on, Yugi and the others arrive to meet with Rebecca, as she shows Yugi a message left for him telling him to arrive alone in a place called Dead Valley, which is basically just Death Valley. But it may not be a great time for Yugi, as he goes after Raphael for the sake of the professor and tells Rebecca to keep this a secret from the others. But the snooping duo of Weevil and Rex can't help themselves and want to witness whatever happens here. Yugi borrows Rebecca's horse and heads out into the valley with the big iron on his hip, and by that I mean one of those legendary dragons, as this cowboy has a duel to get into. When Yugi arrives in the most Yugi way possible, then menacingly walking across a bridge that Raphael throws some axes at to cut behind him once he crosses it, Raphael gets philosophical about Doma's operations being evil or not, as that's for history to decide as he follows the term of justice specifically. For his backstory, we see that at one point when he was a kid, he was shipwrecked and stuck on an island for years, watching his loved ones, mother, father, brother, and sister all die. Somehow, his cards kept him safe, as they are all considered guardian monsters. His only goal in the duel, aside from winning, is to do whatever he can to keep his cards from entering the graveyard. At some point during his time stranded, he was granted a vision that would ultimately lead him to darts, after he would then eventually be saved and find life miserable on his own, joining Doma and looking for the answer to what fate truly is. He's clearly a duelist with a strong connection to his cards through the loss of his family, making the emotional stakes rise for a character that comes off so brash to the world.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns!
And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
In the background of this, the professor was allowed to go home from where he was captured. They just wanted to stop his research and bait Yugi out to this duel. Joey, Taya, Tristan, and Duke all notice that Yugi is gone and head out looking for him, while Rebecca stays back to worry about her grandpa. As Yugi and Raphael are engaged in their duel, Raphael does the bad guy thing of explaining the plans of the evil that is happening, as they plan on resetting human civilization on the planet, and then goes into how they've all been around and guiding major moments throughout history, something they just had learned from Pegasus, but now is confirmed further that this was all true. He continues on into the balance of dark and light, and how they can see and understand the dark within their hearts to see the true balance of the scales. Going beyond this and speaking to Yami directly, he asks him the hard questions. Was he, as a pharaoh, a king of the people, a fair ruler, or a tyrant to spread more chaos and control across the land? This is hard for Yami Yugi, as how the heck should he know? He doesn't even know his own name, let alone much more than that he was a pharaoh. At one point in the duel, Yugi uses the force of his dragon special card to fuse with his dark magician girl, bringing out Dark Magician Girl the Dragon Knight, but Raphael ends up giving the Seal of Orichalcos to Yugi, as it tugs on the evil within his heart to manipulate his playstyle and lose sight of himself, going for full-on power to try and destroy Raphael, as Raphael blocks and stops his powerful dragon fusion. Yami Yugi here is pinned in a bad spot, seemingly close to losing the duel, and as it goes on, without much else to do, Yami Yugi ends up losing the battle from the manipulation, from having the temptation and then playing the Seal of Orichalcos, and as his sacrifice is needed specifically for the beast, the regular Yugi breaks free and pushes Yami out, as the seal only needs one soul, not both of them, saving Yami from what terrible things could happen if he were captured in that seal, and leaving it as only the real Yugi getting his soul taken. Yugi's friends show up as they see the rest of the duel, with Raphael getting a pickup from a helicopter and tossing the limp body of Yugi at his friends, telling them to keep him, as he believes he has the Pharaoh's spirit captured. When Yugi wakes up, all that is there is Yami, as he realizes that the regular Yugi is gone and begins to cry, exclaiming that it should have been him, not Yugi, but him, continuing to take this extremely hard. Darts offers the soul of Yugi as an offering to the Leviathan, the great beast, which this moment is either all really emotional for you to be invested in, or clowned on for Yami's "it should have been me, not him, it's not fair" line. But I think it's so crucial and a really interesting way to show how Yami could be defeated, especially with how conflicted he is about his own past that he doesn't fully know, and how good of a person the real Yugi is, seeing what sacrifice needed to be made for the betterment of mankind. Joey does what he can to get Yami to snap out of his depressed state and focus on what to do next to fix this rather than dwell on it. As far as more lore about the past, the professor thinks that the ruins he saw underneath the sea were those of the ancient and lost city to the allegedly fabled Atlantis. Certain texts are decoded to explain about some king who took out the whole city with the help of some monster, as to get more context to what really is happening, that they would need some more fragments in relation to it all, with some of them being on display in a museum in Florida, and Joey here starts taking a bit of a leadership role to figure out how to lead things forward. Joey really does continue to grow constantly throughout the series, and that's why he's been my favorite main character. And don't worry, Merrick's still my favorite character overall, but he's technically not a main character, and Joey is. Team Joey for life. After witnessing all that has happened, both Rex and Weevil end up going to Raphael and want to go with the swordsman to see Darts, and become members of Doma, wanting to really prove themselves and not be seen as just losers. Darts first though reveals to Raphael that he didn't get the soul of the Pharaoh like he thought, as he then asks Darts for another chance to capture the Pharaoh, while the other two goons here beg Darts to join Doma. He doesn't give that chance to Raphael just yet, but instead he gives Rex and Weevil each a Seal of Orichalcos card, as they are then taken into what they both have always wanted, unlimited access to powerful and cool cards as they are brought to a room filled with them. And while they can use these cards to make their decks stronger, they could also use their own cards already if they want, but the temptation is too great and they enjoy building new decks with all the cards to choose from. Darts then gives them the assignment of going after the Pharaoh and Joey respectively. As for what Kaiba's been up to, he can't find much more information on Doma, as well as he stands conflicted about his company being responsible for what happened in Alistair's past. He knows that he must help take them down so he can continue to try and fix the reputation of Kaiba Corp from what the company used to be. Despite Kaiba's hard exterior, his products and inventions and ideas are set out to really bring joy at the end of the day. Dual discs are cool. The promised Kaibaland theme park sounds fun. Sure, these are still corporate things to make money on in various ways, but these things will still bring people joy. Funding war clearly does not. Joey ends up calling Kaiba and informs him that they need to get to Florida and just really catches him up on everything, but also lets him know that Yugi lost the duel, and that's all Kaiba really wanted to hear, calling Yami Yugi a disgrace to the game of duel monsters, but smiles to himself after hanging up, feeling good that it's not impossible to beat him in a duel, but still doesn't do anything to help them at this moment. You gotta love Kaiba. Rebecca directs the others to an airport as she stays with her grandfather and Duke for now. To get to the airport, they all take a train, with Yami still taking it hard for all that has happened, and as time passes on the train, it somehow becomes separated and splits the group apart, with Yami and Taya still moving forward with the connected parts of the train to the engine, while Joey and Tristan are left in the middle of nowhere for now. But Rex shows up to have a duel with him on his given task of taking his soul, having themselves a real rematch just with greater stakes now, as he has the Chaos Duel Disc and the Seal of Orichalcos. As for Yugi, he climbs on top of the train because that's just cool, and what's cooler is to have a battle on top of a moving train, with Weevil showing up for a real rematch with him, and much like Rex, having the new Duel Disc and Orichalcos seal. Weevil tells Yami that if he beats him, he will tell him where to find Yugi's soul, and Yami accepts this of course, and this would also be saving him too if he loses, since he would be turned into an offering as well and placed in the same area Yugi is at. The matches are being monitored by both Darts and Raphael. We get some deep cuts to how both Rex and Weevil became the way they are, and really how close they've become post the events of Duelist Kingdom, as they dealt with the humiliation and shame from being kicked out of the tournament. It's still kind of their own fault though. And it's also funny to see that even their sob stories don't mean anything here, as Yami and Joey couldn't care less. The battles continue on as Joey ends up defeating Rex, which traps his soul within his Seal of Orichalcos card, and Yami ends up defeating Weevil, and is now trying to get the information out of him of where to find Yugi at, but his soul was already claimed by his Orichalcos card as well. The train itself begins to derail, sending Yami and Taya over a cliff as Darts notices trace on Yami disappears, curious as to what happened. Could Yami have died? Could there be something else afoot? Well, Yami and Taya end up in a hut meeting a girl named Chris and her dog, as they then end up meeting an older man named Ironheart, who takes interest in Yami's Timaeus card, a card that he has a separation to now because of the evil in his heart for using the Seal of Orichalcos. After talking for a bit, Ironheart offers to guide them somewhere as they decide to follow along. Raphael was sent out to look for what really happened to the Pharaoh, finding no trace of him at the train crash site, and continuing to dig further into where he could have gone. After a bit of traveling, Ironheart brings them to a place where the dead linger, allowing their hatred to gather here, leaving ambiguous answers to what that truly means or what truly happened to these people. More so, the lost souls out there, as Yami hears the voices of people in his past that he has faced in battle who have had evil within their hearts at one point or another, calling back to people from Duelist Kingdom in the Battle City arc. In the middle of the area, Yami is greeted to the spirit of Yugi, apologizing to him, but Yugi is mad at Yami for his actions as Yami states his confusion of what is truly good and what is truly bad. Yugi sees the darkness plastered onto Yami's heart, as a challenge is given to Yami from Yugi, saying that they will duel and if he doesn't defeat him, he will vanish as well. And Yugi's harsh words here of having the Pharaoh learn to take responsibility for his actions and face his inner demons in the ways of truly getting over any lingering evil within his heart to then truly be good is a deep conversation between the two that really catches Yami off guard for the way that Yugi is speaking to him. While it is more of a mind thing, facing himself and getting through his pain and regret rather than actually doing the spirit of the real Yugi, it still is that as well. He ends up defeating Yugi and passing Yugi's test, thus beating the darkness in his own heart to be a true hero, as the spirit of Yugi truly speaks to him, knowing that the spirit of the Pharaoh is good, with Yami pledging to save him no matter what it takes. After Raphael sees that Yami is still alive, as Darts tunes in to view what Raphael sees, he goes to confront Yami as they summon through cracks in the ground an Orichalcos soldier. This forces Yami into a duel with the massive soldier, as he is then given a full-on vision of the Battle of Atlantis, with Ironheart in the meantime charging into the duel with the Timaeus card to give back to him. In this vision though, Yami sees sees how Ironheart and Chris were both in this battle back then as they were fighting with Tamias against some massive creature, while Darts is shown to be with this giant beast known as the Leviathan, giving us the first time Yami sees who this character is. The ancient battle shows Tamias nearly being defeated as a Leviathan in a clash, causing an explosion before the duel now continues on. Ironheart charges in with Chris behind him as they give Yami Tamias' card back, as he then gets struck by lightning that was sent in from Darts. As Chris continues on to bring it to Yami when Ironheart evaporates into bubbles or something, the same fate happens to Chris when another bolt of lightning hits her, but she still continues on, only to get struck again, as this time she gets close enough to actually hand Yami the card, right before she disappears as well. And now, Yami is not happy about this. He hopes to be deemed worthy once more after the power of Tamias was taken away from his actions earlier with the Seal of Orichalcos, summoning Tamias back out, seeing that he is worthy and fusing it with the Dark Magician Girl, and defeating the soldier in battle. In the end, Tristan and Joey make their way to Yami and Taya after seeing the explosion from Yami's duel. Yami then sees a tablet depicting the 3 legendary dragons and showing Ironheart and Chris fighting in the war 10,000 years ago, knowing that their souls are captured as he proceeds on to deal with Darts and put an end to all of this.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns!
And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
From this point, Yami has a newfound confidence and reassurance for what to do, with Taya being happy to see this, as they move towards meeting up with Joey and Tristan. Within Doma, there is a bunch of infighting regarding the whole Mai matter, from her duel earlier and how Valen stopped it, with Raphael not having any faith in her, as she didn't listen to any orders given. Darts, in a calmly manner, lets her storm off and refers to her fate being in the hand of her god. As she rides her motorcycle, she gets confronted by other bikers as she sends out her Harpy Lady, which again isn't an illusion, and it then destroys their bike, as Valen catches up to her to have a talk. He claims that he will have to deal with Joey while trying to talk some sense into her about what it means to win and losing sight of other important things. Clearly, Valen has a thing for her, showing genuine care. While she gets what he's saying, she plays it off as she doesn't, pushing him away as he tells her that he found a goal that makes it worth winning in the end, with that goal being her. He wants to be with her, and beyond just winning duels and taking down the Pharaoh or even Joey, that he would even take down Darts if that's what it took to win her. She tells him to not be so confident, as she also wants a piece of Joey, making this an interesting bit of story for a semi-main character and a current season side villain. Rebecca and Duke happen to be driving by as they spot them, and Rebecca goes off on Valen about Doma taking Yugi's soul, with Valen mouthing off back to her. Eventually, she challenges him to a duel, with Duke joining in for it. Valen ends up beating both of them, telling them to warn Joey that he's coming for him next, with Mai leaving for now, as Valen is set on proving himself to her. Back with Joey and Tristan, that same light that they witnessed when Yugi first used Tamias appears in the sky. Yami and Taya see the same thing from where they are, as Darts is pleased to see his god being active based on the current captured souls. For Mokuba and Kaiba, it seems that Kaiba really has no more interest in Yugi or the Pharaoh. At least that's what he puts out there, telling Mokuba that he has no interest in losers. From the plane that they're on, they notice the same phenomenon in the sky appearing as well, with Kaiba bracing in a smug manner for what happens next. Alistair returns, speaking to Kaiba through the plane's intercom, bringing them to see the plane is on autopilot as he appears in there and challenges him to a rematch, setting the stage and showing a vision of the city from Alistair's childhood that was ruined by the war to really lay into Kaiba's psyche for the duel. As the duel goes on, Mokuba tries to gain control of the plane, radioing in for help, as Alistair is only getting angrier within the duel, letting all of his hatred out and claiming Kaiba to just be like his father as the plane continues to take damage from the Seal of Orichalcos. But Kaiba gets the upper hand in the duel, bringing his legendary dragon and eventually having it fully come together with his Blue Eyes White Dragon to create the Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon, defeating Alistair as his soul is then claimed by his card. While Kaiba still struggles with Alistair's past and has dealt with him on the plane for now, he sees Mokuba safe as well, as he takes a moment to smile before he tries to then save the plane from fully falling out of the sky, as his legendary dragon pulls the other two from Yami and Joey to help land the plane safely. Yami, Taya, Joey, and Tristan all meet up with each other and make their way towards the plane, greeting Kaiba as he exits from it and telling them that they all might be useful after all for his own plans. But when Kaiba gets a call, he hears that Doma has purchased all of Kaiba Corp, leaving Kaiba unemployed, maybe. I doubt that they would keep him on board. In the meantime, from what control he has left, he gets information sent to him about further engravings from Atlantis, Arcs. Moments before Doma stops this from continuing, as they get this information to the professor. They need to get to the supercomputer at the Kaiba Corp building in the US to help process the texts as the sky ends up opening once more. Darts waits, ready for the return of his great Leviathan, ready to destroy mankind. He begins sending life out to the fragments of his god around the world, giving them energy to bring forth more Orichalcos soldiers and sending in real monsters to be at the Kaiba Corp building. Yami and Kaiba head to his building through a secret entrance, while Taya and Tristan go warn the authorities of what's happening. Rebecca, Joey, Duke, and the professor stand by as they hack into the building's systems to aid Kaiba and Yami. Both of them end up having to face real duel monsters, as Taya and Tristan then now run from possessed police. Kaiba is able to figure out how Doma operates in secrecy under the secret company name of Paradies, being similar to the word paradise, as that was in the deciphered text, which refers to paradise as Atlantis. This company has the power and wealth as strong as the world leaders, and that the leader of it all is in fact Darts. Yami isn't sure how Darts could even still be alive, with his vision from him from earlier was from 10,000 years ago. But time is running out for what is happening. The silhouette of the Leviathan flies in the sky, as they are then attacked, breaking any connection from Kaiba and Yami to Rebecca and the others. Darts makes himself present to meet Kaiba and Yami, riding atop of his Leviathan. He continues on about fate as they get ready to face off against him with their legendary dragons, but with Darts' power, everything is useless, causing Yami and Kaiba to run for it, making it to his Blue Eyes White jet, but it gets shot down as the Leviathan continues to circle the globe for pure utter chaos. Valen, however, is ready to find Joey and take him on in a duel, speeding on his bike towards the city. He eventually finds Joey, or does Joey find him, as he gets baited into hopping on a bike that he found and chasing after him, with Kaiba and Yami meeting back with all the others as Tristan is now trying to chase after Joey, only being stopped by Mai, as she wants to know where Joey is herself. She learns about what just happened and heads after them as she is pissed that Valen got to Joey first. Valen leads Joey to a vacant lot where they argue over Mai, naturally, as Valen thinks that as long as Joey is around, all Mai will be doing is suffering, as the two of them get into their duel, with Darts having no care who wins or loses. He just wants another soul at this point to be sacrificed. During the duel, we learn of his past, like we have with all the others, as he lived at a church having a bad track record of constantly getting into fights and dealing with a hard life overall. The one person who cared for him was a nun at the church who eventually got kicked out of it when the building was purchased, as she fought back for the sake of the kids who were living there. Later on, he finds the church being burned by the thugs whose boss purchased the church, causing some sort of an insurance scam. They don't have to pay for knocking it down. Valen ends up going and beating the thugs senselessly, and later is arrested and sent to prison, where he constantly gets into more fights, always having to fight in life wherever he's at. After some time in solitary confinement, he is offered a chance at freedom from the warden, if he goes and wins some duels. He accepts and heads to an island where he uses a card given to him, the Seal of Orichalcos, as he defeats all of the other prisoners, which paints more of a dystopian picture of the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. But when it's over, Darts reveals himself to be the one that orchestrated the whole thing, offering Valen a deal to join Doma, as he accepts. Joey really resonates where Valen, along with the others, come from, having no one to lean on, only fighting for themselves and not having real connections with others, relating back to who he used to be, but knows that with his support group of friends now, it's better than it ever was. They continue to duel each other and still discuss where they are coming from in regards to how they view Mai, as Joey explains that she was the one to push him during Duelist Kingdom to not give up, and knows that who she is with this group isn't truly her, as her real goals would never align with Doma's. In the meantime, Kaiba heads to the Paradies building, buying a sports car, writing a check for $500,000, telling the salesman to keep the change. Wow. He's so cool. Yami has help from Rebecca in tracing where Joey is to go and find him. Eventually, for Joey's battle, Joey pulls his legendary dragon, and when Valen is able to make a clone of it essentially, both of them are left pretty banged up, especially Joey at this point. But not long after, Joey begins to glow, as his body is then covered in a suit of armor, and it is connected to his actual life force, as they battle to see who is going to be the last one standing. Then when Joey gets his Red Eyes Black Dragon, he combines the armor and his Red Eyes together, creating this really cool full-on Red Eyes suit of armor, and I have an action figure of this, and I think it's cool as heck, don't at me. Both duelists are actually kind of excited, as it gets this intense in the duel, enjoying a true challenging duel that pushes both of them to their limits. Mai shows up to yell at Valen for getting to Joey first and not letting her deal with this, but he won't switch out for her, as Valen realizes why they are so drawn to face Joey. It is his true passion for the sake of the duel as they continue on. Soon, Joey is hit pretty hard, losing his Red Eyes armor and barely able to do anything, but he still ends up getting on his feet, as they are both at the point where one one more move each could defeat the other, and after a big climactic final push, Joey ends up defeating Valen, who takes the defeat like a champion, seeing Joey in a different light and telling Mai that it's okay and reassures her of the person he is in the end, telling Joey to watch over Mai, as Mai cries out his name while his soul is taken into his card. Darts sees this but now is certain that Mai is what will help truly revive the full freedom of the Leviathan. Mai takes the loss of Valen very personally as Joey tries to comfort her, and as they talk, Joey challenges her to a real duel, something that she's truly wanted, as they begin to start in the same place. Mai ends up leading the duel here, but has a problem finishing Joey off. Something is holding her back and she is conflicted by these feelings, but Joey ends up passing out and falling over anyway from the last duel and then hopping right into this one, giving Mai the win anyway, as she now rushes in to help him, thinking back to all the memories that they have together and does not want his soul to be taken, as Joey tells her it's too late and the circle comes in closer to take his soul, as he then grabs her Orichalcos fragment to destroy it, setting her free from Darts as his soul gets taken. Darts doesn't care because he just technically got a powerful soul anyway, as it's one of the chosen duelists. But the other legendary dragons appear in the sky, leaving Yami in Kaiba's deck to mourn the loss of their fallen brother. Mai is left with the regret and sadness with Joey being gone, as Yami and the others are reaching where this battle took place to see what happened, only seeing Joey and Valen left there. Well, their bodies. Unfortunately for Mai, when Yugi gets to the building they're all heading for anyway, he finds Mai's soulless body there, and sees this of the work of Raphael, ready to face him once more as he meets him, face to face. This is now a duel for the fate of the New Age, and as this battle goes on, Raphael uses the Seal of Orichalcos to show Yami the true force that it has. As this happened, Kaiba and the others reach them to witness the duel, and as the duel gets heated, a crevice opens up and Guardian Dead Scythe comes out from it, acting as a representation of Raphael's dark side. Yami at this point has his powerful legendary dragon out infused with the Dark Magician to create the Amulet Dragon, as it then gets destroyed by Raphael's beast. Not longer in the battle, the world around them becomes a vision of Raphael's past, the graveyard of his parents, and we see how he turned his guardian angel representation into the evil and maddening Dead Scythe. In the end of the duel, Raphael is defeated, but he has a vision of him reuniting with his family and the cards that he also has a real connection with, seeing the evil vanish from his heart and breaking his Orichalcos fragment, saving Raphael's soul from being claimed, with Yami standing tall from the victory and Kaiba respecting him once more, having the desire to still beat him in a duel one day. But the day isn't saved yet. The sun starts to rise as the ground beneath them shakes.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns!
And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Now the building is starting to collapse. They all get saved by one of Kaiba's helicopters, but Raphael is too weak to move on his own and Yami can't carry him. So he gives Yami a memory card before falling to his demise, with the ancient structure rising from the innards of this new age looking building, showing what was truly there all along. Yami gives Kaiba the SD card and they check what's on it, as it then points directly to where Darts' temple is, as Darts is saying a chant that brings him all of his Orichalcos soldiers. But the good news is we see Raphael surviving the fall and holding on to Mai's body as he emerges from the rubble. The way to Darts' temple is perilous, with the helicopter facing many typhoons, but Darts pulls them into the temple anyway, as he wants them to continue coming after him. Once there, the group find the main chamber and eventually find the tablets that resemble all of the souls that had been taken already. When Yami ends up seeing Yugi's tablet, he makes a dash for it as Darts yells out to him as he emerges before them all, then creating two special tablets that are waiting for both Kaiba and Yami. Darts then welcomes them both to challenge him, as he reveals that he has been around for over 10,000 years, showing all the souls that he has truly captured to bring forth his ultimate god. Kaiba sets up to duel Darts first, but Yami says he's stepping in as well, with Darts agreeing to this, with these two having to truly work together to take down Darts. Before we get into this, we see that Raphael is out collecting more bodies, continuing from there to make his way to the temple. As the duel gets going, Darts sets the Seal of Orichalcos while Yami and Kaiba work together to get their Blackluster Soldier and their Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon out so they can fuse them together, getting the Dragon Master Knight to be extremely powerful with a massive amount of attack points. During the duel though, Darts takes us on his backstory journey, talking about the history of Atlantis, how it was the perfect city, and eventually Darts became the king after his father resigned, who in fact was Ironheart, and we see that he had his own family, a wife, his pet, which was the wolf dog we saw earlier with Ironheart, and his daughter, Chris, making what happened earlier that much more deep and emotional for all that has happened. One day a volcano erupted and from it a massive black dragon arose and ate the sun, with stones raining down from the skies onto the land, and thus the origins of the Orichalcos was was born. Darts saw these stones as the cure for everything, as they could be used in a million ways for incredible inventions or even medicine. And through this, the advancements of Atlantis grew extremely fast, but people's hearts started to become corrupt from the desire of what it all brings, starting a festering of darkness, making a point about the corruption, greed, darkness, and everything from the 21st century, comparing it back to how it was then. Eventually, the people became monsters and chaos was consuming all there was. Darks had to then even take the life of his own wife over the corruption, but at one point, he has this connection with the fragment of the stone, seeing the bigger picture and visions of a giant beast within the earth. He claims that he is tasked now with saving paradise by eliminating humanity from the world through bringing forth the Great Leviathan. When Ironheart tried to stop him from this, Darts pushed back as he wanted to see only perfect humans left alive for the world to be the way it needs to be considered perfect. When everyone abandons him, including his father and daughter, he continues to fall deeper into the alignment of the Orichalcos. Ironheart ends up sealing a door that connects our world to the Duel Monsters world, and Darts had to wait for over 10,000 years after the battle that ended in a draw between him and his god against Ironheart and those fighting back to see what happens with humanity from this point on. Humans only got worse in his eyes, and he must purge them from the world for good this time. As the duel goes on, he brings forth another layer of the Seal of Orichalcos, but as Kaiba and Yugi take on these mirror tokens from Darts, they are revealed to be the souls of their friends and acquaintances, as they worry that their attacks and what they do may end up hurting or killing them. Kaiba won't let Yami's emotions get in the way of what's at stake with the duel, with the spirit of Yugi speaking to Yami, telling him to attack and that everything will be okay. Darts' life points only continue to rise and rise to astronomical numbers. Raphael eventually arrives at the scene as it's revealed to him that Darts was the one responsible for making his family crash and die, causing him to lose it, as this was Darts baiting him so that he can cast the seal and also take his soul. But Darts was at the center of everyone's trauma that caused them to come to him, revealing that he's been there all along. But back in the duel, he plays another level of his seals that rises the stakes and difficulty even higher. Kaiba ends up pulling his legendary dragon out to have it become Mirror Force Dragon, and takes out Darts' active monsters, but thanks to this, Darts gets to play some more trickery with his nearly invincible deck that will take Kaiba's life points down to 0, as Kaiba makes the sacrifice of using Wish of Final Effort to raise Yami's life points higher to keep him going, as his soul gets taken as well, resulting in the battle just being between Darts and Yami now. Darts and Yami get into a discussion about the Pharaoh being the reason behind his true actions for being here, and witnessing the nameless Pharaoh back in the day, being there at a point to witness all that had happened, seeing that he comes back in the modern day and views him as this repulsive king that will end humanity. This is kind of a precursor to what comes next in the next season of Yu-Gi-Oh! But as the duel comes to a close, Yugi brings together the 3 legendary knight representations of the legendary dragons and defeats Darts, opening a rift to the captured souls being fed to the Great Leviathan as he tells Darts to release them all. But the Leviathan breaks free through a dimensional portal, taking Darts and ending this battle for now, while the rest of the souls are let free. But the story may not be over just yet, as Atlantis has arisen from the depths, as they now have to head there and finish whatever challenge lies ahead. But before they go, Yugi sees his god cards and is able to get them back, and him, Joey, and Kaiba all head over to Atlantis. When they get there, they find Darts' soul to be powerful enough to bring forth the Leviathan on its own, and they now seem to be one and the same, as they all have to face this giant beast with all that they got. The gateway to the monster world is opened as monsters come pouring out to help in the fight, but in the end, the Leviathan still wins, defeating Yugi, Joey, and Kaiba. But with the Pharaoh's soul inside, he ends up working with all the other souls in there to summon the 3 Egyptian god cards to bring himself, Joey, and Kaiba back, defeating the giant Leviathan and freeing the rest of the trapped and doomed souls. As they all try to leave Atlantis before it falls apart, Yugi is stopped by Darts and the Leviathan once more, as Yami is being absorbed into the beast, telling Yugi to stay back as this is his fight. They have an emotional moment together as Yami faces the last bit of darkness inside of him, and through the power of friendship, we are really coming back full circle here, he is able to lock the Leviathan away and stops everything from continuing forward, sealing the curse of this all inside of him, but has found the true light within him, and what it means to be a true pharaoh. Darts is set free from the long control that the Orichalcos had on him, now being able to be at peace with Ironheart and Chris. Everyone is able to get out of there, and all of the souls have returned to the bodies that they once came from, waking up from what seemed to be like the end. Both Yugi and Yami are now washed up on the shore, getting visited by Dark Magician Girl and the legendary knights, as they are thankful for both worlds being saved. Once Yugi's friends find them, it's agreed that now it's time to truly uncover the secrets of the Pharaoh's past, as Yugi promises Yami that they are in this together and he will not face this alone. This is where season 4 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Comes to an end, and wow, what a pretty crazy season overall. I think this whole plot with the Orichalcos does get a little over the top, but it does make for some very entertaining moments nonetheless. From here, the series enters into its last season with this cast of characters, giving us a chance to fully deep dive the Pharaoh's past and answer some of the show's biggest questions. Along with that, that, there were 2 other movies that came out post the ending of Yugi's and his friend's story, so we will look into both of those as well. Make sure to tell me some of your favorite moments in Season 4 in the comments below, along with how many times I said Orichalcos in this video. Have fun with that. Before we get to start digging into the Pharaoh's past, there's another small arc labeled the KC Grand Championship. This arc is also not so loved, but there is still some good stuff here. Right now, all of the characters are still in the US, as this isn't long after the end of the previous season. They're all kind of stranded in the US, having no money to afford plane tickets back home, but Mokuba shows up offering a free ride back as long as they agree to take part in the KC Grand Prix, a tournament for the best duelists around to celebrate the opening of Kaiba Land. Yugi, Joey, and even Rebecca all sign up to take part in it. Meanwhile, some new villain named Siegfried gets alerted to the competition and plans something devious for it. Joey was hoping that Mai would be there for the tournament as well, but gets down in the dumps when Mokuba tells him that they haven't been able to reach her in regards to joining, even though they want her in it and have tried. When they arrive at Kaiba Land, they see these new battle terminals that have data from a bunch of different duelists in them to offer a real challenge for those who want to face off in a game against a computer. But as everything is getting set up for the tournament, Siegfried hacks into the systems and locks everyone inside of the battle area, as Kaiba is pretty pissed about this and is gonna go after whoever is behind it. But Yugi faces the challenge of dueling the computer to free everyone, so no biggie. The next day, the tournament is about to begin with 16 duelists entering in, and the winner of this will go and face off against Yugi, as he is labeled the Duel King, or King of Duels, or Dude Who Be Duelin' Dopely. Joey is up for one of the first duels against a mysterious masked man whose name looks hard to pronounce, but his first name and his last name are just spelled backwards, as it would correctly spell Grandpa Moto. I mean, it looks just like Yugi's grandpa, but no one could tell. Joey is determined to see the duelist's true identity. I mean, come on, Joey, you're smarter than this, I hope.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns!
And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
They start their duel as Yugi is excited to see how this match will go, as he kind of figured out and was informed by Professor Hawkins that this is his grandpa joining in to get back in the game after growing bored of just working at the shop. As their duel goes on, the results of another duel between the characters of Leon and Richard has come to the result of Leon winning, as we see Joey and Yugi's grandpa still going at it, but in the end, Joey just barely scrapes by with a win here. Next up, Rebecca gets to duel some more as she now goes up against Vivian Wong, and despite a solid game from Vivian, Rebecca ends up winning, while another match between the characters of Paul and Shane happens, and the winner turns out to be Paul. Now we get to see Siegfried duel against someone, who would have been Fortune Salim, but earlier Rex and Weevil are back, and they end up taking him out and disguising themselves as him, but not for long, as they trip and fall, exposing who they are, and get questioned by Mokuba about what happened to the real duelist, and Siegfried allows them to still battle against them, even if they aren't really registered in the tournament, and he gets the win regardless. He's just a showman. In like one turn flat, Siegfried destroys both of them instantly, as this display of power worries the others about how powerful this character is. Now that it gets down to 8 people, there will be 4 duels. Ethan versus Leon, Rebecca versus Abe the Monkey Boy, Paul versus Balfrey, and Joey versus Siegfried, as they will all happen at once. While Joey puts up one heck of a fight against Siegfried, and at least not losing on turn 1, Joey ultimately loses the duel, with Balfrey, Rebecca, and Leon winning theirs. As we get into the next set of duels for the semifinals, it's Siegfried facing Balfrey, while Rebecca faces Leon. As Rebecca's duel still goes on, Siegfried ends up winning his and moving on to the finals. Rebecca, however, ends up losing the duel, sending Leon to the finals to face off against Siegfried. Outside of this, Yugi gets himself in a weird situation where Vivian offers him a friendly non-competition duel, where if Yugi wins, she'll help Yugi's grandpa's back. But if she wins, then Yugi has to go on a date with her? No time for love though, as Yugi defeats her pretty easily. But now it's time for the final duel, with the winner getting to face Yugi. But Kaiba shows up to the arena and tried to disqualify Siegfried for entering with a slightly false name. But to prove himself, Kaiba challenges him to a duel. Sorry Leon, guess you're not so important right now for whatever reason. I'm sure you will be, because spoiler alert, you are the younger brother of Siegfried. Kaiba and Siegfried go at it in a duel, and thanks to his trusty combos, with his blue eyes white dragons, Kaiba is able to eventually defeat Siegfried. Siegfried still has some sinister plans afoot based on losing, as he has a secret field spell card that seems like it could be menacing. For the final show, it's Leon's turn to duel, going up against Yugi for technically winning the tournament. This battle will be broadcast all around the world, and Leon was given the secret field spell card from his brother before going out to duel. Mai even ends up looking up at a screen broadcasting it from wherever she is gone. And during the duel with Yugi, something seems a bit off with Leon based on who he is been throughout the tournament up until this part. Siegfried comes to spoil the fun about his plans being executed as Leon is forced to do whatever he is told, as this is part of an obligation to his brother. The plan is to grow the von Schroeder's namesake, and winning Kaiba's little competition is believed by Siegfried to help sending investments flying through the roof for Schroeder Inc. You gotta love these corporate business play duels, am I right? As the battle goes on and we learn about Leon's traumatic past of loving duel monsters as his form of escapism and how fairy-type cards came into existence thanks to him reaching out to Pegasus, we get more insight on the family dynamic. But in the duel, the secret card is revealed as Golden Castle Stromberg, a one-of-a-kind special printed card that was given to the winner of a tournament. As Siegfried had snuck this non-tournament legal card into the tournament when the systems were hacked to recognize this card as fair play, Leon is being forced to use this and is genuinely conflicted, as he loves duel monsters, and playing this way doesn't feel right to do. Once he gets enough courage to stand up to his brother, he claims to no longer want to play this way, using Mystical Space Tycoon to take out the field spell card, only to see that it couldn't be destroyed. With the card acting like a virus that can be activated like a switch, it is set to target every program Kaiba has, and Siegfried claims Kaiba is too late to do anything about it. Nothing can stop it at this point. Even if Leon were to surrender and end the duel, the only way to stop it is for it to be destroyed. Yugi speaks some truth to Leon about the true glory of a duelist and what that means, leading them to figure out a way together to carry on and destroy this card. Yugi finds an eventual exploit of the card that results in it being destroyed, as Kaiba now works to secure the rest of his systems from the virus. With Yugi down to one card left though, Leon still tries to surrender for how unfair the match was, but Yugi convinces him to still play till the end with no worry of the other card anymore, as they now continue, with Yugi still taking the overall win in the end, comforting him afterwards and still calling him a true duelist. Siegfried was able to get a bunch of files scrubbed from Kaiba's database, but Kaiba treats this as no big deal, as Siegfried is now all down in the dumps over his plans not working in the end, as Leon offers up all of his advice that he can to his brother to maybe help make him a better person. And the day is saved, or at least the Kaiba Corporation is. Now Yugi and friends can all head back home after this stressful and really long trip to the US, thus bringing us to the end of the first arc for Season 5 of Yu-Gi-Oh! So funny enough, there is a special mini arc that comes about after this, and before we move on to the big finale arc. I know, it feels like we keep getting Pharaoh blocked here, but this was a United States made and produced little series that came out the following year after Season 5 came to an end, and is technically meant to be placed in between these two arcs that actually make up Season 5. It's called Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters, and no, it's not really related to the Capsule Monsters game that we see played in the manga. You can thank 4Kids for this, and it for sure is weird and highly debated if it's even good or not by the fans. So I guess that's for you to decide how you feel about it. So let's go over this small arc for a moment before we get into the big finale arc.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns!
And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
As this starts, Yugi is having nightmares about the Pharaoh being taken by some monster, and that something will become more clear if he plays the game. Waking up from the most recent nightmare, he notices the Millennium Puzzle is glowing, making him more curious to what this is all about. Life just isn't simple for little old Yugimoto. Yugi spends the next day wondering where his grandpa is, as he was supposed to be back from some expedition he went on, but hadn't returned when he was supposed to, worrying Yugi of course. But much like when Dungeon Dice Monsters was hitting the scene, there's another new game on the block, a board game called Capsule Monsters that's in conjunction with Duel Monsters. Yugi is already familiar with the rules, as he is the king of games, but Joey announces a trip that he won that he is going to go on and has 3 extra tickets for his friends to come along. One for Yugi, one for Taya, and one for Tristan. So they all say yes and plan on going along with him. Now on their plane and arriving closer to where they were heading, the plane's engines end up stopping and the plane crashes into a random forest. Luckily, it wasn't any worse than it was, as everyone seems to be okay, getting off the plane and finding a man named Dr. Brisbane, a colleague of Yugi's grandpa who tells Yugi that his grandpa had gone missing on their expedition after Yugi recognized the bandana this guy had with him. Yami is naturally skeptical about this as everything seems too coincidental when linking it all together. Dr. Brisbane brings them to where Yugi's grandpa was last seen, that being a pyramid, but not just any pyramid. This one happens to be the Pyramid of Alexander the Great, containing some ancient game within it. Making their way past all the dangers within that are meant to keep people out as they end up finding a massive room with the floor resembling a giant map with different zones, containing different looking lands. Yugi takes a second to understand what they're looking at, but Joey disappears into thin air when he was trying to go check this out, as they believe the same thing must have happened to Yugi's grandpa, so they all follow suit and do the same thing while the doctor stays behind for now. Where the group had went now looks like another forest, as Joey is already gone by the time the rest of the group shows up. But not long into taking everything in, giant bugs start attacking them, sending the three of them in different directions, splitting them up as Yugi has to deal with the large praying mantis as he touches one of these egg-like rocks that summons the Celtic Guardian, as it now defends them from the praying mantis. Taya and Tristan lose the cockroaches that were chasing them in a cave that then leads them to a beach, as other monsters are now with them as well. We get to see what happened to Joey as he is up on top of a mountain looking into the woods to locate the others, hearing Yugi in the distance, but Joey is picked up by another creature and taken away. The Celtic Guardian then gets sucked into this strange device on their arm after saying that he will serve them, and then turns into a small capsule as Yugi truly sees that this is in fact some large real version of the Capsule Monsters game. They then acknowledge the weird device that's on their arm that acts as a launcher to summon the monsters they get as capsules. When they test this against some of the enemies, the Celtic Guardian comes out, but when it gets hurt, they end up feeling the same pain. This isn't just a silly little real-life version of Capsule Monsters. This is somehow a shadow game with real consequences. But in knowing this, Yugi starts learning how to navigate and play by whatever rules there are. Joey's adventure gets a little bit slapstick, but eventually he accidentally releases Baby Dragon, who aids him in getting away from his situation and saves him. For Tristan and Taya, figuring out what these non-hostile monsters are doing around them, they feel that these must be the monsters that they released from some of those egg rocks without knowing it. And then when they are attacked on the beach, both their creatures, Thunder Kid and Happy Lover, step in to help out. Joey ends up finding a chest that unlocks a map to the area, or maybe a treasure map, as Joey would like that. But then Taya remembers what Yugi taught her earlier about capsule monsters and starts using tactics to heal their creatures and take out the monster that attacked them. But surprise, it was just evolving into a more powerful beast, sending them into a typhoon, but Yugi's grandpa shows up, saving them with Summoned Skull, which from a distance catches Yugi's attention to head to that direction, and eventually catches up with them, excited to actually see his grandpa alive and well, as they still wonder where Joey is at and worry about him. But he's fine. He makes it to their campfire, and the gang end up having to make a getaway from some more creatures that come after them. As time goes on, they all find it harder to survive out in this land, not really having food or a shelter. Times are tough here. Joey and Tristan treat this whole adventure like an RPG, where every time they do something remotely aiding in their survival, they do a little victory dance. Too much of it, maybe. Later on, they end up finding some temple at the center of a lake, getting inside of it and taking refuge there for now, but then seeing a teapot. But really, it was just a magical genie lamp, bringing out Lajin, the mystical genie of the lamp. Celtic Guardian comes out to fight it, but then water comes rushing through the door, and then freezing, turning Taya and Yugi's grandpa into popsicles, as they are attacked by another monster, and they try and pit both monsters against each other, and once they do, they end up taking each other out, with the people popsicles, or the piopicles, are now freed from the frozen state. And there's never a dull moment here, as then a tablet with Egyptian writing on it shows up, as Yugi's grandpa starts translating it, giving them a riddle of what to do to escape from this place. They take a look at Joey's map to see where their journey is going to take them given the text that was translated, finding where this fortress is, but it's a trek and a half away. Tristan, though, comes in clutch, finding a secret passageway underneath the floor, and everyone heads through it. The adventures carry on, more monsters are captured, and more monsters are fought, as they get to the fortress only for some walls to appear, representing 4 types of spirits: rock, aqua, wind, and fire, now being trapped and trying to get out through a door by mimicking the stances of the statues around them, letting Yugi go through to the fortress by himself as he falls into a pit, but Yami comes through to save them. Inside, Yugi finds a new capsule, getting him the Dark Magician. How convenient. The Dark Magician helps saves the others from the statues that had come to life outside, as the Summoned Skull ends up defeated from the battle. Inside the fortress is a coffin that eventually turns into a doorway, showcasing some gold armor along with more riddles to follow, with Yugi getting the armor whether or not he wanted it. The riddles talk about 5 trials that will test Yugi's heart as they decide to continue on if it leads them home, as they must face these trials, whatever they are. Eventually, they arrive at a village as they are given a pendant, and some details about the first trial, as they all come face to face with a bunch of sandworms like it's Dune or something, as Yugi is the only one not turned to stone from the encounter trying to deal with all of them. And as he tries to push forward to this mysterious voice controlling all of this, he at one point fuses with the Dark Magician to have the strength to make it through, finding the voice and telling it to zip it, clearing the first trial and returning returning his friends from their stone state. Yami and Yugi switch who is in control based on how much of a toll is taken on them, working this way to not overexert themselves. A doorway appears for them to exit through as now they are in the clouds on an island, with the next trial's task given to them as they now must break an apparent unbreakable stone when it appears for a limited time once every day. While Yugi is drained of energy thanks to the armor itself, Joey, Tristan, and his grandpa try to go out and help and take care of the task, only knowing half of what to do as Yugi realizes this when he has some energy and goes after them, thinking that they can be in grave danger. The others get caught in part 2 of the trial, getting greeted by a Skull Guardian that attacks them as Yugi once again, combined with the Dark Magician, swoops in and defeats the monster, though he spares its life as showing mercy was part of the trial. A masked man that they saw before comes by to tell Yugi and the others congratulations, as the second trial is now passed. The man explains that completing the trials will grant Yugi the power to be the ruler of the world if proven to be the one true king. There are others after it as well, those with evil intentions, giving the Pharaoh a reason to still go after it regardless if he even wants to be crowned that and have that power. If they end up failing this, they would be trapped here until the next trial challenger arrives. They now get some items from a chest that grants them wings so they can fly through the next doorway, heading straight to a volcano. Meanwhile, on the outside of the game, Dr. Brisbane is not a good guy, enjoying the thought of soon he might just have the power to rule the world. Yeah, he for sure was the bad guy from the jump. Pretty easy to tell. At one point in this area, Joey gets separated from the group, but he does return not long later, and now he's all evil and fused with the Red Eyes Black Dragon, fighting Yugi in his Dark Magician form, but Joey snaps out of it, realizing that this has only happened after he fused with the Red Eyes. In his leg, though, is the Blade of Chaos, and he then removes it, technically clearing the third trial, and fully gains the bond with Red Eyes, getting themselves the next doorway. Now they are back in a forest setting, seeing an endless sea of trees as they must find a golden apple as an offering. This turns out to be a lot more stressful than just going apple picking, as they fight monsters, deal with mazes, and eventually having to eat apples so that Yugi can evolve his Dark Magician into the Magician of Black Chaos, helping them deal with everything further and bringing the correct apple to an altar, opening the next doorway that brings them right where they started when they came all together at the campfire. The masked man shows up again and reveals himself to in fact be Alexander the Great, in the flesh, and talks about having the Millennium Ring at one point in his life and how through it he was able to conquer so much of the world until the evil within it caused a split personality to break free as he faced Shadi in tests to see if he was worthy or not, being the first person to face these trials, conquering them, but the final door would still not open, making the evil spirit inside of him angry and more of a ruthless, destructive tyrant, as then the pyramid split his soul in two, sealing away the dark side of his soul into the pyramid, and his good side now being meant to stay here as a guide for those who come into the game in the future. He then talks about the fifth trial and what to expect, having to face 5 elemental dragons that are labeled as the Fiendish Five, that reign terror over the land. As they get ready for the battle, they find a girl getting ready to sacrifice herself in the name of the dragon god, to have that god help keep the other dragons away from hurting their village anymore. They stop her from doing so and claim that they will slay the dragons, as each of them take on a dragon individually, but in the end, our group here is defeated. As they rest from this, Yugi learns of a special sword that can slay the dragons when they all come together to the village, tricking them to all come right towards the village, and once they're there, he then slays all of them. But then phase 2 kicks in, as all of the dragons then transform into 5-headed dragon. The girl prays for salvation from her god, setting free the Blue Eyes White Dragon as Yugi fuses with it to then defeat the 5-headed dragon to complete the final trial. As they get ready to leave, and there's suspicions about of where the evil Alexander the Great may be, the good Alexander the Great has a chance to finally exit the game now through the use of Yugi's grandpa's body. When they leave the game, they run into the doctor, unaware of the evil person he truly is, and seems to be looking for something they may have found, and grandpa hands him the trial pendant, just trying to see if the evil Alexander is there, and it was, as the evil side of Alexander within the doctor tries to take it, giving the good Alexander within grandpa a chance to jump over into the doctor's body as well to fight off the evil side, but it was all bait as the evil side overpowers the good Alexander to get stronger, getting the pendant and running towards a door not opened in thousands of years as the door opened up and everyone is now in an alternate dimension. Shadi appears once more and waits to see who will win in this struggle to earn the promised power of the challenge. Shadi allows Alexander, even though he's evil right now, a fair shake at this since he did complete the challenges at one point before, as it would now be a showdown between our heroes and Alexander through a capsule monster battle. Alexander fuses with Reshiv the Dark Being and summons 7-armed Fiend, the creature from Yugi's recurring nightmares. The Pharaoh ends up feeling disgusted at how Alexander treats his followers, drawing more connection to the growth the Pharaoh has with his lack of memory, powering up through his friend's dragons now to form the armor of unity to defeat Alexander, getting rid of his evil side as the good Alexander is free, as he lets the Pharaoh know that he thought the Pharaoh's rule of Egypt was great and it inspired him to be a Pharaoh as well. Chadi appears to now grant the Pharaoh the power he has earned, but he declines it, leaving feeling like Yami's decision was smart, and says some more philosophical sounding things as the pyramid is now breaking down with everyone getting out just fine, and they make it back to their pilots, back where they crashed, to see that the rescue plane is there and ready to take them back home. And that's it for this small, kinda weird, sometimes fun, definitely history-changing arc. Yeah, so this series was basically what if Yu-Gi-Oh! Was kinda like Pokemon in a way. Like, in a way. That's not necessarily a bad thing. There were some pretty cool ideas here, but from watching it, you can see that 4Kids was responsible for whatever this random added-on extra arc was.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns!
And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Now that that's all out of the way and said and done, it's time to finally head back to the past. We open up this arc with Bakura being haunted by a voice as he runs scared from whatever it is. He ends up going inside of a church where all of the candles are lit up mysteriously, with the voice catching up and telling him he has a role to step into, as you can hear the voice be that of Yami Bakura, going beyond something just tethered to the Millennium Ring. But there's another voice speaking in unison, as they explain further about Yugi getting all of the Millennium items sooner or later. But in order to unlock the door of the Realm of the Dead, an 8th key is needed, going off of Merrick's mention of it to them during the Battle City arc, as to get the final piece of the puzzle, they believe it to be within the Pharaoh's memories. The voices then take control of Bakura. From here, we cut back to a younger version of Yugi's grandpa, Solomon, as he is in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, the burial grounds for where the pharaohs lie. For the nameless pharaoh's tomb, no one has really explored it except for one villager who is stuck repeating the same phrase of the dark game. The journey through the tomb is not easy, facing trials within the different rooms, as when they get to a bridge, he is betrayed by his guides, sending him falling off the side, only to be saved by the spirit of the pharaoh, helping him continue to find the Millennium Puzzle. Something of note is that the pharaoh refers to him as Shimon, recognizing the similar look Solomon has to someone from the past that he mistakes him for. This was all being told by Yugi's grandpa to Yugi before his big trip to Egypt in the morning to finally focus on helping the pharaoh with his memories. But in the middle of the night, Weevil and Rex are back and break into his room, stealing his god cards and the Millennium items that he has. But not long into their getaway, the Millennium Ring activates, flying over to Yami Bakura, knocking them out as Yugi arrives to deal with Bakura. He lets Yugi get all of his stuff back aside from the ring and maybe something else, as Yugi realizes that Yami Bakura is back. For now, they both hold back a bit of information about what lies next, with all of the Millennium items being all assembled in one place, as Bakura claims he will help him, and with Yami Yugi coming out now to try and know Bakura's true intentions. Yami Bakura explains that he and the pharaoh are not so different, both being sealed souls and items for 5,000 years. He claims to not know what his own intentions are, hoping that the pharaoh's memories can be the gateway to paint that picture more vividly, going further to claim that the pharaoh started the ultimate dark game in general, telling him they should settle this in the world of memories, and once they open the door to go there, the game will fully start. Parting ways to prepare for this after Yami agrees to do this. Bakura heads over to see Kaiba at work and attacks Mokuba to get Kaiba out to face him in a duel. As the duel goes on for a while and Bakura's just testing the cards that he has, the next day is already starting, as Bakura claims that he needs to go, but not before handing Kaiba the Millennium Eye, telling Kaiba that if he wants to learn more about his bond with the Blue Eyes White Dragon, just giving him a little bit of temptation as he leaves. Yugi is ready to leave, but his friends wouldn't let him go on his own, as they board the flight as well. They now arrive in Cairo, meeting up with Merrick, Odion, and Ishizu, as they head to the Tomb of Lost Memories, where Yugi holds up his Egyptian god cards to the tablet as it pulls the spirit of the pharaoh into the past, while Bakura walks in with Yami Bakura's soul joining in, as they now both arrive in the world of memories, as the pharaoh is getting brought to his coronation ceremony, with his visor Shimon escorting him along the way. The pharaoh then gets brought to a meeting with his royal court, with the members, known as the Sacred Guardians, each hold a Millennium item. At one point, an attempt on the pharaoh's life happens when someone breaks in to go after him, getting caught and put on a Millennium trial, as the Sacred Guardians extract an evil monster from the intruder's heart and seal it it away in a stone tablet as the intruder is then set free. Bakura ends up going into who he was in the past, Thief King Bakura. Shadi appears to those waiting in modern day to explain what the Pharaoh may be facing in the past, re-experiencing their own history and playing the ultimate game. Speaking of that, back in the past, Bakura shows up in the area, ready to start off the game. Shadi takes Yugi and his friends into the Millennium Puzzle as he tries to lead them to the Pharaoh's mind as the Sacred Guardians are preparing a sealed tablet with Bakura storming the premises. The Millennium Key is used to reveal the Ka or spirit monster within Bakura, but the monster is too powerful for the size of the tablet that they have, immediately freeing itself. We then see modern day Kaiba pondering over the eye for a while before he says screw it and heads to Egypt himself. The Guardians start activating this ancient dual disc-like technology that binds the wearer's Ba or spirit energy to some Ka for their stone tablets to have control over them. As Bakura is running through the place left and right, the Pharaoh eventually steps in and summons Obelisk the Tormentor, but Bakura's Diabound repels the attacks as it results in a draw between the monsters. Bakura grabs his horse and heads out of the area for now. In the sky though is an inverted pyramid as the Pharaoh is the only one who can truly see it, or so we think, as he's cautious of what this really means. Meanwhile, we get to meet other characters like Mana, who is a childhood friend of the Pharaoh as Bakura plans his next attack, wanting to get the Millennium items but do so at a reasonable pace, and not all at once. We get a flashback to the Pharaoh's past with Mahad, one of the Sacred Guardians and a friend of the Pharaoh since they were kids, and when growing up, seeing Mahad always looking out for him as the Pharaoh never understood the whole class system, wanting a society without a class system. For now, in the modern day of the past time of 5,000 years ago, Mahad vows to take down Bakura as later on the two of them come face to face alone. As their battle goes on, the Pharaoh and Mana realize something is wrong with Mahad, trying to figure out what is happening, and during the battle we get to see the creation of the Dark Magician, as Mahad gives his spirit to the Illusion Magician, creating the Dark Magician as he himself is slain by Bakura, as Bakura now gets the Millennium Ring back. But the Dark Magician still defeats Diabound, and then the Dark Magician turns into a stone tablet with Mahad's spirit infused in it. Yugi and friends, with the help of Shadi, have finally found the correct passage to the memory world, as they're now searching for the Pharaoh. They're also practically invisible within this world, as technically none of them existed in this time. We get to spend time seeing the operations and responsibilities of the others, like Seto, not the future Seto Kaiba, but the Seto priest from the past that he does have some relation to, having to make tough calls under the rule that he has, thinking he is doing what is right for the sake of keeping the land safe, while some others may disagree with his actions, but it seems like in his heart that he truly does want to do good. As Bakura harms another person close to the Pharaoh, and the Sacred Guardians, this time being Seto's father, who is also the Pharaoh's uncle, causes the Pharaoh to head out after Bakura, sending out Slifer the Sky Dragon to help in the situation. But in the meantime, we also have a deeper dive into the creation of the Millennium items, as they were created under the sacrifice of souls to even be forged. As Seto's dad lies awake in wounded pain, his heart had been corrupted by Bakura, and sees the Pharaoh is not fit for the job, wanting Seto to become the one that sits on the throne. With the Pharaoh still after Bakura, Bakura ends up causing more chaos than he does trying to even combat the Pharaoh, as Slifer picks up Diabound and carries the beast high into the skies until Bakura activates Dissimulation in Walls to hide itself for a sneak attack on Slifer. Bakura threatens the Pharaoh to give up the puzzle or watch his precious city burn, as the fight goes sideways for the Pharaoh, as we see back with the stone tablets that Slifer's stone is getting messed with, harming it for the actual battle as Slifer gets eventually taken out, as then the Pharaoh faints from the life energy drained from him, and when he comes to, Yugi and his friends are there, and he can actually see them like he can see the pyramid in the sky. They are able to transfer energy into the Pharaoh to get him back to feeling better, as he gets back on his horse and brings out the Winged Dragon of Ra, as Seto joins in and has Duos out to help protect Ra, as the Pharaoh has Ra turn into the Egyptian god Phoenix and take out Bakura's monster. But Bakura pulls a Prince of Persia here, using an item called the Sands of Time to reverse the events of what just happened, right back to when Slifer was just destroyed, and transporting Yugi and the others further away so they won't recreate what just happened, having the Pharaoh fall into a worse situation now as Bakura takes the Millennium Puzzle. In the background of this, Seto's father has started his plans for his son to take the seat of the throne, showing him a massive army of Ka, and along with this, he is forcing a girl named Kasara to fight others held captive to try and bring forth the spirit beast of the Blue Eyes White Dragon that she holds. Seto takes his role very seriously and still believes that the Pharaoh is alive out there, even if they haven't found them yet, and he also has a deep connection with this girl. Yugi and the others are also out there looking for where the Pharaoh went, running into Mana who can see them, and together they find the Pharaoh resting in a cave with bad injuries from what had happened. Mana and Yugi have a whole, hey, you look like the Dark Magician girl, oh no way, you look like the Pharaoh exchange with their time together together this episode. Once the Pharaoh is good and back in the battle here, he heads after Bakura, as now he has the spirit of Mahad within the Dark Magician that he uses, as Mana comes in with her spirit monster being the Dark Magician girl. Go figure. As the two magicians work together to take out Bakura's beast. The other guardians show up to help out as well, but the beast has grown too powerful thanks to the dead spirits from the city where the Millennium items were made, being absorbed into the beast. Bakura also continues to gain more Millennium items, while Seto's father does his bidding for him back where the stone tablets are, as his beast's tablet was going to be destroyed to kill the beast, but Seto's father stops this, taking out the guardian and grabbing the Millennium Key. With no other options with the defeat being too great, the Pharaoh then starts sacrificing his life so that the souls would take him, as they begin dragging him into the Shadow Realm. But his father's soul, the King Pharaoh's soul, saves him from this and offers his life instead, and Bakura's beast is weakened and destroyed. Yami Bakura leaves the body of his ancient self as it becomes useless and then turns to sand. Yugi and the others figure out that to help out and learn more, they must focus on doing something important, like finding out the Pharaoh's real name, all while someone in the group, aka Tristan, has his mind taken from Yami Bakura, as he tries to blend in without suspicion in order to find the 8th missing key and possible other information that is needed for Yami Bakura's own plans. We eventually cut to a meeting of Yami Yugi and Yami Bakura sitting across from one another at a table that has a field on it that represents ancient Egypt, almost like a meeting of the minds here, discussing about this being the biggest shadow game here, explaining that the past can very much be affected here to change anything if the Pharaoh doesn't win the game overall. The evil demonic force of Zork is out there and looming, as the preparations for his summoning are happening, and Zork has the power to destroy everyone in the past. And as things now look dire, Zork is now brought forth partially, and Seto's father is granted a special wish for starting the summoning, wishing that his son would become the Pharaoh, as Zork then turns the father into the Great Shadow Magus, making him a powerful being as well. Yami Bakura warns Yami Yugi that the Hourglass tokens are running out by the second, but Kaiba now arrives in Egypt, getting brought to the tablet as Yami Bakura enacts his other setup, pulling Kaiba into the Shadow Game as it can feed off of his energy to resurrect Thief King Bakura. A character named Barbosa leads Yugi and the others to the Valley of the Kings to learn the real name of the Pharaoh, while the Thief King version of Bakura ends up getting all of the Millennium items, using them to bring back his beast in a more powerful than ever state. As things get more heated and time is ticking, the Pharaoh is forced to face off against Seto, after his mind was corrupted by his father, as the battle between the Pharaoh's Dark Magician and Seto's now Blue Eyes White Dragon he acquired after Kasara's life was taken protecting him from his dad, and has her soul now infused with the Blue Eyes, starts to take place. Eventually in this battle, the Blue Eyes with the soul of Kasara ends up destroying the control over Seto, sending his father to the Shadow Realm. As Yugi and the others get to where they will learn the Pharaoh's real name, Yami Bakura takes over Tristan fully to trap them in the tomb and not let them leave, as time has run out for the birth of Zork. Thief King Bakura and his beast are sacrificed for this and go into the Millennium Stone, as Zork now fully emerges, and all of this energy shatters the Millennium Stone, scattering the Millennium items across the land. The Pharaoh and the priest ride back heading towards the palace so they can figure out how to stop Zork, as the Guardians protect them with their lives. And as all of this is affecting the past, it's also being affected in the real world as well with natural disasters, as this power is beyond comprehension. All Yami Bakura needs is the Pharaoh's real name to bring forth Zork fully in the real world, as Yami Bakura, as Tristan, duels Yugi to see who has the freedom to leave with the name of the Pharaoh to do what they need to do for their goals of either saving the world or ending it. As the others in Memory World try holding off Zork, even seeing Exodia being summoned to help out as well, and not being strong enough, it's a total massacre. Later on, all of the Millennium items are fully brought to the Pharaoh as he faces down Zork, summoning the Egyptian god cards to combat the beast, but even then, they weren't enough. Yugi ends up defeating Yami Bakura and is able to leave to get to the Pharaoh, as Seto in the past turns to stone after him and his Blue Eyes help as best as they could. The modern day Kaiba gets into the game by using his Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, as the power of the Blue Eyes and Zork are pretty much matched, but explosive enough to open a rift between the memory world and the real one. Pharaoh fuses himself with the Blackluster Soldier and even then, further combines with the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon to become Dragon Master Knight, but ultimately loses, making it seem like the Pharaoh was killed off. Yugi and the others show up now to try and help, but the one thing that could, the Pharaoh's name, is useless to them as they can't read the ancient text to say it. They eventually get the text to the Pharaoh, who is still alive and reads his name as Atem, instantly giving him a resurgence of divine power, bringing the god cards back to fuse them together to make the Creator of Light with infinite attack and defense, and in one shot, Zork is defeated, and this time for good. In the end, Atem gives the priest Seto, who is now revived, the Millennium Items, giving him the title of the actual Pharaoh as Atem dissipates, with Seto claiming to be a just ruler, as they all leave Memory World for now. The last bit of episodes here are technically under their own small arc called the Final Duel, as everyone returns back to the present day. At this point, Atem has made the decision to lock the Millennium Items away, and with that, himself. But the only way for this to happen as a rite of passage ceremony that consists of someone having to beat him in a duel. Yugi gets the right to do this for the bond that he and Atem have shared throughout the series. They spend their nights preparing the best decks possible as they emotionally build up to the day they both knew would eventually come. After placing all of the items back in the correct slots in the Millennium Stone, Atem and Yugi become two separate entities, with the duel deciding the fate of what happened. Atem doesn't go easy on Yugi in the duel though, using the full force of all three god cards to really have Yugi go through the ringer to show how much skills he truly has. Is he the king of games without the help of the Pharaoh? It's time to find out. Even when backed into a corner, Yugi is able to successfully counter the god cards, and even take each one of them out through pure defense and counter strategies. Atem counted on this though, knowing Yugi would be good enough to pull off something like that, as they keep going on from there, and bring us to a point where Atem brings out the one and only Dark Magician, and not much longer summons Dark Magician Girl, but Yugi forces him to sacrifice them to protect his life points thanks to the card of Sanctuary, and his Silent Magician just getting more powerful. Atem tries to use Monster Reborn to bring back Slifer the Sky Dragon, but Yugi's gold sarcophagus had the Monster Reborn card sealed away there, meaning that neither Monster Reborn could be used. Without any defenses left, Atem is wide open as Yugi defeats him in the duel, but falls to his knees in sadness over this being the last time he will ever see him again. The two share an emotional moment, and in the end, Atem is set free to go into the afterlife, leaving in the coolest way possible. The Millennium Stone then crumbles, as all of the items fall deep within a pit, burying them, thus ending the story of Generation 1 of Yu-Gi-Oh!, completing all 5 seasons of what the characters have gone through and accomplished, leading up to so many reveals and crazy moments, as now the Pharaoh Atem is gone and Yugi is going forward to live his life and continue his story. But there is a little bit more.
There's more duels and more action when Yu-Gi-Oh! Returns!
And now, back to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Now, just because the series itself is over, it doesn't mean that this is the end of Yugi and his friends' stories. In fact, there are 2 movies that happen way later on past the ending of Season 5 that give us some more story. One is a little one, and one is a lot. So let's jump into our first movie here, Yu-Gi-Oh! Bonds Beyond Time. Oh wait, sorry, Yu-Gi-Oh! 3D Bonds Beyond Time. I never saw it in 3D, but that was released during the big 3D film craze at the start of the 2010s. This one was a celebration for the series as it tried to bring together the 3 generations of main protagonists, OG Yugi, Jaden, and Yusei, from the original series, the GX series, and the 5D series respectively. The story starts off in some apocalyptic future as humans are going extinct. We meet a character named Paradox, not to be confused with the brothers Para and Dox from Duelist Kingdom, as he wants to head back in time to save his timeline by killing the creator of Duel Monsters, Pegasus. We first see that Paradox invades the timeline of Yusei, bringing him into the mix of the story along with hopping to Jaden's timeline next, as these 2 protagonists now team up as they see the events of the past have been changed, erasing their cards from history. Together, they head back even further in time, entering Yugi's timeline where it takes place roughly between the end of Battle City, but before the events of Season 4, as to not undo the continuity from the end of Season 5 of Yugi's original generation. At this time, Pegasus is seemingly throwing a random tournament that ends up getting crashed by the appearance of Duel Monsters that Paradox had stolen from the others' timelines, as they then attack, basically killing everyone there, aside from Yugi, but one of them being Yugi's grandpa. As Yugi cries over this, he notices the villain Paradox finding amusement in what just happened, as Crimson Dragon appears from a rift that then gets Yugi and brings him back an hour earlier in time, as both Yusei and Jaden explain to him what is going on, getting Yugi on board to fight with them to stop Paradox. Once they get to him and confront him, they get into a 3-on-1 battle that has a time limit of 20 minutes, as that's when Pegasus is scheduled to arrive and Paradox can enact his plan. With the others getting ready for it, Yugi tells Yami that this will be their toughest duel yet. My guy, no it won't. Together, all 3 of them activate their duel discs and begin the duel. That's just a cool scene. As this goes on, the 3 of them have to work together as a group of people that really know nothing about each other, and through this battle we see them develop some bonds with one another, which makes the title of the movie make sense. We see some established monsters from the 3 of them, and of course in the end they end up defeating Paradox in the duel, and he's just never seen again. Collectively, they killed a guy. Now that the day is saved, Pegasus finally finally arrive safe and sound at the event, and the three of them say their goodbyes, all hoping to have individual duels with one another at some point. The others return to their future timelines as Yusei ends the movie, saying that the actual magic that comes from duel monsters is the bonds that people make while playing. Okay, while that's a bit cheesy, that sentiment is pretty true for those who actually play the card game in real life. The one thing that I never liked about this film in particular is that the fact it really only brings the three together as a novelty that wraps things up with a pretty lackluster and not too exciting battle. Yugi is really just there to be there because he's a protagonist, as this felt like they were trying to focus on propping up 5Ds more than anything, which to be fair, makes sense for when this came out, but it didn't feel like a celebration, but more so fanfare for the sake of it. Sure, I like fan service here and there, I'm a fan, service me, but I felt that it lacked a lot of purpose after just getting the three of them together. Was it cool to see? Yeah. Was it incredible? I wouldn't say so, but that's just me. You tell me how you feel. Okay, let's talk about the final movie now. Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Side of Dimension, aka the epilogue to Yugi and his friend's story that takes place after the events of Season 5, and life has gone on with our group of friends. After the Pharaoh's spirit has gone away, they all go about their normal lives, going to school and spend time discussing what their futures hold for them. Taya gets accepted into a program overseas for her to follow suit in being a professional dancer. Tristan has a job waiting for him at his father's factory, and he isn't really looking forward to it all that much. Joey wants to stay focused on duel monsters and become a true professional duelist, and Yugi holds his dream of staying at home and helping his grandpa run the game shop while spending extra time developing his own games. It's just some wholesome friend stuff as they support one another and seek to always be friends no matter what. As school continues, a new student is there as they feel some familiarity towards him, but they aren't too sure. His name is Agami. After school, we see that Yugi still thinks about the Pharaoh, reminding us of what happened at the end of the series. Joey ends up seeing Agami getting messed with by some others as they leave for now but threaten Agami to show up to a construction site later, or else, as Agami then thanks them for the help in getting those guys to leave. Later on, he still goes out to meet those who picked on him, as when he shows up, they continue to torment him. But he pulls out his quantum cube that ends up showing some glowing-eyed kids around the group as Agami showcases a symbol on his head as the bullies all start to glow. Cutting away from this, we suddenly see Yami Yugi getting engaged in a duel with Kaiba as he ends up defeating Yami, revealing that this was all a simulation, with Kaiba being displeased as it hasn't captured how Yami would actually have played, getting interrupted by Mokuba informing him that through their excavations in the modern day, they have found the Millennium Puzzle, being the one thing Kaiba needs to really get a thorough duel with the Pharaoh himself. Later on, Yugi and the gang are with Bakura, eating at Duke's Cafe, as Yugi sees the news of the gang that was messing with Agami now have gone missing. We get a moment with Agami that shows him in this special area above the clouds, seeing pillars that represent the Millennium items, along with getting a flashback to him in Egypt being with his sister Sarah, as she refers to him as the name Diva instead. Agami is given information regarding Kaiba finding the Millennium Puzzle, as he then teleports away. Kaiba though ends up taking over all of the TV screens around, announcing his brand new duel disc, and is showing it off at Kaiba Land. Kaiba's life is so crazy. Kaiba Land is massive. He still has the cool Blue Eyes White jet, and he even has this ridiculous space station that has an elevator that connects all the way back down to Earth? Why? Because why not? But while the Kaiba brothers ponder over the puzzle, Kaiba feels the presence of someone else, calling out to Agami and saying his name as Diva as well, with Kaiba having kept tabs on him, and finds it odd how he got to Egypt so fast, having just been back in Domino City. In a show of force, Agami uses his quantum cube to make a Kaiba Corp employee disappear after he was threatened by him. As they now end up getting into a duel, Kaiba surprises him at one point as he summons Obelisk the Tormentor, but the duel gets interrupted as the puzzle had finished scanning, with Mokuba taking it with him on a helicopter as Agami tries to teleport to it and then take the puzzle for himself. As Kaiba has what he wants anyway, he just gets in his jet and leaves, as one of Agami's associates named Manny sees what was left behind here, the Millennium Ring. Later on, Agami reveals to Sarah that he didn't truly battle Kaiba, but he did manage to take a piece of the Millennium Puzzle from Mokuba before coming back. Technically, 2 pieces, giving her a piece and telling her to keep it safe. Agami then tries to get in closer with Yugi and his friends, wanting to know more about them. And through their time together, Agami gets to hear all about the fun adventures the group has gone on and been a part of, and ends up wanting to challenge Yugi to a duel as Joey jumps in to say that he has to go through him first. Joey then invites them over to have a fun duel tournament, with Kaiba now being back in his space station as his computer is trying to put together the pieces of the Millennium Puzzle, with Kaiba chomping at the bit to get a big real battle here. Agami heads over to Yugi's with the others, holding his quantum cube, claiming it to just be a deck box to not make things weird. Sarah though enters into the game shop when Yugi is there setting up things for the tournament, taking notice of the original box for the Millennium Puzzle, as he uses it as his own deck box of sorts, as she then shows him this other realm known as the Plano Realm. Seeing the pillars as we were shown before, and as this ends they are back at the shop with Sarah nowhere to be found, but within Yugi's puzzle box lies that one piece of the Millennium Puzzle Sarah was given. Which is certainly odd, but back at the International Kaiba Space Station, Kaiba waits for the puzzle to be completed, but the computer then reports in that there are 2 pieces in fact missing, as Kaiba casually gets angry about this, but thinks back to what happened and believes this is Agami's fault. Speaking of him, he's still with Bakura and Joey as he wants to know more about Bakura's past, as Bakura was initially sharing some details about his father's search for the Millennium Ring, as Agami starts forcing him to continue, causing Bakura to panic as he would rather not relive certain details. The weird ghost kids show up again, freaking out Joey, as Agami sends Joey to a different dimension, as he ends up in a road where the whole dimension is based on Joey's memories, and if he forgets anything, it will disappear from it. But Joey uses this to then create more of his memories, as Agami catches on to what Joey is trying to do, which is trying to find a way to outsmart him here, and begins to erase his memories as the world he is in begins to start closing in on him. At the same time, Yugi is just patiently waiting at the shop for his friends, wondering where they're at, as Tristan comes by thinking something has happened to Joey, after he found his dual disc and bike left randomly in the road, knowing that he would never do this, so they hop on his motorcycle and try and go find Joey and meet up with Taya. Agami now takes aim at Bakura, who is still in a state of panic, as Agami initiates a flashback, showing a group of children being around Shadi. Among the children are Agami, Sarah, and Manny, as we see the full tablet of the Pharaoh's memories being there, with it still having the Millennium Scale and ring within it, as Shadi gives context to the items, claiming that 3 of the Millennium items are a representation of justice, while 3 of the others are weak and open to evil, while the Millennium Puzzle itself holds both justice and evil, balancing everything out and giving context to the Pharaoh himself based on the evil within the Pharaoh's heart that we dealt with in Season 4. Shadi tells the children about a better world being accessible if all of the Millennium items are gathered together, and they would all be allowed to go there, as they are chosen to do so, with Agami wanting to go to this world. This now continues as we see Bakura's father finding the Millennium Ring, after dedicating his whole life to looking for it, trying to buy it off Shadi, and while Shadi declines, he allows him to try it on, putting him in a test of worthiness. It's not too long before he takes it off and tosses it away, as he is then attacked by some shadow snakes, as a young Bakura, who tells him to quickly put it back on, grabs the ring as a light shines from it, giving us the first connection of Yami Bakura taking over Bakura, becoming one with the ring, melting right into his skin. Yami Bakura gives Shadi a nice thank you for giving him a good host body, striking a fatal blow to Shadi as now the children rush to his side as he gives Agami the Quantum Cube while he passes away, with Yami Bakura then slaughtering the other kids as Agami and Sarah end up making it out of there alive. From this vision of the past, Bakura is devastated at what he has seen, pleading with Agami that this wasn't his fault, it was all the ring's doing, or more so Yami Bakura's doing, continuing to apologize for what happened as Manny appears with the ring and attempts to kill Bakura in revenge, but gets control of himself after being guided by the evil within the ring. Bakura was then sent to another dimension for now, while Agami and Manny head to another one as well, but Manny ends up apparently dying and disappearing as Agami contemplates taking the ring for himself, but stops as he hears Yugi out looking for Joey. From here, Agami goes to confront Yugi, telling him that he is a Plana, and to give you an explanation of this is really just explaining why he has these powers in a way, as the Plana are essentially a collective consciousness that can bend reality, and this was given on to people from the Pharaoh as he went on to the afterlife, only having these abilities unless the Pharaoh returns, giving Agami a reason to not let the Pharaoh return once more. He tells Yugi that he implanted a memory, just like Inception, that Agami seems familiar for whatever reason, and then he reveals that his name is actually Diva. Cutting back to Joey, his dimension is almost gone as he starts fading away as well, until he sees a glimpse of Atem, suddenly now finding himself in the real world where Yugi and the others are happy to find him as he tells them that Bakura needs some help as well. Diva leaves for now as Joey holds back from telling Yugi about seeing Atem as they continue their search for Bakura. While Diva is alone now on a roof, he ends up being taken by some employees of Kaiba Corp and brought right to Kaiba, who tries to get the pieces of the puzzle back from him. Yugi ends up seeing a commotion, noticing that Kaiba is the cause of it, as Kaiba tells Yugi to play in an exhibition duel at Kaiba Land, as he then shows Yugi the nearly put together Millennium Puzzle, and tells Yugi that Diva's responsible for the missing pieces as he leaves with him for now, telling Yugi that he wants a real duel with the other Yugi. After he leaves, Yugi sees his puzzle box in the road and grabs it as Sarah saves him from traffic, with her telling him to complete the Millennium Puzzle once more and to save her brother. Diva later wakes up being tied to a chair in a glass box as the Kaiba brothers watch over him, messing with him over knowing about where the other pieces actually are. At the special duel stadium at Kaiba Land, Kaiba shows off his Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. While he talks about his new duel disc to everyone, he then also announces his exhibition matches as he will face off against both Yugi and Agami for their pieces of the puzzle that they they hold. Sarah shows up to Diva, telling him that she is sorry for giving the piece to Yugi, but thinks it was the right choice. But with their bond, Diva is just happy that she isn't harmed. Yugi ends up telling Kaiba that he should be the one to duel Diva, going after him for what he did to Yugi's friends, as Kaiba agrees, giving him the new duel disc as their duel begins. Here, Diva claims to only be doing this in the efforts of getting to the other dimension and no longer wanted to be a part of the current cruel world, as he looks back at his younger years as he was living in an abusive environment with a man who would force all of the children to steal for him as he would treat them poorly. Shoddy would then show up and take down the man, tapping Diva's forehead where a symbol appears for a moment, and doing this to all of the other children before finishing off the man with the quantum cube. As the battle continues, Yugi ends up defeating Diva as he then disappears for now, while Bakura is brought back from the dimension that he was in as Kaiba gets ready to duel Yugi for the 2 pieces of the puzzle so he can bring back the other Yugi, in his words, as Kaiba now places the puzzle in the middle of the arena, with Yugi trying to tell Kaiba that Atem is gone, and proves this by placing the last 2 pieces in it with nothing happening. But what does happen is Diva went back to where the Millennium Ring was left as its energy takes over him. Back at the arena, Kaiba refuses to believe that what Yugi is saying is true, and forces the duel to continue until the power goes out, stopping the duel from happening as Diva, or Dark Diva, arrives back to them as Yugi and Kaiba have to do the classic team up once again. The duel has turned into a shadow game, naturally, where body parts fade away depending on life points being lost. Dark Diva ends up putting them both in a pretty bad position and is ready to defeat Yugi for good, but Kaiba pulls a good guy move here, getting the attack to come to him instead as he hands Yugi the Millennium Puzzle back, telling Yugi to call him now as he disappears. Yugi puts on the puzzle, but still tries to take on the battle, thinking calling out through the puzzle would be hopeless, as then a beam of light zaps a transformation and sees the return of Pharaoh Atem as he is now taken over the duel from here, defeating Diva as he calms back down before disappearing. Yugi and Atem share a moment together as the Pharaoh heads back home, acknowledging the help when things have felt hopeless. Atem touches the puzzle, sending himself and the puzzle away, as Kaiba then gives Yugi some actual respect, claiming him to be a competent duelist, as Yugi appreciates Kaiba's words, with them going their separate ways for now. Diva ends up in the Plana realm as he sees the others, along with him no longer having his special powers, but he is at peace. As the movie comes to a close, Yugi ends up giving a graduation speech at school, and our characters have grown up a bit, and now all go on their separate ways to their dreams. Back with Kaiba, he is in the space station once more as he leaves Mokuba in charge for now, as Kaiba has found a way to enter the afterlife in search of Atem's palace, getting there and meeting him in the throne room, activating his duel disc, and being ready for a real duel, as Atem stands up from his throne, offering a smile with the film ending. The film is a lot of fun, and while it does bring the Pharaoh back, it does so in a way that doesn't disrespect the ending of the series, making it quick and momentarily rather than having him around the whole film. It also gave us a deeper look into the lore of the show and tried to connect together some other plots or explanations. It's also pretty long. Bonds Beyond Time was only around like an hour, feeling like a special more than anything, as The Dark Side of Dimension is 2 hours and 20 minutes long, so it's packed with a lot of fun moments. Before we get to the end here, I just want to spend a moment to give a thank you and pay my respects to the creator of the series, Kazuki Takahashi. Not only did he create a series that has done nothing but continue to expand in many new ways, that built an amazing and massive community that cherishes all things that are Yu-Gi-Oh!, but he was also a great person. Sadly, in July of 2022, Takahashi ended up passing away while trying to save some people off the coast of Okinawa, who were caught in the rough waters during some bad weather. He went out as a hero, and I am thankful for his contributions to the world that helped change my life as a kid growing up, getting to befriend so many others in the community, and become a lifelong fan of the franchise across nearly every aspect. You were an inspiration to many, you brought millions of people together, and your legacy and name hold genuine weight forever. Thank you for everything, and may you rest easy, Mr. Takahashi. I want to also thank you all for watching this video, as well as the series in general if you've watched every part so far. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has always and will always be a part of my life and means something to me, and I would love to hear what it means to you, so feel free to share in the comments below what Yu-Gi-Oh! Truly means to you in your life. I've been Jordan Fringe. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Later.